हेलो दोस्तों, आपका वापस से स्वागत है मेरे वीडियो में। तो आप लोग सोच रहे होंगे इतना लेट क्यों डाल रहा वीडियो। तो मेन रीज़न है कि मैं अभी से 3-4 घंटे पहले ही मैं वीडियो डाल देता। मैं सबसे बड़ा वीडियो अभी तक का ना, यानी यही वीडियो का 148 चैप्टर तक मैंने कंप्लीट किया था, उसी को ही डालने वाला था और मैं वाईटी स्टूडियो में डाल भी दिया था। अब हुआ ये कि कंप्लीट होने के बाद मुझे लगा कि अपलोड हो चुका है, तो मैंने ना अपना स्टोरेज से डिलीट कर दिया क्योंकि मेरा स्टोरेज फुल हो जाता है। न- लेकिन है ना, जे लास्ट पॉइंट में ना यूट्यूब का एक अथी होता है कि कन्फर्मेशन और के लिए टाइम लगता है, उसी में हम ध्यान नहीं दिए और हम डिलीट कर दिए। वीडियो डिलीट हुआ यूट्यूब, यानी यूट्यूब से भी डिलीट हो गया, वाईटी स्टूडियो से गया नहीं और मेरा हो गया कांड। मैंने पूरे 12 घंटा का वीडियो यानी रात से डाला था, तो सुबह तक का हुआ था तब मैंने वो डालने का सोचा था। मेरे एक मिस्टेक के कारण वो पूरा का पूरा इसी आते आपको इतना लेट से वीडियो मिल रहा है। चलिए शुरुआत करते हैं, और ये वीडियो उतना लंबा भी नहीं हो रहा है क्योंकि मैंने 2-3 घंटा पहले ही है ना इसको दोबारा से रिकॉर्ड किया हूँ, तो आप समझ सकते हैं। चलिए स्टार्ट करते हैं।
Chapter 1, A Bit of Good Luck, First Meeting with Xiao Wu. Praise Life. Qilin watched the carriages speeding past on the road, then bent down to pick up a gold coin that had fallen from a gap in one of the carriages. As long as he had gold coins, he could enjoy delicious food, enjoy life, and even add to his family's luxurious country villa. This was the Douluo Continent, southwest of the Heavendo Empire, Fanos Province, Radish Village. Qilin had been transmigrated for 6 years. It was only because in his previous life, he and his wife were playing late at night, and his wife cosplayed as Xiao Wu from the Douluo Continent anime. Qilin felt it wasn't quite accurate and casually said he wanted to try what it felt like in real life. Then he transmigrated. But Qilin was just like that, he was always at ease with whatever came his way, because his luck had always been very good. He was used to it. After transmigrating, Qilin was still called Qilin, but his family's conditions were not very good at first. His parents' spirits were both trash spirits, one a sickle and the other blue silver grass. His ancestors for 3 generations had been poor, relying on a bit of ancestral land to make a living. This situation only changed after Qilin was born. After Qilin was born, when there wasn't enough milk to drink, a lame doe would get lost and stumble upon their door. When the family didn't have enough food, various wild game would always be delivered right to their doorstep. When they needed money, he would find a silver coin outside the door the next day. Immediately after that, he started finding coins every day, bronze coins, silver coins, gold coins, in rotation. Finally, the family's furniture in the entire house changed completely. Qilin's family thus became the richest in Radish village. After wandering around the village for a while, seeing the sun set, Qilin prepared to head home. On the way back, the villagers he passed were all very lively and polite to him, hoping to catch some of his good luck. Watching Qilin walk away, several simple-minded men gathered together, their faces full of envy. Sigh, I finally understand, some people are just not born to suffer. Exactly, the only thing separating us from being the richest is a son like him. Let's find some time to ask Qigudin, what's his secret to having such a son? Qigudin was Qilin's father's former name. Later, he himself disliked the name and, at his son's urging, changed it to Qitian. As soon as Qilin returned home, he was immediately pulled aside by Qitian, who was sitting in the outer academy enjoying the cool air. Qitian looked about 27 or 28, his face and figure appearing slightly plump, with only faint traces of his handsome youthful features remaining. However, this was also due to their increasingly better life in recent years. Dad, what are you doing? Seeing Qitian's mysterious expression, Qilin also became curious. But then he heard words that completely shocked him. Hee, good son, do you want a wife or not? Qitian had a mischievous look on his face and even winked at Qilin. Qilin, after hearing this, opened his mouth in shock. After a while, he gave Qitian a thumbs up. Dad, you're really something. I'm only 6, and you're already thinking about my marriage. Whose daughter is it? As he spoke, Qilin was also wondering who it could be. Could it be the daughters of those rich merchants or nobles in Nuoding City? Ever since his family became wealthy, Qitian began to want to prove himself and even started a small business. Not for anything else, but to prove that his current success wasn't entirely due to his son. But he quickly suffered a great loss, and reluctantly, he had to bring Qilin with him when doing business. This was also Qilin's request. Mainly, he didn't want to stay cooped up in Radish village all the time. Having transmigrated to the Douluo continent, he definitely wanted to travel around. Later, the family's business indeed inexplicably started to improve for various reasons. It was also for this reason that Qilin got to know the daughters of several rich merchants and minor nobles in Nuoding City. Qitian chuckled, I didn't say you have to marry now. We can cultivate feelings first, and in a few years, it'll be about time. Children on the Douluo continent generally develop very quickly, especially after awakening their spirit. Therefore, getting married at 12 or 13 was completely normal. When Qitian was young, his family was poor, and he had a trash spirit. He later relied on his handsome face and persistent pursuit to marry Qilin's mother at 18. Then, Qitian added, that little girl is very cute, you know. Qilin casually said, how cute can she be? He wasn't some grandmaster of lily worship, no matter how cute, she couldn't sway his heart. Qitian squeezed his eyes, pulling Qilin to walk towards the house. You'll see, your mom likes her a lot and wants to adopt her as a goddaughter. Only your dad, me, is secretly thinking of you. After entering the house, the two saw a gentle woman leading a little girl in a pink dress, with a tender, dewy face, walking down the stairs not far away. Looking at the familiar little face of the girl, and her scorpion braid that hung past her hips, Qilin was slightly stunned. Isn't this Xiao Wu? Xiao Wu's appearance was not much different from the anime, but Qilin still felt that she looked even cuter in person. The gentle woman was Qilin's mother, Shu Qian. Shu Qian looked at Qilin, who was being pulled back by Qitian, and said with a smile, Qilin is back. Come quickly, mom will introduce you. Then she brightly introduced Xiao Wu, who was beside her. This is Xiao Wu. Because her daddy and mommy were eaten by spirit beasts, she has no home to go back to, so mom decided to adopt her. Qilin was slightly taken aback. Was there this plot point in the original work? It seemed there wasn't. Then, Shu Jian pointed at Qilin and gently said to Xiao Wu, this is Qilin. You should call him Gerger from now on. Xiao Wu sized up Qilin. How to put it? This human boy in front of her was fair-skinned and clean, not only very handsome but also had a gentle smile on his face. Just by looking at him a bit more, Xiao Wu felt her little heart beating very fast. However, upon hearing Shu Jian tell her to call this boy Gerger, Xiao Wu's tender little face immediately scrunched up into a frown. She said clearly, and Shu Jian, can Xiao Wu be the Jia? Xiao Wu doesn't want to be a Mei. In the Stardew Great Forest, she had always been the big boss. Shu Jian looked at Xiao Wu with an amused expression and gently coaxed, Xiao Wu, you have to be obedient. You just said you just turned 6, but your Qilin Gerger is already 6 years and 4 months old. After hearing Shu Jian's words, Xiao Wu pouted. Although not very willing, she still clearly called out, Qilin Gerger to Qilin. She actually wanted to say that she was a 100,000-year spirit beast, but she couldn't expose her identity. Moreover, Aunt Shu Jian was so gentle and even said she would give her endless carrots, so she had to listen to Aunt Shu Jian. She could only privately ask Qilin to call her sister Xiao Wu later. Thinking of this, Xiao Wu showed Qilin a sweet smile on the surface, but her little fists were already clenched. In the spirit beast world, the biggest fist ruled. Even in the human world, she wanted to be the big boss. Chapter 2, The Rogue Rabbit Loves to Make Up His Mind, Blind Douluo Appears. Chapter 2, The Rogue Rabbit's Overactive Imagination, Blind-Eye Douluo Appears. Huh, is Xiao Wu really that obedient? She must be faking it. Qilin's mouth inexplicably curved upwards as he stepped forward and reached out to rub Xiao Wu's doll-like cheek. Wow, so cute. Watching the two children in harmonious agreement, Shu Jian couldn't help but show a doting smile on her face. And Qi Tian narrowed his eyes in a smile. Although the children of those wealthy merchants and nobles were also quite cute, they still fell far short compared to Xiao Wu. In the evening, the family ate in the main hall, with the dining table laden with a sumptuous dinner. After asking Xiao Wu, Shu Jian even specially made 3 dishes related to radishes, which Xiao Wu ate with great delight. Qilin curiously watched Xiao Wu, and even specifically picked a piece of meat for her bowl. They say rabbits are omnivores, so he wanted to see if Xiao Wu would eat meat besides radishes. As for the result, Xiao Wu was first startled, then turned her head to look at Qilin several times. Seeing him smile gently at her, a very warm and friendly smile, she felt a sense of closeness. Xiao Wu whispered something only she could hear. What does he mean by this? Is he trying to court me? One can only say that Xiao Wu truly lives up to her title as a 100,000-year rogue rabbit. Her thoughts are very mature. Of course, Xiao Wu eventually ate the meat Qilin had given her. So she does eat meat. Qilin also whispered to himself. Shu Jian and Qi Tian exchanged glances, each seeing the teasing look on the other's face. Halfway through the meal, Qi Tian suddenly said, oh, right, in a few days, the Grand Master from Spirit Hall will come to the countryside again to awaken spirits for commoners. If both of you awaken spirit power, I'll send you to Nine Academy. Xiao Wu's heart stirred when she heard this. If she went to Nine Academy, she would be able to integrate better among human spirit masters. Qilin chewed a few mouthfuls, swallowed the food in his mouth, then curiously asked, is Sister Cece still the one coming to our village to awaken spirits this year? Sister Cece is a spirit master affiliated with the New Oding City Spirit Branch Hall, and she comes to the countryside every year to awaken spirits for ordinary commoners who have reached 6 years of age. After meeting Qilin 3 years ago, she grew quite fond of him, and she has visited Qilin's family every new year for the past 3 years. Qi Tian said strangely, Miss Sister Cece has already been coming to our radish village for several years in a row, so this year will certainly be no exception. At this point, Qi Tian paused and asked curiously, why, don't you want Miss Sister Cece to come? Didn't you like her quite a bit? Qilin shook his head and said, no, it's just that I heard there's a Master Su Yuntao at the New Oding City Spirit Branch Hall, so I wanted to see him. Online, everyone said Su Yuntao was the blind-eye Douluo, and now that he had transmigrated to the Douluo continent, Qilin definitely wanted to see him. Qi Tian shook his head with a smile and said, you can forget about it. I heard that the Spirit Hall Grandmaster's area for awakening spirits in the countryside each year is fixed, and Master Su Yuntao isn't responsible for our area. It's fine, I was just thinking about it. Qilin said indifferently, but in his heart, he was wondering what reason would bring Master Su Yuntao to Radish Village. He would definitely come, that was his intuition. After dinner, Qi Tian and Shu Jian both went to attend to their own matters, leaving only Qilin and Xiao Wu in the main hall. Xiao Wu wandered around the hall like a curious baby, looking left and right, her bright, watery eyes full of novelty. In the hall, there were exquisite wood carvings, plant and animal specimens, easels and drawing boards, and all sorts of strange musical instruments. Your home is so beautiful, Xiao Wu blinked and said with a smile. When she first transformed, Erming also built her a wooden house. But it was ugly, not pretty at all. Qilin gave Xiao Wu a heartwarming smile. If you think it's beautiful, then feel at home. There's plenty of food for you. Then Qilin remembered that in the original story, Xiao Wu's mother had died, so he added, you can just treat my mother as your own mother. I can tell she really likes you. But when Xiao Wu heard Qilin's words, she revealed an expression that seemed to say, sure enough. This human child really wants to court me. It seems Sister Xiao Wu was still very charming. Xiao Wu thought proudly to herself. Qilin looked at Xiao Wu, who suddenly had a vacant stare and a smiling expression, and was slightly surprised. No way, she's moved that easily. A moment later, Xiao Wu came back to her senses, looked at the puzzled Qilin, and once again fell into deep thought. She was considering whether she should give Qilin a chance if he truly intended to pursue her. If Qilin knew what Xiao Wu was thinking at that moment, he would probably only sigh in his heart. This love-struck continent is truly terrifying. To switch topics, after this small interlude, Xiao Wu remembered her desire to be the big sister. She immediately proposed fighting Qilin, stating that if she won, Qilin would only be allowed to call her sister Xiao Wu from then on. Qilin certainly didn't agree, only willing to play rock paper scissors with Xiao Wu, 3 rounds. As long as Xiao Wu won 1 round, he would call her sister Xiao Wu from then on. Xiao Wu saw that this was a huge advantage for her, so she readily agreed. The result. The two played 30 rounds in a row, and Xiao Wu didn't win a single one. In the end, Xiao Wu could only reluctantly call Qilin brother. There was nothing she could do, she had already cheated and played 27 extra rounds, but she really couldn't win a single one. However, Xiaowu was very interested in the secret behind Qilin's constant wins and kept pestering him. She wanted to know if there was some trick involved, and she didn't believe it was just luck, as Qilin claimed. She was a smart rabbit, how could she be so easily fooled by Qilin? That evening, Xu Qian prepared an empty room for Xiaowu, but Xiaowu insisted on sleeping with Qilin. She was very persistent, so no matter how Xu Qian tried to coax her, she was determined. Finally, Xu Qian thought about it. After all, they were both just children, so it was fine for Xiaowu and Qilin to share a room. Having made up her mind, Xu Qian then instructed Qi Tian to move a small bed into Qilin's room. The following days passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, it was the day for spirit awakening. Everyone in the village had gathered early in front of the spirit awakening house in the village. Originally, the spirit hall for awakening spirits was just a slightly larger room, but after Qilin's family prospered, they demolished this room and rebuilt a more magnificent and grand stone hall. After all, Qilin's home couldn't possibly look grander and more upscale than the village's spirit hall, could it? In the hearts of Qi Tian and his wife, this would be a sign of disrespect towards spirit hall. After all, as the sacred land of spirit masters, spirit hall tirelessly awakens spirits for commoners like them every year. It's no exaggeration to say it's a blessing for the common people. Qi Tian and his wife, along with Qilin and Xiaowu, stood together with the radish village chief, at the very front of a group of children. Today, there were 15 children who met the age requirement, and each child was generally accompanied by a parent. Because the spirit hall spirit master had not yet arrived, everyone was greeting each other. Among this group of people, Qi Tian was undoubtedly the most beaming with pride. Not only did he marry a beautiful wife, but he also had a precious son. The men in the village were all envious and jealous of him. Not long after, a tall and upright figure suddenly walked over from a distance. When the figure drew closer, everyone was slightly startled. The person who arrived was not Master Sister Cici from Spirit Hall. Qi Tian's face showed a strange expression when he saw the newcomer, then he turned his gaze to his son beside him. Qilin noticed his father's gaze and spread his hands. Then he curiously sized up the newcomer. This person was tall, handsome, dressed in white martial attire, and had a pitch-black cloak draped over his back. Crow, the radish village chief, immediately went up to him and respectfully said, "Respected battle spirit master, I'll trouble you with this now." Su Yuntao smiled faintly and nodded. Then he came before the crowd and said loudly, "My name is Su Yuntao, and I am the Spirit Hall Patrol Deacon responsible for the spirit awakening in Radish Village." Saying that, he pushed open the Spirit Hall door and stood at the entrance. "Children, follow me into the main hall, and please don't make noise." Crow also added, "Children, listen to Master Su Yuntao." The children all responded in agreement and followed Su Yuntao inside. The others waited outside the hall. Chapter 3 Su Yuntao, what a pity, it's a useless martial spirit. Chapter 3, Master Su Yuntao, what a pity, it's a wasted martial soul, waste spirit. After Master Su Yuntao led the children to the center of the main hall, he took out 6 black stones and a light blue crystal ball from his bag. After some manipulation, he arranged the 6 black stones into a hexagon on the ground in the center of the hall, then pointed to Qilin, who was standing at the front of the children, and beckoned, smiling kindly. "Little friend, your name is Qilin, right? Come here." Master Su Yuntao was Sister Cici's boyfriend, so he had heard the name Qilin from Sister Cici quite often. When he first heard the name, he was even jealous, but after knowing Qilin's age, it was naturally impossible for him to still be jealous of Qilin. Moreover, he really wanted to meet this little guy he had never met before. Could he have some magic that made Sister Cici like him so much? However, when Master Su Yuntao actually met the real Qilin, although he felt that Sister Cici's praise for Qilin was a bit exaggerated, he did admit that Qilin had a comfortable and friendly aura about him. "I'm Qilin, Master Su Yuntao, can you tell me why Sister Cici isn't here this year?" When Qilin heard Master Su Yuntao's words, he walked into the center of the hexagon formation, glanced around curiously, and then asked politely. Master Su Yuntao said gently, "Sister Cici, she went to help her friend hunt for soul this year, so she couldn't come." Soul hunting. Qilin suddenly understood, so that's how it was, this reason made sense. That's right, soul hunting. If you can test for soul power, and reach level 10 in the future, you can also have Sister Cici take you soul hunting. While Master Su Yuntao was speaking with a smile, he clapped his hands together, activating the hexagon formation. Immediately, the 6 black stones placed on the ground suddenly shot out golden rays of light, shining on Qilin and forming a golden light shield. Seeing this, Master Su Yuntao's eyes lit up. This movement is quite big, it seems this kid Qilin can awaken a good spirit. And the moment Qilin was enveloped by the golden light, he immediately felt a warm sensation. So comfortable. Qilin muttered softly, while secretly thinking, what kind of spirit can I awaken? His father is a sickle, and his mother is blue silver grass, and neither of them has soul power. Theoretically, Qilin's spirit would be either a sickle or blue silver grass, and there would likely be no soul power. But his intuition told Qilin that his spirit would definitely be mutated, and perhaps his soul power wouldn't be low. As expected, just as he finished thinking, he felt as if something was trying to rush out of his palm. At this moment, Master Su Yuntao's voice suddenly sounded. "Qilin, extend your right hand." Qilin nodded and opened his palm. The next moment, a light blue little grass suddenly emerged from Qilin's palm, looking like the wild blue silver grass by the roadside. But what was strange was that the tip of this light blue little grass had 4 leaves. Master Su Yuntao carefully examined the light blue little grass for a few moments, and a look of disappointment flashed across his face. "Alas, it seems your spirit should be a mutated blue silver grass. This spirit is notoriously useless the more it mutates, what a poor kid." Looking at Qilin, who had a curious expression on his face, Master Su Yuntao sighed softly, with a hint of regret in his eyes. On the Douluo Continent, most spirit mutations are malignant mutations, not to mention that Qilin's spirit was mutated from blue silver grass. Come, let's test your soul power. Although the probability of a waste spirit testing for soul power is extremely low, who knows, maybe you will test it out. Because Sister Cici liked Qilin, Master Su Yuntao also extended his affection, and even though Qilin's spirit was tested as a waste spirit, his tone was still very kind. And Qilin suddenly became excited. Nothing else, because he just heard Master Su Yuntao say the words, waste spirit. With Brother Dao calling it waste, wouldn't he be guaranteed a God King at least? He tilde. Praise Brother Dao. So, Qilin happily stretched out his hand over the blue crystal ball. This action completely confused Brother Dao, who couldn't help but doubt himself. Did I say something wrong just now? Why is this kid so happy when I said his spirit is a waste spirit? The smile on Qilin's face didn't seem fake. But before Master Su Yuntao could think more about the reason, he saw the blue crystal ball suddenly burst into dazzling blue light. This. You kid actually has soul power. And this is, innate full soul power. Master Su Yuntao was completely flustered, unable to even maintain his expression, looking stunned. He looked at Qilin as if he were looking at a monster, and couldn't help but swallow. I've been awakening spirits for people for so many years, and this is the first time I've seen innate full soul power. What a pity, you kid has a mutated waste spirit, otherwise, I'm afraid even those adults in our spirit hall would be scrambling to take you as a disciple. What a pity, what a pity. After a moment, Master Su Yuntao remembered that Qilin's spirit was just a mutated waste spirit, so he quickly reacted, and the look in his eyes as he looked at the latter became even more regretful. Then he sighed and reached out to pat Qilin's shoulder. Kid, even though you're just a waste spirit, don't be sad. Anyway, you have innate full soul power, you can at least be a soul master, and with me and your sister Cece around, we'll cover you in the future. However, Qilin, who was listening to Master Su Yuntao's words, slowly shook his head with a smile. Sad. I'm not sad. Master Su Yuntao raised an eyebrow, about to tell Qilin not to hold it in, and to cry if he wanted to. But after looking him over, he found. This kid really doesn't seem sad at all. A bit strange. Finally, Master Su Yuntao could only say, alright, it seems your mindset is good, which is a good thing. Immediately after, Master Su Yuntao began to awaken Xiao Wu's spirit. At first, it was quite normal, awakening the soft-bone rabbit spirit. The soft-bone rabbit is also at the bottom of the soul beast world, so Master Su Yuntao didn't think her innate soul power would be very high at first. Until the blue crystal ball once again burst into dazzling light. Innate full soul power. Seeing this result, Master Su Yuntao's face once again showed an expression of disbelief. What's going on? Another innate full soul power. When did innate full soul power become so worthless? Or is it that the soul testing crystal ball is malfunctioning? While speaking, Master Su Yuntao didn't forget to take out the crystal ball and start examining it. After examining it for a long time, he still couldn't find anything wrong. It's not wrong. Master Su Yuntao muttered softly, his gaze still flickering between Qilin and Xiao Wu. This year is really strange, innate full soul power one after another, but the result is either a waste spirit or a semi-waste spirit. On the Douluo continent, people often pay more attention to the strength of the spirit, and the importance of innate soul power is secondary. This is also why in the original work, Noting City produced 2 consecutive innate full soul power, but it still didn't cause much of a stir. Fortunately, the spirits awakened by the other children afterwards were all relatively normal. Among all the waste spirits, except for one child who tested 1 level of innate soul power, the rest all had no innate soul power. Otherwise, if there were more special situations like Qilin and Xiao Wu, Master Su Yuntao would probably really doubt his life. Chapter 4, Mutated Blue Silvergrass Martial Spirit, 4-leaf clover. Chapter 4, Mutated Blue Silvergrass Spirit, 4-leaf clover. After the spirit hall gate opened, Village Chief Crow and Chi Tian immediately came forward to greet them. Following closely behind were the parents of the other children. Crow said nervously, Master Su Yuntao, may I ask if any of the children from our Radish Village have the potential to become soul masters this year? It was understandable that he was so nervous, it had been several years since Radish Village had produced a soul master. Su Yuntao's gaze swept around, feeling the expectant and uneasy mood of the crowd, and let out a long sigh. Seeing this, everyone's heart sank, and disappointment flashed in their eyes. Could it be that Radish Village wouldn't produce a soul master again this year? Then, everyone's eyes turned to Qilin. Everyone felt that with Qilin's luck, there was no reason for him not to have awakened innate spirit power. They expected to see a lonely or dejected expression on Qilin's face. However, what greeted them was Qilin's faint smile. This smile was relaxed and calm, full of a Buddhist-like tranquility, completely unlike someone who had suffered a setback. What was going on? As everyone was curious, Su Yuntao suddenly spoke again. This year, a total of 3 people in your Radish Village have awakened innate spirit power. Ah. The people of Radish Village, including Crow and Chi Tian, cried out in surprise, bewildered by Su Yuntao's sudden turn, and looked at him with a resentful expression. Their eyes seemed to say, since someone in our Radish Village has awakened innate spirit power, why did you sigh just now, causing us to misunderstand? When everyone looked at Qilin again, they finally reacted. No wonder Qilin didn't look like he had suffered a setback at all, he must have awakened innate spirit power. In contrast, the other children were all dejected and their faces were downcast. Crow's expression also became excited, and he quickly asked, then, Master Su Yuntao, may I ask who are the 3 children in our village who have awakened innate spirit power? And how many levels of innate spirit power did they awaken? Su Yuntao looked at the excited and expectant expressions of the crowd and sighed again. The 3 children who awakened innate spirit power are Qilin, Xiao Wu, and Qi Yu. As soon as this was said, before Su Yuntao could continue, the parents of the children became restless and all showed an expression of, as expected. The parents of the children who had not awakened innate spirit power all cast envious glances at Chi Tian and Qi Yu's father, a seemingly simple and honest middle-aged man. In the crowd, only Crow remained calm, clearing his throat and saying, everyone, quiet down. Crow was clearly very respected by the villagers in Radish Village. As soon as he spoke, everyone quieted down again. Seeing this, Su Yuntao gave Crow a satisfied smile, and then continued. Among the 3, except for Qi Yu who awakened only 1 level of innate spirit power, both Xiao Wu and Qilin awakened full innate spirit power. But unfortunately, Xiao Wu's spirit is soft-bone rabbit, and Qilin's spirit is even worse than Xiao Wu's, it's just a mutated blue silver grass. Alas, tilde, if their spirits were just a little stronger, their future prospects would be immeasurable. Ah, tilde. Soft-bone rabbit, mutated blue silver grass. This is unbelievable, why would it be such a spirit? After listening, Crow also couldn't help but sigh, looking at Qilin and Xiao Wu with regret. What 2 poor children? They should have had a brighter future. As for the parents of the other children, they initially felt unbalanced when they heard that both Qilin and Xiao Wu had full innate spirit power. But now, there was no longer any trace of envy in their eyes when they looked at Chi Tian and Qilin. In their ingrained perception, they had never seen anyone successfully cultivate with a wasted martial soul, waste spirit of blue silver grass for hundreds of thousands of years. What did this mean? It meant that this spirit was a pure wasted martial soul, waste spirit, and even if it had innate spirit power, its upper limit was already locked. Even if it was mutated, it wouldn't work. After all, 7 or 8 out of 10 mutated spirits become worse. As for soft bone rabbit, Although the spirit was also quite weak, it was still stronger than Qilin's mutated blue silver grass, right? What a pity, it seems Qilin's luck isn't omnipotent either. Thinking this way, the deification of Qilin in everyone's hearts was significantly weakened. Qilin was aware of this, but he didn't care about these things. In the crowd, only Qilin's parents' expressions didn't change much. As Qilin's parents, they didn't feel much regret or disappointment. The two who had changed their fate by relying on their son always felt immense trust in their son's strange luck. Their intuition told them that their son's mutated blue silver grass was definitely mutating in a good direction. Others didn't know the couple's thoughts, and led by village chief Crow, they took the lead in comforting the two. Su Yuntao patted Qilin's shoulder and encouraged him gently, although your spirit is a waste spirit, it's not completely impossible to cultivate. When Sister Cece returns, we will take you to hunt for a spirit ring, and then you will be a soul master. Keep it up, I believe being a soul master is not your endpoint. Thank you, brother Su Yuntao, for your concern. Although Qilin wasn't very worried about his future, he still smiled and thanked Su Yuntao. And after hearing Qilin's thanks, Su Yuntao looked at his calm and gentle smile and suddenly felt a sense of ease throughout his body, and even the bottleneck of his next level loosen. How strange. Su Yuntao muttered to himself, but remembering that there were still more than a dozen villages waiting for him to awaken spirits one by one, he could only say to Crow. Village Chief Crow, I still have important matters to attend to, so I won't stay long. Upon hearing this, Crow quickly replied, Hey, Master Su Yuntao, you don't have to worry about us, the important matter is important, the important matter is important. After speaking, Su Yuntao looked at Qilin again. Little friend, I'm leaving. The next time your sister Cece comes back, I will come with her to visit you. Qilin said with a cheerful smile, then, brother Su Yuntao, you should go and be busy with your work first, official business is important. Haha, alright, then I'm leaving. Leaving a sentence behind, Su Yuntao waved his hand and left with his bag on his back. After he left, the villagers also dispersed one after another, returning to their respective homes. On the way back, Qi Tian poked Qilin's shoulder and winked, Son, what does your spirit look like, let your dad see. This tone and way of interacting didn't resemble that of a father and son, but rather a pair of close friends. Shu Qian, who was beside them, also cast a curious glance. Seeing this, Qilin cleared his throat and said with a smile, Alright, let you broaden your horizons. As he spoke, he extended his right hand. The next second, a small blue grass with 4 leaves immediately emerged from Qilin's palm, looking ordinary and nothing special. However, after Qi Tian examined it carefully for a while, he suddenly exclaimed, Wife, quickly look at the 4 leaves on our son's mutated blue silver grass. This boisterous sound instantly attracted the attention of Shu Qian and Xiao Wu. The two of them leaned in for a closer look. They saw that the veins on the 4 leaves of the 4-leaf clover actually emitted a faint golden glow, but this glow looked very dim, and if you didn't look carefully, you really wouldn't notice it. Xiao Wu's eyes suddenly lit up, and she leaned down to get closer to the 4-leaf clover in Qilin's palm. Her eyelashes fluttered, and the faint golden light on the leaves of the 4-leaf clover was reflected in her pupils. She couldn't help but poke the leaf with her finger and cheered, Brother Qilin's blue silver grass leaves can glow. Qi Tian's face showed an expression of, as expected, and he said to Shu Qian, who was also carefully examining the leaves of the 4-leaf clover. Wife, I knew at first glance that our son's spirit is definitely not as simple as ordinary mutated blue silver grass. Shu Qian rolled her eyes at him and said, You don't need to tell me that, do you think I'm blind? What ordinary blue silver grass glows gold? Qilin waited until his parents and Xiao Wu had seen enough before retracting the 4-leaf clover back into his body. Chapter 5, Xiao Wu finally succeeds. Chapter 5, completely off topic, Xiao Wu finally gets her way. Night. Xiao Wu, wearing a pair of pink shorts, lay sprawled on the soft bed, her 2 slender legs swinging up and down, her fair, round feet pointing towards the ceiling. She propped her head with her hand, tilted her head, and looked at Qilin, who was quietly lying on the bed next to her, seemingly spacing out, her big eyes sparkling. Xiaolin Jie, what are you thinking about? Why do I see that you awakened innate full spirit power, but you don't seem too happy? That little brat named Qi Yu only awakened half a level, but I saw how happy he was. Xiao Wu's voice brought Qilin back from his daze. He turned his head to look at Xiao Wu and subconsciously said. Ah, Xiao Wu, were you talking to me just now? I didn't hear clearly just now, please say it again. As soon as he spoke, Xiao Wu immediately stopped swinging her legs, flipped up from the bed with a whoosh, stood up with her hands on her hips, and looked down at Qilin. Her small nose wrinkled slightly, and her cheeks puffed out unhappily. After a while, she said in a huffy voice with a hint of petulance, Xiaolin Jie, I'm angry. Seeing this scene, Qilin chuckled. He knew that if Xiao Wu were truly angry, it wouldn't be just like this. Without any hesitation, Qilin slowly extended a finger. What he wanted to express was, 1 carat. Xiao Wu looked, was slightly stunned, then thought about it with her smart little head, and immediately became happy. She could finally sleep on the same bed as Xiaolin Jie. For some reason, whenever Xiao Wu got close to Qilin, she really wanted to stick to him, as if there was something about him that made her unable to resist getting close. These past few days, Xiao Wu had been nagging about wanting to hug Qilin to sleep every day, but Qilin hadn't agreed. Today, he finally understood. However, 1 night was too little. So Xiao Wu made a gesture. I want to sleep for 10 days. Qilin looked and thought, this little girl Xiao Wu was really asking for too much, wanting 10 carats. Although he could definitely produce 10 carats, if he compromised this time, wouldn't the little rabbit become more and more demanding when she grew up? No, he couldn't spoil her. So Qilin continued to gesture. Only 1 carat. Xiao Wu frowned adorably, thinking to herself, Xiaolin Jie is too stingy, he won't even agree to 10 days. There was nothing she could do, so she had to make another gesture. 1 day is too little, she wants 8 days. 1. 5 days. 1. 3 days. Finally. Xiao Wu said huffily, 1 day it is. After saying that, with a bang, Xiao Wu bounced from her own bed onto Qilin's bed, hugged Qilin, and lay down. Hey, Xiao Wu, what are you doing? Xiao Wu was even more unhappy after hearing him, and pouted, you yourself agreed to let me hug you to sleep for 1 day, do you still want to go back on your word? Xiao Wu won't agree. After saying that, she hugged him even tighter. Qilin was completely dumbfounded when he heard this. What do you mean let you hug me to sleep for 1 day? I was talking about 1 carat. Hurry back to your own bed, it's not good for a girl to be like this. Xiao Wu heard this and shook her little head like a rattled drum. No, who told you not to make it clear? Besides, I won't be sent away with just one carrot. Saying this, Xiao Wu's grip on Qilin became even tighter. Indeed, after awakening innate full spirit power, Xiao Wu's strength was truly not low, holding Qilin tightly. Qilin was almost choked and couldn't breathe, so he could only pat Xiao Wu's slender waist to make her settle down a bit. Alright, it's fine if I let you hug me to sleep for one day. While speaking, Qilin activated his brain and thought about it. Xiao Wu is essentially a 100,000-year-old spirit beast, she should be considered a legal loli, so it seems he doesn't need to be afraid of her like a tiger. Thinking this, Qilin immediately became open-minded and generously expressed. Forget it, let you hug me. Hee. Xiao Wu let out a perverted laugh, and even twitched her little nose to sniff, before finally asking the previous question again. After listening, Qilin raised his eyebrows, and finally scratched his head and said, You asked me why I don't seem too happy. Probably because I already knew the result would be like this. Xiao Wu pouted, how is that possible? You haven't tested yet, how could you know you have innate full spirit power? You're not a spirit beast that has taken human form. Xiao Wu kept this sentence in her heart and didn't say it out loud. See, I told you, and you don't believe me, Qilin said indifferently. Seeing that Qilin still didn't say the truth, Xiao Wu mumbled softly, so stingy. Before long, Qilin hadn't fallen asleep yet, but Xiao Wu had already fallen asleep. Looking at Xiao Wu's rosy little face, Qilin subconsciously reached out and pinched it. It was similar to the anime from his previous life, but even cuter, and felt good to pinch. After pinching twice, Qilin withdrew his hand and turned off the light in the room. The room instantly fell into darkness. Qilin didn't go to sleep right away, but couldn't help but think of his spirit, the mutated blue silver grass. Its appearance was the same as a four-leaf clover from his previous life, but the color was blue. Qilin had always been interested in new things, so his spirit was naturally no exception. Although he had been very laid back before, he wasn't not curious about what kind of spirit he would awaken after transmigrating to the Douluo continent. Although his father had the sickle spirit, and his mother had the blue silver grass spirit. Both were trash spirits, and neither had innate spirit power. According to the setting of the Douluo continent, his spirit would either be a sickle or blue silver grass, and there was a high probability he wouldn't have innate spirit power. Unless the spirit mutated, and it had to be a beneficial mutation. This probability was naturally very low. However, Qilin had never worried about himself. Because, based on his own experience, his spirit would definitely undergo a beneficial mutation, and his innate spirit power would not be low either. As for the result, it was indeed as expected. It was the same as he had thought. However, since he already had a spirit and innate spirit power, he should seriously consider what kind of spirit beast he should hunt for his first spirit ring. He couldn't possibly wait in the village for a suitable spirit beast to deliver itself to his doorstep, could he? Qilin thought carefully, and suddenly felt that with his luck, this was actually possible. No. Qilin quickly shook his head, he was laid back, not giving up. Dispelling the idea of sitting at home and waiting for spirit beasts to deliver themselves, Qilin decided to go out in person and choose a perfect spirit ring for himself. His main goal was to enjoy life and focus on participation. So, 3 days later, 2 familiar figures appeared at Qilin's home. One was Su Yuntao, who had awakened the spirits for the children of Radish Village 3 days ago. The other was a tall, full-figured young woman wearing the white uniform of the spirit hall. This person was Su Yuntao's girlfriend, Sister Cece. Sister Cece waved to Qilin and said with a smile, Xiao Qilin, we meet again, do you miss sister? Sister Cece is so beautiful, of course I do. Hee, you little rascal, your mouth is still so sweet. After Sister Cece finished speaking, she looked at Xiao Wu, who was standing next to Qilin and looked cute and charming. This little friend must be Xiao Wu, I heard Yundao mention you are indeed very cute. Xiao Wu blinked her eyelashes and said playfully, I also heard Xiao Linjie mention Sister Cece. Oh, he didn't say anything bad about sister, did he? Sister Cece asked deliberately. Of course not, Xiao Linjie said Sister Cece is a very good person, and I will definitely like her too. Xiao Wu lifted her chin slightly, she wasn't making this up, Xiao Linjie had indeed said this. Xiao Qilin, it seems sister didn't spoil you for nothing. The smile on Sister Cece's face widened slightly, and then she placed a large pile of gifts, big and small bags, in the living room of Qilin's house. Since meeting Xiao Qilin, her development over the past few years had been very good. Not only had her level gradually caught up with Su Yuntao's, but she had also made a few small fortunes. Because she knew about Qilin's deeds in Radish Village, she attributed her good luck to him and became increasingly fond of him. Qilin was already used to Sister Cece bringing gifts to his house, but Qitian and Shu Qian came out and said reproachfully. It's fine to visit, but why bring so many things? Chapter 6, Brother Sizatao comes to visit and goes to the soul hunt. Chapter 6, Sister Cece and Brother Dao arrive, heading to the Hun Soul Forest. Sister Cece and Su Yuntao explained the purpose of their visit. They had come specifically to take Qilin and Xiao Wu to obtain their first soul rings. After all, hiring a professional hunting group to help hunt souls outside was not only expensive but also not necessarily safe. Therefore, Sister Cece thought it would be best for her and Su Yuntao to personally take Qilin and Xiao Wu to hunt for souls. Upon hearing this, Qitian and Shu Qian immediately expressed their heartfelt gratitude to the two. Xiao Wu, on the other hand, turned pale with fright upon seeing the situation. As a transformed soul beast, her soul rings were condensed by herself. Therefore, if Sister Cece and Su Yuntao took her to obtain a soul ring, her identity would surely be exposed. And once exposed, she knew without a doubt that she would be in serious trouble. I must find a way not to go. Xiao Wu's brain worked frantically, but with her intelligence, she couldn't figure out how to refuse for a moment. Just then, Qilin noticed the tension on her face and poked her waist with his finger. What's wrong? Xiao Wu looked at Qilin with watery eyes and whispered, Xiao Linjie, I don't want to go. Qilin was slightly startled, and immediately remembered Xiao Wu's identity. Oh right, the little rabbit is a transformed soul beast. Wouldn't she be exposed if she went soul hunting? Seeing her anxious look, Qilin even found an excuse for her. Are you feeling unwell? As soon as Qilin finished speaking, Xiao Wu's 2 big eyes immediately lit up. That's right, I can say I'm not feeling well. So she quickly nodded, looking pitifully at Qilin and saying, I feel really uncomfortable today. Qi Tian and Shu Qian heard Xiao Wu say she was uncomfortable and immediately walked forward with a hint of anxiety. Xiao Wu, where do you feel uncomfortable? Qilin chimed in, where does she feel uncomfortable? Is it a headache? I told you last night that you insisted on sleeping in the same bed with me. I said I like to steal the blankets when I sleep. Now you've caught a cold, haven't you? As Qilin spoke, he reached out and touched Xiao Wu's forehead. Fortunately, you don't have a fever. You'll be fine after resting for 2 days. Qi Tian and Shu Qian were already used to Qilin's mature behavior, so they didn't say anything more, only earnestly instructed, Xiao Wu, you must listen to your Shaolin Jie and rest well these 2 days. Xiao Wu nodded repeatedly upon hearing this, looking obedient. Qi Tian watched her from the side with a faint smile. Haha, you're usually not like this. It seems she's really scared. Then he looked at Sister Cece beside him. Sister Cece, Xiao Wu is not feeling well, so she won't be going this time, lest she cause you trouble by needing care during the soul hunting process. Sister Cece was about to say that she and Su Yuntao didn't mind and could manage taking care of 2 children. But then she thought about it. She and Su Yuntao were only great soul masters of level 25 or 26. If they had to be distracted taking care of 2 children, they might indeed find themselves stretched thin. It would be fine if they were just hunting some ordinary soul beasts, but Sister Cece wanted to help Qilin hunt a soul ring of over 300 years. A first soul ring of over 300 years was definitely a rare existence among soul masters, ordinary commoners basically didn't have one. Just like herself and Su Yuntao, both of their first soul rings were only white 10-year soul rings. But precisely because she had suffered this disadvantage, she hoped to help Qilin, this younger brother whom she was quite fond of, obtain a more powerful first soul ring. Therefore, Sister Cece thought about it for a moment and agreed. But she still walked over to Xiao Wu, squatted down, and said in a gentle voice, then, little sister, big sister can only come back next time to help you obtain your first soul ring. Upon hearing this, Xiao Wu nodded repeatedly like a pecking chick. But she was thinking, you still want to come again. Su Yuntao, seeing this, frowned slightly and wanted to speak. Although he also liked Qilin very much, he still wanted to say something to Sister Cece. It was already very generous of them to help once, there was no need to make any more promises to this child named Xiao Wu. But looking at Sister Cece's gentle appearance, Su Yuntao sighed slightly, suppressing the thought in his heart. Forget it, if Sister Cece wants to help, then let's help. After all, it's just helping 2 children obtain their first soul rings. Just going to the Hunt Soul Forest, with their levels, what danger could they encounter? It's just a bit troublesome. After Sister Cece and Su Yuntao sat at Qilin's house for half a day, they took Qilin and left the house. The Hunt Soul Forest was 400 li northeast of Noting City, and the distance from Radish Village was even more than 500 li. So Sister Cece and Su Yuntao had rented a carriage in advance. Because this soul hunting trip would last 10 days to half a month, Qilin brought 2 sets of clothes to change into. Apart from that, he only brought a little dried soul beast meat to snack on along the way. This soul beast meat was not simple, it was from a soul beast over 200 years old. As for its origin, it was specially sent by the little daughter of the Noting City Lord during the New Year. Along the way, Su Yuntao acted as the coachman, while Sister Cece and Qilin sat inside the carriage. After hearing the origin of the dried soul beast meat, Sister Cece pinched Qilin's cheek with a teasing expression. Xiao Qilin, I didn't realize, at such a young age, you're already so popular with girls. Su Yuntao, who was driving the carriage, also added with a slightly sour tone. I heard that our Noting City Lord dotes on his precious daughter immensely. Xiao Qilin, if things continue like this, even if you don't do well in the Soul Master world, you can still live a rich life. Sister Cece glanced at Su Yuntao with a half smile, her tone unfriendly. Su Yuntao, how come I hear envy in your tone towards Xiao Qilin? How about you also find a young lady from a noble family to rely on? Upon hearing this, Su Yuntao immediately felt a chill down his spine, and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He chuckled sheepishly and said flatteringly, Sister Cece, you know that in my heart, I will always only love you. Sister Cece gave a faint, and glanced at Su Yuntao. Good that you know your place. Qilin watched this scene from the side, a schadenfreude smile on his face. Interesting. So Brother Dao is afraid of his wife. Sister Cece has him completely under her thumb. The time on the road passed quickly, and the group of 3 arrived within the vicinity of the Hunt Soul Forest. After getting off the carriage, they saw a bustling and prosperous market. Rows of houses and shops lined both sides of the road, with vendors shouting everywhere. Most of the goods were related to soul beasts. Qilin also heard hunting teams loudly shouting and promoting their teams, hoping to attract some business. After Su Yuntao found a place to store the carriage, he met up with Sister Cece and Qilin. The 3 of them walked through the market together and arrived at the true entrance of the Hunt Soul Forest. Here, there was a circle of iron railings over 10 meters high. Outside the railings, there were 100 fully armed soldiers in armor, patrolling back and forth with long spears. Su Yuntao and Sister Cece were already used to the sight. They directly took Qilin to the entrance gate and showed a dark token. At the entrance of the Hunt Soul Forest, the soldier captain in charge of checking the token saw it and immediately raised his hand to signal. Let them pass. Chapter 7, Leaving the Choice to the Heavens. Walking into the Hunt Soul Forest, Qilin's first impression was that he had entered a primeval forest like those from his past life. The trees here were not only dense but also looked vibrant and very lush. A fresh scent of grass and wood wafted toward him. Walking along the path, Sister Cece said to Qilin, Little Qilin, regarding your first spirit ring, I specifically consulted Grandmaster Matthew within the Spirit Hall. Based on the characteristics of blue silver grass, Grandmaster Matthew feels you can develop in 2 directions, as a support system spirit master or a control system spirit master. If you choose the path of a support system spirit master, you can choose moonlight grass and life mushroom. These 2 plant spirit beasts have gentle temperaments and basically no offensive capabilities. This way, you might obtain spirit abilities that heal injuries or increase your teammates' defense. If you choose the path of a control system spirit master, you can choose Ghostvine or Thornvine. Ghostvine has strong binding abilities, while Thornvine has spikes on its surface. It provides not only control but also decent offensive power. Listening to Sister Cece's careful analysis, Qilin scratched his head. In fact, he found himself to be quite greedy. He wanted his first spirit ability to have offensive capabilities, defensive capabilities, and if it could have support capabilities as well, that would be even better. Unfortunately, unless it was a 100,000-year spirit ring, one could only have one spirit ability. So, this made Qilin quite conflicted. Alas, it was a hard choice. After thinking about it, Qilin finally decided to leave the choice to the heavens. Sister Cece, I'm not picky. Whichever of these spirit beasts we encounter first, let's just go with that one. Is that so? Sister Cece frowned slightly, but seeing Qilin's relaxed and casual posture, she became speechless. You really don't know how to be nervous. Do you know the importance of the choice of a spirit master's path for every spirit master? Once a choice is made, it will be too late to regret it later. Su Yuntao also advised Qilin from the side. That's right, little Qilin. Listen to your sister Cece and think it over carefully. Don't regret it when the time comes. Looking at their concerned gazes, Qilin still smiled calmly and composedly. Brother Dao, Sister Cece, please rest assured. I never regret the decisions I make. Looking at Qilin's consistently calm and composed smile, Su Yuntao and Sister Cece inexplicably felt a sense of conviction. Ultimately, the two decided to do as Qilin said. It's really strange, why do I feel like this little kid is so confident? Walking at the very front, Su Yuntao recalled Qilin's calm and composed smile just now and muttered in a low voice. Sister Cece walked at the very back of the three, her eyes scanning the surroundings alertly to prevent spirit beasts from ambushing from behind. On the contrary, Qilin looked the most relaxed, not at all like he was out hunting for spirits. He looked more like a young master out on a stroll. Seeing his relaxed demeanor, Su Yuntao was speechless. Little Qilin, aren't you nervous at all? Qilin was admiring the scenery in the Hun Soul Forest when he heard Su Yuntao's question and was slightly stunned. He then shook his head. Not nervous. Seeing this, Su Yuntao immediately lectured him in an old-fashioned manner. Little Qilin, it won't do if you keep going like this. You must know that hunting for spirits is an extremely dangerous action. You could be ambushed by a spirit beast at any time. So, while hunting for spirits, you must concentrate and observe every movement in the surroundings to avoid accidents. Especially if you become a support spirit master in the future, you must learn how to save your own life. After speaking, Su Yuntao looked at Qilin with a gaze that seemed to say, do you understand? What he was talking about was not just his experience in hunting spirits, but the path he had traveled. Sister Cece also chimed in from behind. Little Qilin, your brother Dao is right. Hunting spirits is no small matter. You must stay alert at all times. Before she could finish her sentence, Sister Cece's pupils suddenly shrank, and she shouted loudly, Su Yuntao, watch out. A huge wolf with black patterns on its fur charged from a distance at a speed that was staggering. Storm Devil Wolf. Su Yuntao's expression froze. This kind of spirit beast was not the gentle type, it was full of ferocity and had strong combat power. Fortunately, this one appeared to be a Storm Devil Wolf of only about 300 years. He and Sister Cece wouldn't be afraid of it if they worked together. It was just that there was also little Qilin by their side, making it difficult to maneuver. Lone Wolf, possession. Su Yuntao gave a light shout. In the next second, a faint green light emanated from his forehead, and his appearance underwent a massive change. His body became more burly, his hair grew wildly at a speed visible to the naked eye, and a layer of fur appeared on his bare arms. He looked like a living werewolf. Cece, protect little Qilin. Leave this beast to me. Sister Cece said solemnly, all right. After speaking, Sister Cece pulled Qilin to her side, alertly watching the movements around them. At the same time, the core area of the Douluo Forest. An ice worm with a round, fleshy head, a diameter of over 1 meter, and a length of 7 or 8 meters was tied up like a giant zonzi by several dark gold chains, making it difficult even to turn over. It was none other than the only million-year spirit beast currently on the Douluo continent. Tianmeng Ice Silkworm. The deep-sea demon whale king is currently a 990,000-year spirit beast. Around the ice worm, several figures were sitting. These people were continuously absorbing the energy from within the ice worm's body for their cultivation. Tianmeng Ice Silkworm could only watch helplessly as its plump and sturdy body grew thinner by the day. It wanted to escape but was powerless to change its fate, so it could only continuously hurl insults at these figures. However, no matter how much Tianmeng Ice Silkworm hurled insults, not a single figure paid it any mind. When will these days ever end? If this continues, I'm really going to be sucked dry. Heavens, please, hurry up and save me. I really can't stay in this hellhole for another day. At this moment, among the figures, a tall and burly white-haired middle-aged man wearing a dark red robe spoke in a muffled voice. Tianmeng Ice Silkworm, just honestly let us absorb your origin energy. You can't escape anyway. Arg, you guys are bullying me too much. I'm the only million-year spirit beast on the Douluo continent after all. Can't you give me a little respect? Seeing someone respond to it, Tianmeng Ice Silkworm immediately started wailing. Bear King, there's no need to argue with it. Just as the Bear King was about to speak again, the leading tall, golden-haired middle-aged man spoke indifferently, his body exuding a domineering majesty that seemed to rule over the world and stand alone in supremacy. He was the head of the 10 great savage beasts of the Douluo Forest, the golden-eyed black dragon king, DTN. Seeing DTN speak, the Bear King couldn't help but curl his lip, but he still honestly shut his mouth and continued to absorb the energy within Tianmeng Ice Silkworm's body. Seeing that no one responded and that it didn't even have anyone to bicker with, Tianmeng Ice Silkworm was so angry that it started hurling insults again. But at this moment, a silver rift suddenly appeared above Tianmeng Ice Silkworm. Surging spatial force poured out from the rift, exerting a strong suction toward Tianmeng Ice Silkworm. Seeing this, the figures all turned their gazes toward the silver spatial rift. Not good, this spatial storm is going to suck Tianmeng Ice Silkworm in. A man who looked incredibly demonic saw Tianmeng Ice Silkworm's body flying toward the spatial rift. A terrifying mental force immediately erupted from his body as he tried to stop Tianmeng Ice Silkworm. With a wave of his hand, DTN sent a black gold light directly toward the silver spatial rift, intending to close it. However, a violent astral wind suddenly erupted from within the spatial rift, instantly slicing the black gold light into countless particles. This spatial astral wind actually has such power. DTN's expression was shocked. One must know that his strength was already close to the god level. Even a casual strike could kill a titled Douluo above rank 95. Yet he couldn't even disperse a single astral wind from within a spatial storm. Oh no, Tianmeng Ice Silkworm. DTN's eyes narrowed. In his sight, Tianmeng Ice Silkworm had already been sucked into the spatial storm. He wanted to take action again, but a cold voice suddenly sounded from underground. DTN, do not concern yourself with this matter any further. Yes, Lord. Chapter 8, Tianmeng Ice Silkworm, brother is truly the son of destiny. Chapter 8, Tianmeng Ice Silkworm, brother is truly a child of destiny. Hun Soul Forest. In a relatively wide area, Su Yuntao's figure in the Storm Devil Wolf crisscrossed. After using his first soul skill, Wolf Shadow Assault, Su Yuntao's speed was even slightly faster than the Storm Devil Wolf's. Sharp claws grew on his hands, turning into several afterimages that continuously attacked the Storm Devil Wolf's body. Once he clawed it, a bloody wound would inevitably be left on the Storm Devil Wolf's body. After all, a level 26 attack system spirit grandmaster like Su Yuntao was not as weak as Yu Xiaogang. He couldn't deal with a 1,000-year spirit beast, but a 300 to 400-year spirit beast was easy for him. Although it wasted a bit of time, Su Yuntao still killed this 300-year storm devil wolf without injury. Haha, little Qilin, Sister Cici, it seems we'll have a feast when we get back. In the Hunt Soul Forest, lighting a fire could easily attract powerful spirit beasts, so it was best not to light one if possible. As an experienced battle spirit master, Su Yuntao understood this basic knowledge. Sister Cici's face also showed a slight smile. The storm devil wolf's teeth and fur were quite popular with some nobles outside and could fetch a good price. Additionally, while the storm devil wolf's meat wasn't particularly delicious, it contained a slight energy that could enhance a spirit master's physique. Before Sister Cici could speak, Qilin suddenly sensed something unusual. Just as he subconsciously looked up, he saw a silver rift suddenly open in midair. A plump, jade-colored, crystal-clear silkworm fell from the silver rift, landing on the ground with a thump. The entire ground trembled. This plump silkworm was precisely the Tianmeng Ice silkworm, which had been sucked into the spatial storm. Ah, brother is truly a child of destiny. How can I be completely unharmed after being sucked into a spatial storm? Let brother see where this is. Hopefully, it's not still in the Stardow Forest. Humans. Qilin, Sister Cici, and Su Yuntao stared intently at the enormous silkworm in front of them, their expressions astonished. It actually fell from the sky. Su Yuntao swallowed, his voice trembling slightly. This size didn't seem like a 10-year or 100-year spirit beast. They weren't going to be in trouble here today, were they? Sister Cici's eyes also revealed a hint of fear, thinking the same thing as Su Yuntao. Among the three, only Qilin was the calmest. Looking at the plump silkworm in front of him and its distinctive 10 golden stripes, he immediately guessed its identity. Tianmeng Ice silkworm. By the way, at this time, it should either be fleeing in the Stardow Forest or already imprisoned. How could it suddenly appear in the Hunt Soul Forest? It couldn't be attracted by his strange luck, could it? Qilin thought about it and felt that this was indeed possible. At this moment, the Tianmeng Ice silkworm also noticed Qilin's presence. This child. The Tianmeng Ice silkworm carefully scrutinized Qilin, and its two round little eyes immediately lit up. Seeing this, Sister Cici subconsciously pulled Qilin behind her. The Tianmeng Ice silkworm muttered softly, "What? Why do I feel like brother is being treated as a villain?" "Never mind, I'll let you two sleep first." The Tianmeng Ice silkworm mumbled, then an invisible ripple emanated from its body. Thump. As soon as the invisible ripple touched Sister Cici and Su Yuntao, both felt their vision go dark and fainted. Although the Tianmeng Ice silkworm's combat power was not even comparable to an ordinary 100,000-year spirit beast, making it the shame of million-year spirit beasts. But dealing with two spirit grandmasters was more than enough. Su Yuntao fell straight backward onto the ground, while Sister Cici was caught by Qilin from behind and carefully placed on the ground. Truly, different treatment. Ever since awakening his spirit, Qilin felt his strength had increased significantly, and catching an adult woman's body was no problem at all. The Tianmeng Ice silkworm looked at the human child in front of him, who seemed not to be panicked at all, and its two round, large eyes immediately looked over curiously. "Child, aren't you afraid of brother? Then will you hurt me?" Qilin immediately retorted. "That's hard to say, unless you let me see what your spirit is." Seeing that Qilin was not really afraid of it, the Tianmeng Ice silkworm felt curious and said with a relaxed smile. "All right." Qilin listened and opened his hand in front of the Tianmeng Ice silkworm. A blue four-leaf clover immediately emerged from Qilin's palm, with golden patterns flashing on its four leaves, appearing even more striking than when it had just awakened. "Ah, is this your spirit? What kind of spirit is this? Why does it look so much like blue silver grass?" Qilin made a shrug gesture and said, "My spirit is a mutated blue silver grass." "Ah, blue silver grass. Really, don't lie to brother, or are you a twin spirits? Otherwise, how could your mental force be so strong at your age?" Qilin shook his head honestly, then seriously helped analyze. "You say, could this be because I'm a transmigrator?" "Transmigrator? What's a transmigrator?" The Tianmeng Ice silkworm looked at Qilin with a bewildered expression. It's someone who travels from one world to another. Unlike other transmigrators, Qilin was not afraid at all to reveal his identity. The Tianmeng Ice silkworm's round eyes were full of shock, and it asked softly. You really came from another world." Qilin's eyes also lit up. "You believe me? Are you saying it's false?" "No, it's true. So you have this other identity. Then, can you go back?" "Oh, that. If I wanted to, it shouldn't be difficult." "What? Really?" Seeing the Tianmeng Ice silkworm actually questioning him, Qilin's eyes widened. "Am I going to lie to you?" In an instant, the Tianmeng Ice silkworm felt its breathing become much more rapid. He hadn't expected this human in front of him to have come down from the god realm. No wonder his mental force was so strong. Although he didn't know why he came down from the god realm and became a child. But he also said that if he wanted to, it wouldn't be difficult to return to the god realm. Doesn't this mean that as long as he is absorbed by him as a wisdom spirit ring, when he becomes a god and returns to the god realm, he can follow along and live forever? Ah ha 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 ha. No wonder the spatial storm appeared at that particular time, sucking him away. No wonder he was unharmed in the spatial storm. No wonder he met this child. It seems all this is fate's arrangement. Brother is truly a child of destiny. In the original work, the Tianmeng Ice silkworm broke through 10 golden stripes and became a million-year spirit beast, then escaped by burrowing into the ground. However, due to a sudden heavenly tribulation, its lifespan was about to end. Here, to accommodate the protagonist, the Tianmeng Ice silkworm reached a million years prematurely, so this is a secondary setting. It's assumed that due to the protagonist's appearance, destiny changed. Chapter 9 Huogua's treatment, the first soul ring in a million years. Chapter 9 Huogua, as treatment, the first million-year soul ring. What, you want to become my wisdom soul ring? Are you sure? Qilin hadn't expected that he could actually enjoy the same treatment as Huo Yuhao. Speaking of which, compared to Huo Yuhao, whose luck would be better? Hesitating for a second, Qilin slapped his thigh fiercely. How could he even hesitate for a second over such a foolish question? Isn't this a lack of confidence in his own luck? Isn't this disrespecting his own luck? Little guy, I know you're definitely very excited right now, but don't get too excited yet. Although, you are about to become the first soul master in the history of the Douluo continent to possess a million-year first soul ring. But, you and I are mutually benefiting from this, so you don't have to be so excited, and there's no need to thank me. Just don't forget to take me to the god realm to enjoy life. The Tianmeng Ice Silkworm's round eyes watched Qilin's action of slapping his thigh just now, thinking he was excited and was very satisfied. See, so what if he came down from the god realm? He's still coveting my body. Oh no, he's coveting my soul ring. The Tianmeng Ice Silkworm thought narcissistically. Of course, he was indeed qualified. After all, it was the only million-year soul beast on the Douluo continent currently. Beside him, Qilin scratched his head after hearing the Tianmeng Ice Silkworm's words. If he could possess a million-year first soul ring, well, that was indeed something to be happy about. Especially on this Douluo continent. He could be considered unprecedented. So Qilin smiled, nodded, and said, come on, I'm a little impatient. The Tianmeng Ice Silkworm's round head swayed, and he said in a mischievous tone, then pay attention, I'm about to start. Don't worry, I'll be gentle, I won't make it too painful for you. Ew. Hearing that voice, Qilin suddenly felt a chill down his spine. Who taught you all these lewd words? What, are you very envious of my language talent? Let me tell you, this is natural, you can't learn it. Qilin's mouth couldn't help but twitch when he heard that. Ha 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 ha, I'm coming. The Tianmeng Ice Silkworm burst into laughter, and his fleshy body immediately rushed towards Qilin. His massive body caused the ground to shake. As the Tianmeng Ice Silkworm rushed in front of Qilin, he extended his fleshy head, pressing it close to Qilin's forehead. The halos on his body seemed to come alive, flickering rhythmically. Finally, under the gaze of Qilin's eyes, a faint golden light enveloped him. Within the Tianmeng Ice Silkworm, a vast and boundless spiritual force erupted, pouring into Qilin's brain at a speed visible to the naked eye. And as the spiritual force flowed out, the Tianmeng Ice Silkworm's originally massive body also began to gradually become ethereal. Ha ha ha, it's about to succeed. Huh, don't you feel any pain? Just as the Tianmeng Ice Silkworm was laughing triumphantly, he suddenly saw Qilin's relaxed expression and suddenly reacted. Something's not right. Although he had already placed countless seals on himself, this human kid in front of him was only a level 10 soul master. How could he possibly endure the pain of condensing a soul ring? Qilin said honestly, it doesn't hurt, and I even feel warm and a bit comfortable. The Tianmeng Ice Silkworm, not believing it, carefully examined Qilin for a long time and finally confirmed that he was indeed not lying. He really didn't feel any pain. As expected from someone who came down from the god realm, it's different. Hey, this time I finally struck it rich. Of course, the better Qilin performed, the happier the Tianmeng Ice Silkworm was. After all, this was related to whether he could follow Qilin to the god realm to enjoy happiness in the future. As time passed, the Tianmeng Ice Silkworm completely disappeared, leaving only a light golden white membrane on the ground. And above Qilin's head, a circle of pearly white soul ring appeared. After the soul ring faded, Qilin stretched his limbs as if nothing had happened, and was surprised to find that not only had his strength increased significantly, but his skin also felt like suet white jade. Although he didn't use a mirror to look at his features, Qilin's intuition told him he had likely become handsome again. Thinking of this, Qilin immediately put his hands together. God bless, it's okay to be more handsome, but please don't turn into a sissy. In addition, Qilin discovered that he could also sense another space in his mind. This space seemed boundless, and the main colors, besides white, were a faint brilliant gold. With a thought, Qilin found himself in this space. Here, he felt as if he were omnipotent. Having read some novels, Qilin guessed that this should be the sea of consciousness or spiritual space mentioned in those novels. In addition, 10 huge golden halos were gathered in the air within this space. At this moment, a voice filled with an exaggerated tone suddenly sounded in the space. Holy cow, why is your sea of consciousness so big? I was originally thinking that since you're only level 10, your sea of consciousness space must be very small, and I was planning to help you expand it. It's simply too exaggerated. Also, why does your sea of consciousness space feel different from others? What are these glittering golden things? Qilin made a gesture like a bear shrugging its shoulders, indicating that he didn't know either. Oh right, what's your name? I just tried to imprint your memory, but I couldn't even imprint a single strand. Which means I still don't know your name. Qilin said honestly. Qilin. Alright, then you remember my name too. I'm called Tianmeng Ice Silkworm. From now on, just call me Brother Tianmeng. Let me tell you, I am the only million-year soul beast on the continent. If it weren't for my lifespan reaching its end, I wouldn't have sacrificed myself to become your wisdom soul ring. At this moment, Qilin asked curiously, oh right, how did you suddenly appear in the Han Soul Forest? As soon as Qilin mentioned this, the Tianmeng Ice Silkworm started bragging with immense pride. You might not believe it when I tell you my story. Back then, when I was traveling to the Douluo Forest, I was ganged up on by a few scoundrels. Although I am the only million-year soul beast in the world, I am not good at fighting after all. After battling those scoundrels for hundreds of rounds, I was helplessly captured. Because these scoundrels coveted my body, they actually imprisoned me and sucked the energy from my body every day. Unfortunately, how could they know that I am a favorite of heaven and earth, blessed by destiny? So, not long ago, a spatial storm suddenly appeared above where I was imprisoned, and I was even sucked into it. With a blink of an eye, I appeared here. And completely unharmed. How about it? Isn't my experience legendary enough? The Tianmeng Ice Silkworm was smug, while Qilin immediately confirmed the guess in his heart. It seemed that the spatial storm that suddenly appeared was likely attracted by his own miraculous luck. How should I put it? It feels great. Chapter 10 4 Auxiliary Soul Skills, Gift of Fate. Chapter 10 4 Great Auxiliary Soul Skills, Gift of Destiny. Of course, although Qilin was ecstatic inside, on the surface, he still helped Tianmeng Ice Silkworm maximize his emotional value. I really didn't expect that Brother Tianmeng would have such a legendary experience. Seeing that Qilin actually trusted him so much, Tianmeng Ice Silkworm felt a sense of guilt instead. Only he himself knew how much exaggeration was in the story he fabricated. For example, when he first came to the Douluo Great Forest, it wasn't for sightseeing, but to escape from a soul beast chasing him from the sea. Moreover, the soul beast that chased him was only a tens of thousands of years old sea soul beast. And he was already over 900,000 years old at that time. Furthermore, not long after he escaped to the Douluo Great Forest, he was easily captured by a 100,000-year soul beast, with no room for resistance at all. Saying he fought hundreds of rounds was purely boasting. Of course, for the sake of his wise and mighty image, Tianmeng Ice Silkworm decided not to tell Qilin the truth yet, but instead told him about another matter. Xiao Qilin, I'm really not bragging to you. As the world's unique intelligent soul ring, even though I didn't provide you with a soul bone, I can provide you with a new martial soul. Moreover, as your physical fitness gradually improves, I can also help you increase the age of your soul ring. Due to the limitation of your physique, your first soul ring has only reached the level of 800 years now. The remaining energy has all been sealed by me, waiting for your physical fitness to improve. How about that, aren't I awesome? Qilin laughed while giving a thumbs up. Brother Tianmeng is awesome. If the heavens hadn't given birth to you, Brother Tianmeng, soul beasts would have been in eternal darkness. Hearing Qilin's praise, Tianmeng Ice Silkworm's two round eyes suddenly lit up, and then he laughed triumphantly. Ha 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 ha, Xiao Qilin, I said why I felt a sense of closeness as soon as I saw you. You understand me. If the heavens hadn't given birth to me, Brother Tianmeng, soul beasts would have been in eternal darkness. Ah ha 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 ha. After the excitement, Tianmeng Ice Silkworm said proudly, right, Xiao Qilin, which 4 soul skills did you obtain? Our Ice Silkworm clan is best at mental power. You should have obtained soul skills related to mental power, right? Are there any like simulation or mental detection? These are our Ice Silkworm clan specialties. Qilin shook his head and said with a smile, the soul skills I obtained seem to be all auxiliary soul skills, and there's no simulation or mental detection. How is that possible? Generally, soul skills are related to the soul beast's main body. Then what are your soul skills? Qilin truthfully said, gift of destiny, strength, gift of destiny, speed, gift of destiny, defense, gift of destiny, soul. Each soul skill can increase the corresponding attribute by 10%. What? How can the amplification be so low? Moreover, these soul skills have nothing to do with me. As soon as Qilin finished speaking, Tianmeng Ice Silkworm immediately couldn't sit still. In contrast, Qilin always maintained a calm expression. Tianmeng Ice Silkworm felt immediately depressed upon seeing this and couldn't help but ask curiously, Xiao Qilin, aren't you sad at all? Your first soul skill, besides having 4 of them, in terms of amplification, can't even compare to an ordinary 100-year soul ring. However, Qilin said with a relaxed expression, Brother Tianmeng, you're just thinking too much. How can a 1,000,000-year soul ring be so weak? For these 4 soul skills of mine, as long as the soul ring age increases by 10,000 years, the amplification will increase by 10%. So, if I increase my first soul ring to 1,000,000 years, my 4 soul skills can be amplified by up to 1,000%. By then, which auxiliary soul master can compare with me? Holy crap. I knew the soul skills I gave you couldn't be that trashy. As expected. Ah ha 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 ha. After hearing this, Tianmeng Ice Silkworm felt capable again and became triumphant once more. But Qilin hadn't finished speaking. After Tianmeng Ice Silkworm finished laughing, he continued, and that's not all. These 4 soul skills of mine not only have temporary amplification effects but also possess a certain degree of permanent amplification. It's just that this amplification is relatively small, and each person can only receive permanent amplification once per day. What? Permanent amplification? Tianmeng Ice Silkworm's tone instantly rose by 8 octaves. Qilin felt that if Tianmeng Ice Silkworm had taken human form, the expression on his face right now would definitely be spectacular. After a long time, Tianmeng Ice Silkworm finally said something with a complex tone. You're invincible. Really invincible. Otherwise, originally, I still had a trace of uncertainty, but now it seems that if even you can't become a god, then probably no one in this world is worthy of becoming a god. Tianmeng Ice Silkworm sighed sincerely, but what followed was excitement and joy. Great, when Xiao Qilin becomes a god, he can go to the god realm with him to enjoy life. He. Thinking of that day, a hint of lewdness instantly appeared in Tianmeng Ice Silkworm's 2 round eyes. ... Su Yuntao and Sister Cece woke up faintly, first looking around blankly, before suddenly remembering that they had come to hunt soul beasts for Qilin. Oh no, Xiao Qilin. Seeing that Qilin was not beside her, Sister Cece's face immediately showed a hint of panic. Until Qilin walked out from behind her and responded. Sister Cece, I'm here. Sister Cece breathed a sigh of relief. It's a good thing you're alright, otherwise I wouldn't know how to explain it to your parents. Beside her, Su Yuntao responded, thinking of the enormous ice silkworm he saw before losing consciousness, his eyes still filled with lingering fear. I didn't expect us to survive. We're truly blessed and lucky. This is the first time I've seen such a large ice silkworm. Its age has reached at least the 10,000-year level. Although the ice silkworm's combat power is notoriously weak in the soul beast world, it's more than enough to deal with us. Fortunately, this kind of soul beast has a gentle nature and generally doesn't actively attack humans. The reason it stunned us was probably startled by the bloody smell from the gale wind magic wolf I killed. After listening to Su Yuntao's analysis, Sister Cece also patted her chest in relief, a look of surviving a disaster flashing across her face. But immediately, she remembered that Qilin hadn't absorbed a soul ring yet and couldn't help but say with a smile. Xiao Qilin, they say surviving a great disaster means great fortune is coming. It seems we can hunt a very good soul ring for you soon. Qilin had already walked in front of them and said with a smile, Sister Cece, while you were still unconscious, I had already absorbed a soul ring. What? Oh, Xiao Qilin, why didn't you wait for us to wake up before absorbing it? Upon hearing this, Sister Cece and Su Yuntao immediately showed looks of anxiety. Quick, show us what kind of soul ring you absorbed. After hearing this, Qilin could only truthfully reveal his soul ring. A circle of pure white soul ring slowly rose from his feet. 10-year soul ring. Seeing this, Sister Cece suddenly felt a wave of dizziness in her head. Su Yuntao quickly supported Sister Cece, then looked at Qilin with a look of disappointment. You kid, what can I say about you? You said if you had waited for me to wake up before absorbing the soul ring, how could you have only absorbed a 10-year soul ring? Seeing this, Qilin considered whether to tell them the truth. He wasn't afraid at all of the news about his 1,000,000-year soul ring being revealed, but the main thing was, who would believe it? Perhaps if he told them, Sister Cece and Su Yuntao would think he was just comforting them or making excuses as a joke. However, seeing Sister Cece's distressed look, Qilin still comforted her. Sister Cece, Brother Dao, you don't have to feel bad because of me. Don't look at my soul ring being just white, I actually have 4 soul skills. As soon as he said this, Sister Cece and Su Yuntao were startled and looked at Qilin together. What? 4 soul skills. Chapter 11, Going Home, The Innate Warm Man. Chapter 11, Going Home, Innate Warm Man Sacred Body. Xiao Qilin, you didn't lie to your sister, did you? First published on the entire network. Sister Cece hesitated for a moment, walked to Qilin's side, and stroked his head. We didn't absorb a good soul ring this time, we can come back next time. Lying is not good, you know. It wasn't Sister Cece's fault for not believing Qilin's words, the main reason was that a first soul ring having 4 soul skills was simply like a fantasy. It was likely that no one in the history of the Douluo continent had a first soul ring with 4 soul skills. Beside them, Su Yuntao listened to Sister Cece's gentle tone and suddenly felt a pang of sadness. Sister Cece, I've never seen you this gentle with me usually. Qilin felt very warm inside after hearing Sister Cece's words. So Qilin said, Sister Cece, I would lie to anyone but not you. If you don't believe me, I'll release my soul skill for you to see right now. After speaking, Qilin opened his hand, and a 4-leaf clover emerged from his palm. Compared to before absorbing the Tianmeng Ice Silkworm Soul Ring, the 4-leaf clover looked slightly larger than before, but the biggest change was the golden patterns on its 4 leaves, which looked dazzling and emitted a faint golden halo. Gift of Destiny, Strength. Gift of Destiny, Speed. Gift of Destiny, Defense. Gift of Destiny, Soul. As Qilin chanted 4 times consecutively, the shimmering white soul ring above his head also flashed 4 times. Subsequently, 4 faint golden rays surged into Sister Cece's body. Qilin smiled and friendly suggested, Sister Cece, you can find Brother Dao to test it out now. After hearing Qilin's suggestion, Sister Cece felt the power surging from within her body and couldn't help but shift her gaze towards Su Yuntao. Seeing this, Su Yuntao immediately waved his hand and quickly said, Sister Cece, how can this be? How could I bear to lay a hand on you? His martial soul was a lone wolf, while Sister Cece's martial soul was an ordinary green vine. In terms of attack power, he was still superior. Furthermore, his soul power level was also higher. Therefore, it was clear at a glance who was stronger and who was weaker between them. What was there left to compare? What if he accidentally injured Sister Cece? Although Sister Cece had the amplification from Qilin's soul skill, how much of an amplification could a small 1-ring soul master bring to a 2-ring great soul master like Sister Cece? However, Sister Cece, who felt the sudden surge of energy within her body, didn't want to waste such a good opportunity. She glared at Su Yuntao. If I tell you to fight, then fight. What are you talking so much nonsense for? Seeing this, Su Yuntao gave Qilin a resentful look. It's all because of you, this brat, you've taken away Sister Cece's love for me. Alas, fine. Sister Cece, don't worry, I'll go easy on you. Who wants you to go easy? Sister Cece frowned, she felt terrifyingly strong right now. A great battle was about to break out. Sister Cece's martial soul was a green vine, and her physique couldn't compare to Su Yuntao's lone wolf martial soul. Theoretically, she should take the path of attrition and control. But this time, she chose to engage in close combat with Su Yuntao. In the past, she might not have been able to last long before being defeated. But this time, she was able to fight Su Yuntao to a standstill within a short period. As time passed, even Su Yuntao himself was shocked. Sister Cece's strength, speed, defense, and soul power all increased by a margin. A single attribute increase might not be much, but the combination of all 4 attributes made him feel incredibly tricky to deal with. Most importantly, it was also incredibly long-lasting. I'm not fighting anymore, I'm not fighting anymore. After 7 or 8 minutes, Su Yuntao retreated several steps, shouting. Sister Cece also stopped. After all, she was just testing Qilin's soul skill, not really trying to defeat Su Yuntao. After recovering, Sister Cece and Su Yuntao completely believed Qilin's words. Xiao Qilin, which soul beast's soul ring did you absorb for your first soul ring? This soul skill is too heaven-defying, Sister Cece exclaimed with emotion. Most importantly, not only was the amplification significant, but it also lasted so long. They just didn't know if there were any side effects. Su Yuntao also agreed and echoed, yeah, I'm afraid even the soul skills of 1,000-year soul rings aren't as monstrous as yours. Xiao Qilin, you've really struck it rich this time. Oh right, what level are you now? Qilin said with a smile, my first soul ring was absorbed from an ice silkworm, and I'm level 13 now. In the original work, Tang San was level 13 because he had cultivated for an extra 2 or 3 months. Also, the protagonist's current first soul ring's age is only over 800 years. His tilde. Su Yuntao gasped, can absorbing a 10-year soul beast soul ring also increase your level by 3? For a moment, he wasn't sure whether the 10-year soul beast Qilin absorbed was special, or if Qilin himself was special. Sister Cece, on the other hand, found the problem. Ice silkworm. Could it be related to the ice silkworm that appeared earlier? Qilin nodded. After hearing this, Sister Cece didn't ask any further questions, because she knew very well that continuing to ask would likely involve personal privacy. However, she was genuinely happy for Qilin to have such an opportunity. Alright, since Xiao Qilin has also obtained his first soul ring, let's go back. After Sister Cece finished speaking, Su Yuntao also nodded. The group of 3 then walked towards the exit of the Hun Soul Forest. On the way back, the 3 also encountered a 100-year jade horned ox. Qilin saw that its horns looked like jade, so he asked Sister Cece and Su Yuntao to help him cut off its 2 horns. The horns of a 100-year jade horned ox, these are good things. If made into accessories, they can be worth a lot of money, Su Yuntao assessed. Qilin held the 2 severed jade ox horns in his hand, tapped them, and then said. When I'm bored on weekdays, I like to do some crafts. With these 2 jade ox horns, I want to make 2 ox horn combs, one for Sister Cece and one for Xiao Wu. Upon hearing this, Sister Cece couldn't hide the joy on her face and happily reached out to pinch Qilin's cheek. Sister didn't pamper you for nothing usually. Su Yuntao took in this scene and secretly rejoiced in his heart. Could this guy Xiao Qilin be some kind of innate warm man's sacred body? He's too good at winning girls' hearts. It's a good thing he's young, otherwise, I'm afraid Sister Cece wouldn't even be mine. On the way back, Qilin also picked up a piece of emerald green jade in the Hun Soul Forest. Qilin planned to make a bracelet for his mother with this piece of jade. As for his father, Qilin thought the whole way but couldn't think of anything good to give him. Finally, he brought back a piece of 1,000-year whale glue for him from the market outside the Hun Soul Forest. The true effects of this stuff hadn't been developed yet, it was only used as an aphrodisiac. Qilin didn't have much good to give Qitian, so he simply had to offer the whale glue. After returning home, although Qitian and his wife regretted that their son had only absorbed a 10-year soul ring, they also understood that it wasn't Su Yuntao and Sister Cece's fault. Moreover, both of them said that although Qilin's soul ring was only a 10-year soul ring, the effect of its soul skill was much better than that of an ordinary 1,000-year soul ring, which could be considered a blessing in disguise. However, Su Yuntao and Sister Cece still felt a little bad, so they suggested they could also take Xiao Wu to the Hun Soul Forest. What happened as a result? It had only been a few days, and Xiao Wu had actually already absorbed a soul ring. And it was a 100-year soul ring. Upon asking, they learned that while she was out playing, she encountered a 100-year soft bone rabbit that was being chased by its natural enemy. Moreover, when that soft bone rabbit encountered her, it was already on its last breath. So she finished it off and successfully obtained a 100-year soul ring. This experience was also incredibly bizarre. Of course, compared to Qilin's outrageous experiences over the years, it was still a bit lacking. Therefore, not only did Qitian and his wife not feel that anything was wrong, but even Su Yuntao and Sister Cece just thought Xiao Wu was lucky. Chapter 12. Nottingham College opens, Butterfly Effect. Chapter 12. Notting Academy starts, Butterfly Effect. After Su Yuntao and Sister Cici sent Qilin home, they didn't stay long and left in a hurry. Mainly, Sister Xiaowu absorbed 100-year soul ring without their help. But what about Qilin? They took him to hunt Soul Forest, but in the end, he only absorbed a 10-year soul ring. How embarrassing. Especially the kinder and more comforting Qilin's parents were to them, the more guilty they felt inside. So they left after sitting for only a short while. After they left, Qilin chuckled and took out the gifts he had prepared for the three of them. He had already helped Shu Tian and Sister Xiaowu make their bracelets and ox horn combs on the way back. Looking at the emerald green bracelet and the exquisite, smooth ox horn comb before her, Shu Tian hugged Qilin and gave him a big kiss, feeling satisfied. Sister Xiaowu, on the other hand, stared at Qilin with her large, sparkling eyes, her small face also showing delight. Although her mother had also left her a sandalwood comb, she liked the one Qilin gave her just as much. This liking was just as strong as her liking for the comb her mother left her. Finally, there was Qi Tian, who looked at Qilin with anticipation. Son, what about your dad? You can't favor one over the other. Qilin chuckled, raised his hand to pat Qi Tian's shoulder, and said something meaningful. Don't worry, Dad, I also prepared your gift. After saying that, he took out an exquisite wooden box from his bag and handed it to Qi Tian. Seeing his son's mysterious look, Qi Tian became even more expectant about the gift in the wooden box. As soon as he opened it, a strong fishy smell assailed his nostrils. Looking at the 1,000-year whale glue quietly lying in the wooden box, Qi Tian lightly coughed. Son, your dad is strong as a dragon and fierce as a tiger, do I still need to use this stuff? Then give it back to me, I'll give it to Brother Dao next time. Saying that, Qi Tian even reached out to take it. However, Qi Tian easily dodged him and, despite his words, protected the wooden box tightly in front of him. Hey, but no matter what, this is my son's kind intention, I can't let it go to waste. After saying that, the corners of Qi Tian's seemingly serious face couldn't be suppressed no matter how hard he tried. Next to him, Shu Tian glared at Qi Tian reproachfully. This guy is not serious. Sister Xiaowu looked at the father and son, a hint of envy flashing across her small face. This kind of family atmosphere is really nice. Fortunately, she is also a part of it. Thinking of this, a smile appeared on Sister Xiaowu's adorable little face. After giving their respective gifts, the three began to ask about Qilin's soul skill effects. Although Su Yuntao and Sister Cici said that Qilin's first soul skill had an unprecedented 4 effects. Given their personalities, it was impossible for them to lie and deceive them. However, they didn't know what these 4 soul skills actually did. Su Yuntao and Sister Cici also didn't elaborate, only saying that the effects were comparable to 1,000-year soul skills. So the three of them were very curious about what kind of effects could make Su Yuntao and Sister Cici praise it so highly. After all, Qilin's first soul ring was only a 10-year soul ring in the end, no matter how good the soul skill was, how much better could it be? That is, until Qilin fully explained the effects of the soul skill. Hissed Tilda. My son Qilin has the potential to become a title Douluo. Qi Tian gasped, then clapped his hands and cheered, his face filled with excitement. Next to him, Shu Tian even nodded in agreement. Qilin is blessed with deep fortune, he will definitely become a great figure on Douluo Continent in the future. Even Sister Xiaowu said sourly. What kind of luck does Shaolin Jie have? A 10-year soul ring soul skill feels much better than my 100-year soul ring soul skill. Sister Xiaowu's first soul skill is waist bow, its effect is to instantly increase her waist strength by 100% and her toughness by 50%. After reaching level 10 soul power, for every level increased, the amplification effect when using waist bow increases by 1%. How should I put this soul skill? Whether it was strong or not, Qilin didn't know, because his thoughts went astray. After Qilin returned home, his days began to become simple and unadorned. Practicing from 10 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon every day, resting for 2 hours at noon, and having weekends off. His life was quite comfortable. In addition, he also took the time to go with Sister Xiaowu to register at the Spirit Hall branch in Noting City, and could receive a subsidy of 1 gold soul coin every month. Although, this 1 gold soul coin seemed insignificant to Qilin. But everything is about participation, and Qilin still liked things he got for free. Furthermore, while Qilin was at home, he would use his first soul skill on his parents and Sister Xiaowu every day. Although Qi Tian and Shu Tian did not awaken innate soul power back then, Qilin felt that with his help, they might not be unable to bloom like withered trees in spring and reawaken their soul power. As for Sister Xiaowu, she was not someone who liked cultivating. Especially after knowing that Qilin's soul skill actually had the ability of permanent amplification, she didn't want to cultivate even more. But every time she saw Qilin cultivating, she would feel bored and then cultivate alongside Qilin. Time flowed by unnoticed like this, and soon it was time for Nine Academy to start. Qilin's family was rich, so they gave the work-study student spot to Qiyu, whose family had financial difficulties. Early in the morning, Qi Tian hired a carriage, planning to take the 3 children from the village to Nine Academy together. In the carriage, Qiyu seemed slightly uneasy due to the luxurious decoration of the carriage. Qilin saw his reserve, raised his hand to pat his shoulder, and smiled gently. Don't be nervous, we're all from the same village, it's only right to look out for each other when we're away from home. Sister Xiaowu saw Qilin comforting Qiyu, and also raised her small fist, saying, Xiao Yezi, just rest assured, Sister Xiaowu will look out for you when we get to Nine Academy. If anyone dares to bully you, just tell me, and see if Sister Xiaowu doesn't beat him until he's looking for his teeth all over the ground. Having lived in Radish Village for 2 months, Sister Xiaowu had become the children's leader besides Qilin. Thank you, Shaolin Jie, Sister Xiaowu. Qiyu nodded vigorously, a grateful smile appearing on his face, and he became less nervous. Hee. Seeing this, Sister Xiaowu also felt a sense of accomplishment in her heart, and her fair little face looked quite happy. Qilin had long been accustomed to this and began to ponder another matter. Speaking of which, Tang Hao, as a title Douluo, should be able to see through Sister Xiaowu's identity, right? 100,000-year-old transformed soul beast, it's impossible for Tang Hao not to be tempted. Whether raising it for his son or killing it directly for its soul bone, both are good choices. But Qilin was very curious, what would happen if Sister Xiaowu kept staying by his side? Based on his experience from his previous life, no matter who wanted to deal with him, they would inexplicably encounter bad luck. But Tang Hao is one of the strongest people on Douluo Continent. If he were to deal with him or those around him, what would the outcome be? While Qilin was pondering, he didn't know. A mature woman wearing a brilliant golden long dress, a 9-curvature purple gold crown on her head, with fair skin and a nearly perfect face, had quietly arrived above St. Soul village outside Noting City. The mature woman exuded a noble, sacred, and majestic aura. If there were high-ranking officials from Spirit Hall present, they would surely recognize the person before them as the current Spirit Hall master, Bibi Dong. BB Dong's gaze was like a pool of autumn water, calmly looking at the seemingly impoverished village below, her red lips slightly parted. Tang Hao, oh Tang Hao, I should be thanking you. But who told you to be enemies with Spirit Hall? If I don't kill you, my heart won't be at ease. Chapter 13 BB Dong vs. Tang Hao, a small episode of school enrollment. Chapter 13, BB Dong fights Tang Hao, a little interlude at school admission. On the western edge of St. Spirit Village, 3 dilapidated adobe houses stood silently. A tattered plaque hung on the middle house of the 3 adobe houses, with a crude hammer drawn on it. No one on the continent today would have imagined that clear sky Douluo Tang Hao, once renowned throughout the land, would be holed up here as a poor blacksmith. Inside the house, Tang Hao swung a hammer, forging a lump of iron the size of a human head, his hammer strokes so fast they left after images. The pounding sound seemed to make the entire house tremble. After a long while, the iron lump, originally the size of a human head, had been forged down to the size of a palm. Looking at his masterpiece, a sharp glint flashed in Tang Hao's eyes. It seems, his disorder-splitting wind hammer method hasn't deteriorated. Thinking of his good son, Little San, who possessed innate full spirit power and twin spirits, Tang Hao's heart at this moment was filled with boundless ambition. One day, he would surely lead Little San to destroy Spirit Hall, avenge Yin, and then return to the Clear Sky Sect in glory. Father and son would join forces to recreate the former splendor of the Clear Sky Sect. However, before Tang San awakened his spirit, Tang Hao never gave him any warmth, as if he wasn't his own son. When Tang San was born, he fed him freshly boiled porridge. The money he earned was mostly spent on alcohol, never contributing to household expenses. From the age of 4, Tang San had to learn to cook for himself, or he would go hungry. Even after learning that Tang San had awakened a blue silver grass with innate full spirit power, he remained indifferent, not even planning for him to become a spirit master. Until Tang San revealed he had another spirit, the Clear Sky Hammer. Immediately, Tang Hao gave Tang San a big hug and said with deep affection, "Son, my son." For a sect servant, Tang Hao dreamed of returning to the Clear Sky Sect. And his good son, Little San, became his only hope for avenging himself against Spirit Hall and returning to the Clear Sky Sect. It was precisely because of his good son that Tang Hao, who had been decadent for several years, decided to change himself. It was time for the title of Clear Sky Douluo to shine across the continent once more. Just as Tang Hao was filled with ambition. Beside him, the forge fire suddenly extinguished. Tang Hao's eyes instantly narrowed, and he gazed into the distance. Just now, he had felt an incredibly strong spirit power fluctuation. This fluctuation was definitely from a title Douluo. In just a second, his body had entered a state of alert, the hand holding the hammer tightened abruptly, and his knuckles cracked like popping beans. His spirit power, dormant for many years, boiled at this moment. Tang Hao let out a low roar, his expression extremely grim. So many years, I didn't expect those scoundrels from Spirit Hall to still find this place. Before his words finished, Tang Hao's body suddenly vanished from its spot as if by teleportation. At the same time, above Saint Spirit Village. The elegant and noble BB Dong looked at the disheveled Tang Hao, her expression slightly stunned, then she let out a soft laugh. I didn't expect it, the once clear sky Douluo is now so down and out. If it weren't for the fact that a small Nuoding city had 3 innate full spirit power users, she probably wouldn't have discovered Tang Hao's whereabouts. You are BB Dong. Tang Hao looked at the newcomer, his eyes slightly narrowed, a hint of killing intent flashing within them. He hadn't expected the person to be the new Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall, BB Dong. Although he knew the identity of the newcomer, Tang Hao's emotions remained largely undisturbed. So what if she was the Supreme Pontiff? He, Tang Hao, hadn't not killed one before. After killing her, he would take Little San and leave this place. Tang Hao thought to himself. You don't need to know who I am, you only need to know. I am here to kill you. BB Dong waved her hand. The next moment, spirit rings rose one after another from beneath her feet. The speed was not fast, but with each spirit ring that appeared, BB Dong's aura became more profound. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 red. Looking at the incredibly eerie blood-red spirit ring on BB Dong, Tang Hao's eyes revealed an expression of disbelief. Red. 100,000-year spirit ring. ... At the same moment, an exquisite carriage had slowly arrived at the entrance of Nine Academy. Children, we've arrived at Nine Academy, everyone get out. Qi Tian called into the carriage, and Qilin and the other 2 immediately jumped out. Stretching lazily, Qilin looked at the tall archway in front of him with a languid expression and said to Qi Tian, "All right, Dad, we can go in by ourselves now." All right then. Qi Tian shrugged. If Qilin wanted to go in by himself, he was happy to take it easy. Anyway, they were at the academy, what danger could there be? After seeing Qi Tian off, Qilin and the other 2 went to the guards standing on either side of the archway. The guards' faces initially looked displeased, even a little annoyed. Qi Yu, seeing the guard's expression, shivered all over, startled. After all, he was just an ordinary 6-year-old child. However, after the 3 of them walked over, the guard quickly adjusted his emotions. As a guard, knowing how to judge people was a basic skill. He saw that the 3 children had disembarked from a luxurious carriage, especially the 2 children walking in front, both their attire and demeanor suggested they weren't from ordinary families. So, the guard bowed slightly and smiled at Qilin and Xiao Wu, greeting them warmly. "Little friends, you look unfamiliar. Are you new students at Nine Academy this year?" Qilin nodded slightly. The guard continued, "Then please show your spirit hall certificates to older brother, otherwise older brother can't let you pass." After hearing this, Qilin glanced at the 2 people beside him, then took out his spirit hall certificate from his satchel. Xiao Wu and Qi Yu followed suit. The guard first looked at Qilin's spirit hall certificate. When he saw the words, "Mutated blue silver grass, innate spirit power rank 10 feet" clearly written on it, his expression stiffened slightly. Blue silver grass, and another damn blue silver grass. I must be seeing ghosts today, encountering 2 innate full spirit power blue silver grass users in a row. Remembering the country bumpkin from not long ago, the guard's gaze towards Qilin immediately lost some of its previous warmth, but he also knew that this child didn't look easy to provoke, so he just said indifferently. All right, you've passed. Then, the guard looked at Xiao Wu's and Qi Yu's spirit master certificates. Seeing that Xiao Wu's certificate also showed innate full spirit power, the guard's eyes had already turned to a faint mockery, and he thought to himself. These noble lords sure have good methods, they can even bribe Spirit Hall to forge spirit master certificates. As he thought about it, the guard felt a bit envious. Apparently, the guard misunderstood Qilin's identity, mistaking him for a young master from a noble family. As for the last one, Qi Yu, the guard just glanced at him indifferently and let him pass. Innate rank 1 spirit power, and a work-study student, now that's normal. After Qilin and the other two walked away, the guard continued whistling, ready to welcome the next student's registration. On the other side, Xiaowu let out a light HMPH, her face full of displeasure. Why did that guard's attitude change so much? At first he was so enthusiastic, almost fawning, and then he seemed to be mocking us. Sister Xiaowu really wants to beat him up. Qilin smiled and patted Xiaowu's head, saying, Xiaowu, you're a girl, don't be so hot-tempered. Xiaowu lifted her fair little chin and let out a light HMPH, seemingly proud, as if to say, I'm not listening, the turtle is chanting scriptures. Chapter 14, Xiaowu accidentally enters the 7th dormitory and becomes the boss. Chapter 14, an unfortunate coincidence leads to Dorm 7, Xiaowu wants to be the boss. The dean's office. Director Su, who appeared to be around 60 years old, took the spirit hall certificates handed to him by Qilin and the other two. After reading their contents, he looked at Qilin and Xiaowu with a strange expression. He secretly thought to himself, this is truly odd. In previous years, even children with innate spirit power of 5 or 6 were rare. This year, 3 children with innate full spirit power have appeared consecutively. He was not as unknowledgeable as the gatekeeper. If your status was high enough, you could indeed get people from the spirit hall to modify your certificate. But the problem was, even if you modified it, what good would it do? Your spirit power level wouldn't become innate full spirit power just because you changed the certificate to say so. Therefore, modifying a certificate was a thankless task. Who would do it? Moreover, in this small Nuoding city, who could command the spirit hall? Not even the city lord's mansion could. So, the spirit certificates of these 2 children absolutely could not be fake. Children, welcome to Nine Academy. I have already reviewed your spirit hall certificates. Next, I will have someone take you to your dorms. Director Su smiled kindly, then turned his head and said to the 2 young teachers behind him, you two, take these 3 children to their dorms. Hearing Director Su's words, Qilin felt quite regretful. It seemed that he and Xiaowu would most likely not be able to live in the same dorm as the original protagonist's 3rd brother. After all, he and Xiaowu were not work-study students. Actually, he really wanted to meet the characters from the original work. Especially controversial characters like Grandmaster and Tang San. However, just as this thought arose, one of the young teachers behind Director Su showed a troubled expression. Director, there are more new students this year than in previous years, and these 3 students arrived late. All the beds in the regular student dorms are already full. Director Su's brows furrowed instantly upon hearing this. What is the logistics teacher doing? Didn't he prepare any spare dorms? Another young teacher then suggested, Director, it doesn't have to be so complicated. There are still many empty beds in the work-study student dorms. We can ask Qilin and Xiaowu to temporarily stay there. Every dorm in Nine Academy was incredibly large, capable of housing 50 students. And the work-study student dorms currently only had 12 occupants. This was even after including Tang San. Director Su hesitated slightly, then looked at Qilin and Xiaowu. Qilin was known for his understanding nature, so how could he make Director Su feel troubled? He smiled and then said, Director Su, let's do as this teacher suggested for now. Director Su's eyes lit up at the sight. What a wonderful child. Then, with his slightly authoritative voice, he said to the 2 young teachers, since this young man has said so, take them to the work-study student dorms for now. After speaking, he turned his head and looked at Qilin with a kind expression. Young man, if anyone bullies you in the academy, just tell the director and the director will teach him a lesson. Qilin smiled brightly, then thank you, director. Walking out of the dean's office, Xiaowu tugged at Qilin's clothes and whispered, it seems that old man director is a good person. Qilin didn't speak, he just reached out and pinched Xiaowu's chubby little face. So soft. Soon, Qilin and the other 2 were led by the 2 teachers to the entrance of dorm 7. One of the teachers smiled and said to Qilin and Xiaowu, this is the work-study student dorm. The conditions are a bit simple and not as good as the regular student dorms. You 2 make do for a few days. Once the new dorms are expanded in a few days, you can move out. Qilin and Xiaowu nodded and pushed open the door to dorm 7. Inside dorm 7, 8 or 9 children of varying ages were playing and making noise. Seeing someone open the door, they immediately turned their gaze over. After seeing Qilin and the other 2, curiosity flashed in their eyes. Because looking at Qilin and Xiaowu's attire and demeanor, they didn't look like work-study students. The last one, a dark and skinny fellow, fit the work-study student criteria quite well. The young teacher following Qilin and the other 2 stepped forward and explained why Qilin and Xiaowu were temporarily staying in dorm 7. Only then did everyone understand. So, it was just because there weren't enough dorms that they were temporarily staying in dorm 7. The work-study students looked at Qilin, then at Xiaowu, and envy flashed in their eyes. Especially Xiaowu, they just thought she was so cute. Among the crowd, a boy with simple clothes, an ordinary face, and a slightly mature demeanor looked at Qilin and the other 2. First, a hint of curiosity flashed in his eyes, then a touch of amazement when he saw Xiaowu. What a cute little girl. But immediately after, he frowned slightly and whispered to Wang Sheng beside him, can boys and girls live together here? Wang Sheng swallowed and nodded. Of course, I heard that they only separate boys and girls when they go to the Intermediate Spirit Master Academy. At this moment, the young teacher who brought Qilin and the other 2 gave a reminder to get along harmoniously with fellow students before turning and leaving. After the young teacher left, Qilin smiled at everyone in dorm 7, appearing harmless and very approachable. Everyone in dorm 7 subconsciously felt that this guy was trustworthy. Only Tang San quietly watched this scene, his expression very calm. Combining his 2 lives, he was already over 30 years old, so how could he be deceived by superficial appearances? Especially since he was an expert in poisons, he knew that the more beautiful and charming something was, the more likely it was to contain potent toxins. People were the same, the more cunning a person was, the more harmless they might appear. Of course, Tang San didn't conclude that Qilin was a cunning person. After all, he was just a child, how much cunning could he possess? However, Tang San needed to use Qilin as a reminder to himself that no matter what, he should never be deceived by superficial appearances and should trust his instincts. Hello everyone, my name is Qilin, and my spirit is 4-leaf clover. After Qilin's introduction, Xiaowu also blinked her big, lively eyes and, imitating Qilin, introduced herself, my name is Xiaowu, the Wu from dancing, and my spirit is Soft Bones Rabbit. My name is Qiyu, and my spirit is Scythe. After the 3 introduced themselves, Wang Sheng nudged Tang San. Tang San was currently the boss of their dorm 7, so he naturally had to show off his strength to the new dorm mates. Tang San could only reluctantly step forward and say, hello, my name is Tang San. I am currently the boss of dorm 7, and my spirit is Blue Silver Grass. Hearing the words, Blue Silver Grass, Xiaowu's eyes lit up, and she tugged at Qilin's hand. Qilin, his spirit is also Blue Silver Grass. Tang San was stunned upon hearing this and looked at Qilin. Wasn't his spirit four-leaf clover? Qilin smiled slightly at Tang San and explained, my four-leaf clover spirit mutated from blue silver grass. Tang San understood after hearing this. On the way here, he had heard the teacher mention spirit mutation. Generally speaking, most spirit mutations were malignant, with only a very small number being benign. Clearly, Qilin was one of the lucky ones with a benign spirit mutation. Normal blue silver grass usually had no innate spirit power. Afterward, Tang San explained the rules of Dorm 7 to Qilin and the other two. Before Qilin and Qiyu could react, Xiao Wu's eyes were already sparkling with excitement. I didn't expect the rules here to be so interesting. Sister Xiao Wu loves it. Since that's the case, then Sister Xiao Wu also wants to be the boss of Dorm 7. Xiao Wu waved her small fists and looked at Tang San, an eager expression on her face. Tang San was being watched by Xiao Wu, and looking at her clear, bright eyes, his heart inexplicably began to beat rapidly. Having lived 2 lives, this was the first time Tang San had felt this way. His intuition told Tang San that this seemingly carefree and lively little girl in front of him was definitely a pure and kind girl at heart. Qilin, so, do I really look like a bad guy? Chapter 15, Double Standard Xiao Wu, Auxiliary Spirit Master Qilin. Chapter 15, Double Standard Sister Xiao Wu, Auxiliary Soul Master Qilin. Since you're the dorm head here, let's have a fight, Sister Xiao Wu said impatiently. Tang San hesitated for a moment, thinking to himself, alright, I'll be careful later and try not to hurt her. So he nodded and said, alright then, but let's agree that it's just sparring. Sister Xiao Wu grumbled, you're a big man, why are you so wishy-washy? At this moment, Qilin reached out and rubbed her head. Be careful when you strike, you're all classmates, don't hurt the harmony. Sister Xiao Wu immediately nodded like a chick pecking rice, got it, got it. Tang San, why isn't she calling him wishy-washy now? Isn't Qilin a big man? Isn't this treating him differently? Come on, Tang San, who was ready, said in a deep voice. But the next moment, Sister Xiao Wu's legs exerted force, and her small body shot out from the spot in an instant. Her speed was so fast that even the others in 7 dorm couldn't see her movements clearly. Tang San's eyes narrowed sharply as he listened to the sound of rushing wind coming from a distance. What fast speed! He didn't have time to react, he had still underestimated Sister Xiao Wu's speed. Qilin had been stacking buffs on Sister Xiao Wu every day for the past 2 months. Now, not only had Sister Xiao Wu's soul power reached level 13, but her strength, speed, and defense were also stronger than soul masters of the same level. Furthermore, the physical quality of a beast martial soul is naturally stronger than that of a plant martial soul. So, Tang San was unlucky. Even if he possessed Tang's sect hidden weapons and various techniques, what of it? In the world of martial arts, only speed is unbeatable. He couldn't keep up with Sister Xiao Wu's reaction and speed. This was also the reason why Qilin told Sister Xiao Wu to be careful. Bang! Accompanied by a low muffled sound, after the people in 7 dorm were dumbfounded, Tang San's body was kicked flying by Sister Xiao Wu and slammed onto a bed behind him. So much strength. Wang Sheng's mouth was wide open, his face full of shock. His soul power had already reached level 9, and his martial soul was a tiger type with decent combat power. However, compared to Sister Xiao Wu, he was far inferior in both strength and speed. They were not on the same level at all. At this moment, Tang San did a carp flip and got up from the bed, his face also filled with shock. He didn't expect Sister Xiao Wu's speed and strength to be so terrifying. Was her martial soul really just a soft bone rabbit? His chest was still faintly aching. It seems I have to get serious, otherwise I'm afraid I really will lose. Losing to a 6-year-old girl was something Tang San had never dared to imagine before. The next moment, Tang San's mind moved, a hint of purple flashed in his pupils, and he stepped on Ghost Shadow Perplexing Step, actively attacking Sister Xiao Wu. After using Ghost Shadow Perplexing Step, Tang San's body seemed to have several afterimages in the eyes of outsiders, making it difficult to distinguish. However, Sister Xiao Wu and Qilin were clearly not in this category. Sister Xiao Wu was not flustered. After Tang San attacked, her pink fists rained down like raindrops, fast and heavy. One must know that after a soul master obtains a soul ring, their physique will experience a significant increase, let alone Sister Xiao Wu who also had buffs stacked by Qilin. Tang San used Purple Demon Eyes, Ghost Shadow Perplexing Step, and Profound Jade Hand to deflect with minimal force. But facing Sister Xiao Wu's fierce offensive, he was ultimately beaten black and blue and could only reluctantly admit defeat. Of course, Tang San felt that although he lost, he was not defeated. Because his real killing move was Tang's sect hidden weapons. Shaolin J, I won. Now I'm the boss of 7 dorm. Sister Xiao Wu excitedly hugged Qilin's arm, swinging it back and forth, her small face full of excitement. Qilin said with a smile, what, you also want me to acknowledge you as the boss and call you Sister Xiao Wu? Sister Xiao Wu said coyly, actually, it's not impossible. Let's address each other as we are, you call me Sister Xiao Wu, and I'll call you Shaolin J. Bang. Before Sister Xiao Wu could finish speaking, Qilin flicked her forehead and asked another question. Are you sure? Sister Xiao Wu pouted and said in a low voice, if you don't want to call me that, then don't. The others watched with wide eyes, not expecting that Sister Xiao Wu, who had just been full of spirit and easily defeated the former boss Tang San, was completely controlled by Qilin. Tang San also saw this scene, feeling uncomfortable inside, and also very confused. Is it possible that Qilin is even more powerful than Sister Xiao Wu? In fact, Qilin felt that he and Sister Xiao Wu each had their own advantages. First, Sister Xiao Wu had more experience than him, and also had her first soul skill in the 8-stage slam. And his only advantage was that he could stack buffs on himself, and his physique was much stronger than Sister Xiao Wu's. If he fought seriously, their winning percentage should be 50-50. But if he closed his eyes and relied entirely on feeling, then Sister Xiao Wu would most likely have no chance of winning. Afterward, Sister Xiao Wu stood with her hands on her hips and looked at the people in 7 dorm, saying, from now on, I am your boss. When you're out and about, remember to call me Sister Xiao Wu. Did you all hear me? Wang Sheng led the way, saying, yes, Sister Xiao Wu. Sister Xiao Wu gave him a satisfied look. Good, he's on the right track. So she continued, from now on in Nine Academy, you are under the protection of your Sister Xiao Wu. If anyone believes you, just mention my name, Sister Xiao Wu. At this moment, Sister Xiao Wu had a feeling of commanding the world and being full of spirit. Yes, Sister Xiao Wu. Upon receiving Sister Xiao Wu's promise, the response from the people in 7 dorm was even louder. The reason they had such a rule was largely to unite and not be bullied by outsiders. After acknowledging their new boss, Wang Sheng curiously asked, Sister Xiao Wu, what level is your soul power? How are you so powerful? Sister Xiaowu's fair chin lifted slightly, and she said proudly, level 13. As Sister Xiaowu spoke, a yellow soul ring appeared beneath her feet. What? Sister Xiaowu is actually a level 13 soul master. And, Sister Xiaowu's first soul ring is actually a 100-year soul ring. Seeing this scene, the people in 7 dorm had both shock and envy in their eyes. For poor people like them, it was basically impossible for their first soul ring to be a 100-year soul ring. Let alone them, even the city lord's son, Xiao Chenu, only had a 10-year soul ring for his first soul ring. Although it was a bit funny, this was the truth. Tang San was both curious and surprised. Is this a soul ring? I heard that after absorbing a soul ring, one can use soul skills. So, Tang San looked at Sister Xiaowu and thought to himself, if Sister Xiaowu had used soul skills just now, wouldn't I have lost long ago? It seems she also went easy on me. Thinking of this, Tang San's mood suddenly improved for some reason. Then Wang Sheng curiously asked about Qilin's level. After all, Qilin was someone even Sister Xiaowu respected. Hearing this, Qilin smiled and extended his hand, making a tiny gesture. My level is just a tiny bit higher than Sister Xiaowu's. But I'm just an auxiliary soul master. After hearing this, the people in 7 dorm were shocked again. They thought Sister Xiaowu's level was already high enough, but they didn't expect there to be another expert. Unfortunately, he was just an auxiliary soul master. As everyone knows, auxiliary soul masters have no attack power. Chapter 16 The Real Blind Douluo, Little Yellow Hair Qilin. Chapter 16 True Blind Eye Douluo, Blonde Qilin. While Qilin and others were at Nine Academy, a shocking battle was erupting in a mountain range north of Saint Soul Village. Just look, the air was filled with poisonous purple mist, causing all the flowers, plants, and trees in the covered area to wither and rot. The originally noble, sacred, and majestic Bibi Dong unleashed her true spirit avatar at this moment. Her previously enchanting body transformed into a gigantic spider, emitting purple light all over, with only her upper body retaining a human form. But even so, she still looked strangely beautiful, exuding an eerie feeling. Across from her, Tang Hao gasped for breath. He admitted that he had been careless. This Bibi Dong is actually even more difficult to deal with than the previous Pope, Qian Zunji. Although both of them possess a 100,000-year spirit ring, Tang Hao had been besieged by several titled Douluo, his injuries had not fully recovered, and he had been in decline for several years. How could he be a match for Bibi Dong? Seeing Bibi Dong unleash her true spirit avatar, Tang Hao could only helplessly activate his own Hoshin true form. However, in his heart, he had already begun to calculate how to escape. Knowing you can't win, yet still fighting to the death. This is a kind of foolishness called hot-bloodedness. Now that Tang Hao had finally come to his senses and even saw the hope of returning to the sect, how could he just fall here? Hoshin true form. With a loud shout, Tang Hao's spirit power exploded like popping beans, and a terrifying, surging aura erupted from within him. Tang Hao's 7th spirit ring flickered. Behind him, the Hoshin hammer suddenly burst forth with black light, instantly expanding to over 100 meters, like a small mountain. The terrifying pressure caused the surrounding ground to suddenly sink, as if the surrounding air had become thick. Bibi Dong, today I will let you see why the Hoshin hammer is called the #1 tool spirit in the world. Let's decide the outcome with one move. Tang Hao's voice was like rolling waves, rushing towards Bibi Dong. The latter snorted coldly, since you're so eager to die, then I shall grant your wish. Ha ha ha, it's not certain who will die yet. Sky Overlord Strike. The most terrifying thing about this strike is that it cannot be dodged, only met head-on, and its power is absolutely overwhelming. On the other side, Bibi Dong's black 8th spirit ring suddenly shone brightly, emitting a dazzling black light. Immediately, another Death Spider Emperor body identical to her main body strangely appeared beside her. This is precisely Bibi Dong's 8th spirit skill, Spider Emperor Clone. Although this clone still needs to be controlled by the main body, it can unleash 100% of the main body's damage. And the moment the Spider Emperor clone appeared, Bibi Dong's 6th spirit ring immediately followed, emitting a dazzling radiance. 6th spirit skill, Blood-sucking spider thorns. The next moment, Bibi Dong's main body and clone simultaneously released tens of thousands of spider thorns, wildly impacting the giant hammer descending from the sky like raging waves. Boom! The entire mountain range shook, waves of air rolled, and the terrifying impact shattered all the surrounding rocks, causing the mountain itself to collapse. After a long time, the commotion subsided, and a seductive figure rushed out from the waves of air, with blood spilling from her mouth. The person who appeared was none other than Bibi Dong. However, at this moment, she looked pale, her aura was chaotic, and she appeared quite disheveled. As expected of Tang Hao, I didn't expect you would still manage to escape. However, even if you can escape, can your son escape like you? Meanwhile, on the other side of the mountain range, Tang Hao's robes were tattered, and blood also spilled from his wounds. However, strangely, the blood flowing from his wounds was dark purple, looking particularly gruesome. In addition, dark purple blood also flowed from his eyes. During the battle just now, his eyes were injured by the spider thorns, which were like raging waves, causing both eyes to be poisoned blind, turning him into a blind eye Douluo. Damn Bibi Dong. Damn Spirit Hall. Sooner or later, I will completely eradicate you. Tang Hao clenched his fist and suddenly punched the nearby boulder, instantly shattering it into pieces. He was careless and underestimated Bibi Dong's strength. Otherwise, if he had fled directly, Bibi Dong might not have been able to catch up to him. Between title Douluo, unless there is a huge difference in power, killing one is basically impossible. No, I must go to Nine Academy as quickly as possible to take Tang San away, otherwise he might be in danger. At this moment, Tang Hao immediately thought of his good son, and so, relying on his senses, he flew towards Noting City. Although he was blind, he was still a title Douluo, so he wouldn't be unable to even walk. Just as Tang Hao was rushing towards Nine Academy, at the Noting City market, Qilin and Xiaowu walked on the street. This time, when coming to report to the academy, he and Xiaowu only brought a few changes of clothes. He didn't bring bedding and the like, finding it troublesome. This can be considered the disadvantage of not having a storage soul guidance device. There's no way around it. Luck isn't a wish-granting machine that gives you whatever you wish for. For example, Qilin previously wished to pick up a storage soul guidance device, but he didn't. He also wished that a kind person or a kind older sister would give him a storage soul guidance device, but he still didn't get one. So, this luck works sometimes and doesn't work other times. Qilin can't control it either. Of course, if it involves his safety, that's another story. After visiting several shops, Qilin had only one requirement for the bedding. That is, it had to be comfortable to sleep on, while also being subtly luxurious. As subtle as possible, as luxurious as possible. Although Qilin was someone who indulged in pleasure, he also didn't want the kids in 7 dorm to think he was showing off. Saying showing off doesn't seem quite right either. Qilin didn't care much about what others thought of him, he was mainly worried about discouraging the kids in 7 dorm. Although he probably wouldn't be staying in 7 dorm for long. Returning to 7 dorm, after making the beds, Wang Sheng and others suggested, Sister Xiaowu, Brother Lin, it's mealtime. Shall we go to the academy canteen together? Originally, Qilin and Xiaowu had already eaten outside, but thinking that they hadn't seen the academy's food yet, they nodded and replied, alright, let's go together. Most of the time, the people in 7 dorm acted together, otherwise they would inevitably be targeted by outsiders. Upon arriving at the canteen, a group of well-dressed students aggressively rushed towards the people from 7 dorm. However, when Xiao Chenu, who was halfway there, saw Qilin, who was mingling with the 7 dorm group and acting in a laid-back manner, his face instantly darkened. Damn it, why is it this guy? He actually came to 9 Academy too. Even if he died, he wouldn't forget this blonde kid who he only met once and who then completely captivated his sister. Moreover, this guy was actually hanging out with Wang Sheng and his group of bumpkins. This is simply outrageous. Thinking of this, Xiao Chenu led a group of his followers and aggressively walked up, intending to settle both new and old scores. At this moment, Wang Sheng also noticed the aggressive group led by Xiao Chenu and suddenly shouted. Sister Xiaowu, usually it's Xiao Chenu and his group who lead the bullying of us from 7 dorm. So that's how it is, you guys wait. Sister Xiaowu is going to get revenge for you guys. By the time Qilin noticed Xiao Chenu and his group, before he could speak, Xiaowu's small and exquisite body shot out like a bolt of lightning. Just like a tiger entering a flock of sheep. Seeing this situation, Qilin could only make a shrug gesture like a little bear. Alright, I can only pray that Xiaowu goes easy on them. After a while, Xiao Chenu and his group, who were already bruised and swollen, looked at Xiaowu and shouted loudly together outside the canteen, greetings, Sister Xiaowu. Long live Sister Xiaowu. Damn, how humiliating. Chapter 17 Yu Xiaoging's speculation, poisonous blue-silver grass. Chapter 17, Yu Xiaoging's deduction, blue-silver grass with poison. What are you all doing, making such a fuss? Just then, a voice with a hint of anger suddenly sounded, and a young teacher walked out of the cafeteria. After Xiao Chenu saw the young teacher, he just had the thought of complaining, but the next moment he saw Xiaowu smilingly staring at him and waving her small fist. So Xiao Chenu resolutely closed his mouth out of fear. And the teacher who walked out of the cafeteria saw that no one replied, his brows slightly furrowed, and he left the sentence, if you dare to gather and fight outside the cafeteria again, you will all go sweep the toilets. Then he returned to the cafeteria. As for Xiaowu, she skipped back to Qilin's side, grinning and saying, Sister Xiaowu is awesome, right? I unified 9 Academy in just 1 day. You are this. Qilin gave a thumbs up. Behind him, Wang Sheng and others also shouted in unison. Sister Xiaowu was mighty. On the other side, looking at Xiaowu's attitude towards Qilin, who was incredibly fierce just moments ago, Xiao Chenu gritted his teeth. As expected, he's a little blonde, never forgetting to hook up with girls wherever he goes. No, I must make my sister cut ties with this guy when I get back. After such a small incident, Qilin and the 7 dorm group entered the cafeteria. As the big sister of 7 dorm, Xiaowu waved her hand. Sister Xiaowu was treating this meal. When it came time to pay, she touched the 1 silver soul coin and a few copper soul coins in her pocket, her small face flushing with embarrassment. She ordered too many dishes just now. She could only look at Qilin beside her with a pitiful expression. Shaolin J. Qilin pinched Xiaowu's tender little face and paid the bill. You're treating when you don't have money. I'm the big sister of 7 dorm, you know. When they left the cafeteria, they saw a middle-aged man who looked to be in his 40s or 50s, with an ordinary appearance and a buzz cut, walking over from the other side. Qilin glanced at him and felt that this person looked a bit familiar. Then he saw this person waving towards their direction and calling Tang San out. Now Qilin knew who he was. Master Yu Xiaoging. Qilin was generally indifferent to the characters in these novels and anime. Even if people online trashed Tang San and Master like excrement, he didn't care. In fact, Qilin even admired Yu Xiaoging quite a bit. A mere level 29 soul master, yet he could simultaneously fool, no, it should be attract Luerlong and Bibidong, these 2 hidden dragons and phoenixes. Before Master left, Qilin carefully sized him up. Completely ordinary. Could it be that he grew up deformed? Stiff personality, ordinary appearance, low level. Could it be that Master really attracted Luerlong and Bibidong relying on his true talent and knowledge? But didn't everyone say that most of the Spirit Hall's 10 core competencies of spirit theory published by Master were borrowed from the Spirit Hall's library? Qilin believed that Yu Xiaoging was knowledgeable, but in a world where strength is respected, women's choices and partners naturally have a bias. But in such a large environment, Luerlong and Bibidong could still have such unique taste and fancy Master. This was also where Qilin admired Master. However, having said that, Master wasn't quite responsible towards Luerlong and Bibidong. Qilin stated that this point should not be encouraged. On the other side, after Master took Tang San away, he remembered a child in the crowd who had been staring at him, so he asked Tang San about his name. Seeing that the teacher mentioned Qilin, Tang San subconsciously frowned. Is the teacher also interested in Qilin? However, Tang San always felt that a teacher for a day is a father for life. So he immediately introduced him to Master. His name is Qilin, and his spirit is a mutated blue-silver grass. After hearing this, Yu Xiaoging's eyes narrowed slightly. Do you know what level his innate soul power is? Tang San shook his head. I don't know either, but it's likely level 10. What does that mean? Tang San immediately recounted what happened in 7 dorm. Yu Xiaoging's brows furrowed even more after listening, and he said, I didn't expect such a small 7 dorm to produce 3 innate full soul power users. And that kid named Qilin, can he really achieve innate full soul power with just a mutated blue-silver grass? Even if it's a beneficial mutation, it shouldn't reach such a level, right? Unless he also has twin spirits. Thinking of this, a blazing light burst forth from Yu Xiaoging's eyes, and even his breathing became much more rapid. How kind is heaven to me, Yu Xiaoging, to allow me to encounter 2 twin spirits simultaneously in this small noting city. As long as I can also take Qilin as a disciple, let him and Tang San practice my theories together, and when the day comes that the 2 of them shake the continent, who will dare to look down on him, Yu Xiaoging? By then, he will be the true master of the entire Douluo continent. Thinking of this, Yu Xiaoging actually felt a sense of heroic ambition, as if all the heroes of the world were within his grasp. As for whether Qilin would refuse, Yu Xiaoging felt that he would use his knowledge to win him over. After taking Tang San to his dormitory, Yu Xiaoging first asked Tang San to release his second spirit. The moment he saw the Hoshin hammer, Yu Xiaoging recognized it at a glance and even guessed the identity of Tang San's father. Tang Hao. Although he knew that Tang Hao and Spirit Hall were mortal enemies, Master's heart was calm. He wanted to shake the continent and be remembered forever. How could he shrink back because of Tang San's identity? Moreover, he was confident that even if Bibi Dong knew Tang San's identity, she would never make things difficult for him. Perhaps this is why those who are favored are always fearless. After that, Master confidently analyzed the pros and cons of the blue-silver grass for Tang San, laying the foundation for the future development direction of Tang San's blue-silver grass. Control system. However, the blue-silver grass is too weak. If it is to have stronger control effects, it needs to utilize added toxicity to strengthen the attack and control capabilities of the blue-silver grass. Tang San heard this and thought, add toxicity. This just happens to coincide with the direction I am good at. So the two hit it off immediately. From now on, I will add toxicity to the blue-silver grass. As long as my blue-silver grass is poisonous enough, even if I can't control you, I can still poison you to death. However, the two of them didn't consider it all at this moment. Would this cause the blue-silver grass to be inferior in toughness to other plant spirits, and inferior in toxicity to spirits known for poison? After all, each profession has its own specialization. You, a spirit known for vitality, are going to play with poison. If you weren't the protagonist, who the hell would dare to play like this? After seeing Tang San off, Yu Xiaogang sat behind the table and let out a long sigh of relief. Finally fooled. Oh, no. It's finally used my knowledge to win over Tang San. Just as Yu Xiaogang was about to close his eyes and rest for a while, the doors on both sides were suddenly pushed open by a strong gust of wind, the commotion of which also made Yu Xiaogang lose all sleepiness. Who is it? Yu Xiaogang shouted sternly. But the response to him was a faint voice. A figure with a delicate body and a noble and sacred aura walked out from the shadows. Xiaogang, long time no see. Chapter 18 Bibi Dong's Disappointment, Little Sun Qilin. Chapter 18, Bibi Dong's Disappointment, Little Sun Qilin. By Bibi Dong. Yu Xiaogang looked at the first woman he had ever deeply loved with a complicated expression. Why are you here? Can't I come? Bibi Dong retorted, a hint of disappointment flashing in her eyes, and threw an unconscious figure onto the floor of Yu Xiaogang's dormitory. She had been here for a while, hiding outside the door. Seeing Tang San come out, she captured him. Yu Xiaogang saw Tang San, who had just stepped out, being knocked unconscious and thrown in front of him, and a look of panic flashed in his eyes. He knew that once Tang San's identity was exposed, he would likely be killed by Bibi Dong. But Tang San was his, Yu Xiaogang's, disciple, the perfect candidate for him to prove his theory. How could he just watch Tang San die? Yu Xiaogang only thought for a second before immediately making a decision in his heart. He reprimanded, Bibi Dong, what are you doing? Tang San is my disciple, if there's anything, come at me. Seeing the man in front of her protecting Tang San, the disappointment in Bibi Dong's eyes grew stronger. She pointed at Tang San, her voice gradually turning cold. Do you know his identity? Seeing Bibi Dong ask about Tang San's identity, Yu Xiaogang's heart skipped a beat. But the next second, he let out a cold snort and responded. I don't know Tang San's identity, nor do I intend to find out. Ha, ha. Bibi Dong chuckled self-deprecatingly twice, her gaze becoming sharper. Since you don't know his identity, I'll tell you. Tang San is Tang Hao's son. As expected, hearing this, Yu Xiaogang's eyes narrowed. He had already guessed that Bibi Dong personally rushing from Spirit Hall to Noting City likely meant she had discovered Tang Hao's whereabouts and Tang San's identity. But Yu Xiaogang still held a glimmer of hope, hoping Bibi Dong had come to see him. Unfortunately, many things always turn out contrary to one's wishes. No, Tang San absolutely cannot die. Yu Xiaogang's heart suddenly tightened. If Tang San died, who would help him fulfill the ideal in his heart? Although there was another candidate, Qilin, Tang San mentioned that his mutated blue-silver grass's first spirit ability was actually a support spirit ability. So, even if Qilin was willing to become his disciple and help him realize his lifelong theory, what then? He already had flaws, not as perfect as Tang San. Moreover, Yu Xiaogang didn't think Qilin's second spirit could surpass the Hoshin hammer. This was the #1 tool spirit in the world. Bibi Dong, you cannot kill Tang San. I don't care whose son he is, but he is my successor, I will never allow you to harm him. If I don't kill him, should I wait for him and Tang Hao to kill me? Bibi Dong's emotions suddenly became agitated, and she roared loudly. Looking at Bibi Dong's slightly distorted beautiful face, he sighed deeply, and the expression on his face became gentle. Donger, you weren't like this before. You used to be gentle and considerate, always siding with me. I can guarantee you that Tang San will never oppose Spirit Hall in the future, as long as you spare his life. Okay, Donger. Bibi Dong took a deep breath, her expression complicated. Xiaogang, the current you makes me feel like a stranger. You clearly know, he has an irreconcilable hatred with Spirit Hall. Clearly knowing he also has twin spirits. Seeing that Bibi Dong was unmoved, a fierce look flashed across Master's face. But I've already guaranteed you that Tang San will never be an enemy of Spirit Hall, what more do you want? Do you not trust me that much? Bibi Dong, I'm telling you, if you really lay a hand on Tang San today, then you and I will have nothing to do with each other anymore. This firm and powerful voice made Bibi Dong almost unable to believe her ears. She looked at Yu Xiaogang in disbelief, as if confirming what he had said, wanting to see a trace of regret on his face. But unfortunately, there was no hint of regret on Yu Xiaogang's face. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Yu Xiaogang, what are you shouting? Remember what you said today. If Tang San still dares to be an enemy of my Spirit Hall, then it won't be you and I having nothing to do with each other anymore, but I breaking off all ties with you. Bibi Dong looked at Yu Xiaogang's face, the affection in her eyes dissipated, and suddenly she felt. He actually looked very ordinary. As her words fell, Bibi Dong's figure suddenly disappeared from the spot. Looking at Bibi Dong's disappearing figure, and then at Tang San on the ground, Yu Xiaogang immediately breathed a sigh of relief. But before he could wake Tang San, another figure flashed into existence. Yu Xiaogang, again. On the other side, Bibi Dong walked down a sparsely populated street, feeling a bit lost. As she recalled various past events in her mind, 2 lines of clear tears couldn't help but flow from the corners of her eyes. Just then, a fair, small hand handed over a tissue. Sister, wipe your tears. Bibi Dong subconsciously took the tissue, lowered her head slightly, and then noticed a little boy who looked only 5 or 6 years old walking towards her. The boy was wearing casual clothes, his skin was fair and delicate, he had slightly fluffy black hair, a refined small face, and exuded a sense of laziness and relaxation. Looking at the person who came, Bibi Dong's expression froze. He wasn't. Such a small Noting City producing 3 individuals with innate full spirit power at the same time naturally alarmed Bibi Dong. So after arriving at Noting City, she retrieved the detailed information of the 3 and learned their appearances. Qilin was one of them. Bibi Dong's purpose in coming to Noding City, besides killing Tang Hao and his son, was also to bring Qilin and Xiao Wu into Spirit Hall for cultivation. Although with their spirits, they might not go very far. After all, high innate spirit power doesn't necessarily mean one will become a strong person in the future. Tang Yuehua of the Hoshan sect is a typical example. Similarly, she had a mutated spirit, innate level 9 spirit power, and even possessed a natural domain. But what was the result? Due to the spirit mutation, her spirit power could no longer be improved. But there are exceptions to everything. What if Qilin and Xiao Wu were truly peerless geniuses? Looking at Qilin's handsome little face with a slightly lazy and relaxed expression, Bibi Dong's heart, which was originally disappointed with Yu Xiaogang, somehow calmed down. She bent down and reached out to stroke Qilin's head. Little guy, thank you for the tissue. Qilin looked at this beautiful woman who was bubbling with beauty, but he didn't think of Bibi Dong. After all, how could Bibi Dong possibly appear in Noding City at this time? But he couldn't stand to see women cry, especially such beautiful women. So he smiled maturely and comforted her. Sister, you're so beautiful, you should smile more. Although his tone was mature, he looked too young, like a little Shota, so when this sentence came out of his mouth, it actually gave people a sense of cuteness. As for how it felt to Bibi Dong, it was a bit like a little sun. A little warm. She had already forgotten how long it had been since an outsider told her she was beautiful. Thinking of this, when Bibi Dong looked at Qilin again, the corners of her mouth suddenly lifted involuntarily. Chapter 19 Someone really delivered a soul guidance device to my door. Chapter 19. Someone actually delivered a soul guidance device to my door. Just as I thought, sister looks incredibly beautiful when she smiles, even more gorgeous than a fairy from heaven. Looking at Bibi Dong, whose lips couldn't help but curve upwards, Qilin praised her without reservation. Bibi Dong didn't understand the meaning of fairy, but she could guess that Qilin was praising her. Fairies from heaven, aren't they goddesses? This little guy actually thinks she's more beautiful than a goddess. What a sweet mouth. So Bibi Dong leaned down, reached out, and gently rubbed Qilin's head, revealing a gentle smile once again. Thank you for your praise, sister likes it very much. At this moment, Bibi Dong exuded a sacred and gentle aura. Coupled with her beautiful and flawless face, even Qilin felt his breathing quicken slightly compared to usual. Don't look at Xiao Wu, she's also a beauty, but compared to this great beauty in front of him, it's like the gap between an incredibly unripe green apple and a ripe peach. There's no comparison. Little guy, are you shy? Bibi Dong felt Qilin's breathing suddenly quicken. Instead of overthinking, she found it interesting and subconsciously pinched his cheek. Unconsciously, her mood brightened considerably. Qilin subconsciously shook his head, but then remembering he was currently a child, he immediately nodded again. This seemed to better fit his current identity as a child. However, this action of his, which seemed like trying to cover up something, made Bibi Dong chuckle and laugh out loud. Perhaps feeling a connection with Qilin afterward, Bibi Dong didn't immediately reveal her identity. The large and the small figure walked on the sparsely populated street. They walked together for a while. Qilin didn't talk incessantly, but Bibi Dong was always made to giggle by a very old joke from his previous life. And Bibi Dong also discovered that this little son beside her wasn't as innocent and kind as he appeared, and sometimes even had a hint of slyness. Alright, beautiful and lovely big sister, I think I should head back to the academy. Qilin glanced at the gradually darkening sky, stretched, and said with a smile. After all, besides this great beauty, there might be a little beauty waiting for him at the academy. Qilin said that although the great beauty was more beautiful, after all, there was a difference in closeness, so he could only reluctantly disappoint her. Seeing Qilin preparing to leave, Bibi Dong was slightly startled. Looking at the sky, she couldn't help but sigh in her heart. Had time passed so quickly? Shaking her head slightly, the expression on Bibi Dong's face also returned to its original noble and sacred look, while also carrying a hint of majesty. This change immediately caught Qilin's attention. What a powerful aura, why does this beautiful sister look like an empress now? His wife in his previous life had also played an empress, but in terms of temperament, she was leagues away from this beautiful sister. This sister doesn't seem to be acting. Little guy, thank you for walking with me today, I'm very happy. So now I can give you an opportunity to become my disciple. Ah, take me as a disciple. Hearing Bibi Dong's words, Qilin was slightly startled, and then began to look around Bibi Dong again. Being examined by this little guy as if she were some rare item, Bibi Dong's pretty face darkened slightly. She felt offended. Have you looked enough? Bibi Dong glared at Qilin, her tone carrying a hint of reprimand. It was only Qilin. If anyone else dared to look at her with such eyes, they would probably have been casually slapped to death by her. Qilin gave an awkward smile and immediately withdrew his gaze. Enough, enough. I was just curious about beautiful sister's identity. After all, your aura just now was like an empress, too domineering. Empress. Hearing these two words, Bibi Dong's heart stirred slightly. A certain idea then sprouted wildly from the depths of her heart. This world might not be without an empress. But soon, Bibi Dong withdrew her thoughts and said calmly, now, don't worry about who I am. You just need to know that my identity is sufficient to be your teacher. As long as you agree, I can take you to Spirit City. Bibi Dong still didn't reveal her identity. She liked the current way of communicating with Qilin, so she didn't want Qilin to become like others, only showing awe after knowing her identity. She even revealed her soul rings. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 red. However, the soul rings only appeared for an instant before immediately disappearing. Bibi Dong's lips curved slightly upwards. How about it? Is my strength sufficient to be your teacher? This is the most common way of taking disciples in the Douluo continent, directly using strength to tell you that I have enough qualifications to be your teacher. After all, without powerful strength as support, any theoretical data is just impractical theorizing, seeing only a small part of the picture. Qilin nodded repeatedly like a groundhog. Now, how could he not know? This woman in front of him, so beautiful she seemed to bubble, was Bibi Dong, the Pope of the Spirit Hall, one of the three love-struck minds. Although, Bibi Dong's sudden appearance in Noding City made Qilin feel somewhat surreal. But this was still acceptable. It's just that now Bibi Dong wants to take him as her disciple, should he agree or not? Seeing that this little guy in front of her hadn't replied for a long time, Bibi Dong's delicate brows furrowed slightly. What, do you, this little guy, perhaps look down on me as a teacher? Qilin shook his head. No, but I don't want to go to Spirit City, so I can't be your disciple. There was also another reason. What if he became Bibi Dong's disciple? What about Xiao Wu? She and the Spirit Hall were like fire and water. After all, her birth mother was killed by Bibi Dong, and her soul ring was absorbed. Although Bibi Dong was much more charming than the current Xiao Wu, emotionally, Qilin definitely had to stand on Xiao Wu's side. That's it. Bibi Dong couldn't understand Qilin's thinking. I am a title Douluo, won't you reconsider? Bibi Dong said again. Qilin shook his head with certainty. Seeing this, Bibi Dong didn't try to persuade him further. In the past, if a genius rejected her invitation, if she couldn't have them, she would probably choose to destroy them. But when she knew this person was Qilin, she was unusually not angry but felt regret. Alas, since you don't want to be my disciple, then so be it. However, no matter what, you still called me sister a few times. As Bibi Dong spoke, she suddenly took out a silver bracelet from her hand and said gently, sister didn't bring any gifts with her, so I'll give you this bracelet. This bracelet is a soul guidance device that can store living things. Although it's not a particularly valuable treasure, it can store some miscellaneous items. After speaking, she personally helped Qilin put on the bracelet. Qilin looked at the bracelet on his left wrist, slightly stunned. Hey, someone actually delivered a storage soul guidance device. Thank you, sister. Seeing Qilin's appearance, unable to put down the storage bracelet, a smile immediately appeared on Bibi Dong's face. Alright, sister should be going too. We shall meet again if fate allows. Chapter 20, Tang San's Overreaction, the Mysteriously Confident Master. Chapter 20, Tang San's Overreaction and Master Yu Xiaobing's Mysterious Confidence. Bibi Dong finally pinched Qilin's face, and the next moment, her body actually soared into the air, disappearing into the sky in an instant. After leaving Qilin, Bibi Dong didn't even bother to pay attention to the last innate full soul power in Noting City. It was just a rabbit spirit. Even with innate full soul power, could it compare to her spirit hall's golden generation? Watching Bibi Dong disappear, Qilin shrugged, bought some fruit on the street, and also brought back a few carrots for Xiaowu before returning to the 7 dorm. As soon as he returned to the dormitory, Xiaowu bounced over, and from the expression on her face, it was clear she was in a very good mood. Qilin pinched Xiaowu's soft, white cheek and teased her. Why are you so happy? Xiaowu slightly lifted her fair chin, let out a soft snort, and wore a proud expression. From now on, I'm the only big sister in Nine Academy. Isn't that awesome? Today, she had led Xiao Chunyu and his group, fighting their way from the first year all the way up to the 6th year. Now, except for the teachers and Shaolin Jie, everyone who saw her had to call her sister Xiaowu. That's awesome. Qilin gave a thumbs up, then took out the fruit and carrots he had bought from the silver bracelet on his hand. He then looked at Wang Cheng and the others, who were swallowing their saliva, and smiled gently. I brought some fruit for everyone. Let's try it together. It wasn't about trying to curry favor with anyone. In his previous life, during university, he would always bring something back for his roommates whenever he went out. Of course, most of it was given to him by girls, which he then regifted to his roommates, ending up with several cheap adopted sons. Wang Cheng and the others hadn't moved yet when Xiaowu's bright, watery eyes suddenly lit up. Shaolin Jie, how did you know I was hungry and even brought back carrots for me? Xiaowu likes you so much. Smack. After saying that, Xiaowu took the carrots from Qilin's hand with lightning speed, and took the opportunity to kiss him on the cheek before happily returning to her bed. Almost at the same moment, the door of the 7 dorm suddenly opened, and Tang San stared dumbfounded at the scene he had just witnessed. For some reason, a sharp pain suddenly twisted in his chest. He looked at Qilin with anger and spoke loudly without hesitation. Qilin, I didn't expect you to look so harmless, but in reality, you are so despicable, using carrots to trick Xiaowu into kissing you. Damn it. It's just a carrot, isn't it? He could afford to buy them too. Qilin looked at Tang San with a bewildered expression. Your reaction is a bit too strong, isn't it? Before Qilin could explain, Xiaowu glared at Tang San, her hands on her hips. Tang San, you have a dirty mind yourself. Don't think of others as being so dirty. This time, considering it's your first offense, Sister Xiaowu won't hold it against you. But if I see you slandering Shaolin Jie again, see if I don't beat you to death. Towards people she didn't care about, Xiaowu's personality was always fiery and unreasonable. In front of so many people, she didn't give him any face at all. Finally, she snorted and hugged Qilin's arm right in front of Tang San. Seeing this scene, Tang San's cheeks, which were slightly sallow due to malnutrition, instantly turned red. Damn it, he was clearly thinking for Xiaowu's sake, but Xiaowu didn't appreciate it at all. Now Tang San felt like a clown. As for Qilin, well, as long as he wasn't embarrassed, then the one who was embarrassed was someone else. Qilin naturally withdrew his arm, which was being held by Xiaowu, and then looked at the rest of the people in the 7 dorm. Don't just stand there, everyone, come and have a taste. Oh, thank you, Shaolin Jie. Wang Cheng and the others finally came back to their senses. After receiving the fruit that Qilin handed over as if it were a treasure, they began to taste it in small bites. In their eyes, these fruits were high-class fruits that only nobles could enjoy. Finally, Qilin looked at Tang San and said, trying to ease the atmosphere, Tang San, that was a misunderstanding just now. We are all in the same dormitory, let's try the fruit together. However, after he finished speaking, what he received was Tang San's slightly cold and stiff reply. No need, I've already eaten with Master. Master. You mean Yu Xiaobing, the one who freeloads at our 9 Academy? He's actually your master. You should have observed for a while longer. How could you acknowledge him as your master so rashly? Wang Cheng, who was eating fruit, subconsciously responded when he heard Tang San's words. A hint of curiosity and confusion could be seen on his face. After all, in his eyes, Tang San was a genius with innate full soul power. Although his spirit was just the waste spirit blue silvergrass, there was no reason for him to acknowledge Master Yu Xiaobing as his master. Was he tricked? However, as soon as Wang Cheng finished speaking, Tang San's expression, which had just softened slightly, turned gloomy again, and he gave Wang Cheng a cold glance. I forbid you to talk about my master like that. If there's a next time, don't blame me for turning my back on you. Wang Cheng was startled by Tang San's cold gaze, shivered all over, and immediately shut his mouth. But he felt quite indignant inside. What the heck, Master Yu Xiaobing himself publicly claimed to be a freeloader. Moreover, his original intention was to worry that Tang San was being tricked. He didn't expect his good intentions to be taken for granted. The rest of the people in the 7 dorm were also silent, intimidated. Don't look down on Tang San just because he couldn't beat Sister Xiaowu, but he could easily defeat this group of them. Of course, this matter was just a small interlude. The next day, Tang San headed to the Han Soul Forest under the guidance of Master Yu Xiaobing. On the way, Tang San mentioned Wang Cheng's slanderous words about Master Yu Xiaobing from the previous day, but Yu Xiaobing simply waved his hand dismissively after hearing it, his face full of confidence. He looked at Tang San with burning eyes and said deeply, Tang San, do you trust Master? Looking at Yu Xiaobing's face full of confidence, Tang San was unconsciously influenced by it. Master, a master for a day is like a father for life. Of course, this disciple trusts you. Seeing this, Master Yu Xiaobing's expression became even more satisfied and confident. Good, Tang San. Master didn't misjudge you after all. Since you are willing to trust Master, Master will never let you down. Don't worry, after so many years of research, adding a poison attribute soul ring to the blue silver grass is absolutely the most correct choice. Although there was no precedent for adding a poison attribute soul ring to blue silver grass before, and the theory was temporarily in the speculative stage. But Yu Xiaogang still had full confidence in his speculation. Following that, the two of them performed another scene of deep master-disciple affection. More than 10 days later, Tang San and Yu Xiaogang, who had a pale face and a bandaged arm, returned to the academy. Although the two, one big and one small, looked very disheveled, their eyes were bright and full of confidence. Especially Yu Xiaogang, even though he was injured, he was extremely excited. For him, his research theories were even more important than life itself. Fortunately, he had gambled correctly. Not only did Tang San absorb the soul ring of the mandala snake, but his body also didn't show any abnormalities, and there was no obvious rejection reaction on his spirit. In addition, Tang San's first soul skill, Blue Silver Bind, was also quite practical. It could not only bind enemies but also contain the poison of the mandala snake. Yu Xiaogang was undoubtedly very satisfied with this result, because this proved that his deduction was completely correct. Thinking of this, Yu Xiaogang felt invigorated and planned to immediately record Tang San's case upon returning to the academy. He would publish it all when Tang San became famous throughout the continent, allowing the vast number of blue silver grass soul masters to all add poison attribute soul rings. It could also be considered a benefit to the public. Chapter 21 Tianmeng, this master is really stupid and evil. Chapter 21 Tianmeng, this master is really stupid and bad. As soon as Tang San returned to 7 dorm, he saw that the beds originally belonging to Qilin and Xiaowu were empty, and his brows furrowed uncontrollably. Wang Sheng, where are Xiaowu and Qilin? Tang San asked. Sister Xiaowu and Xiaolin Jie are not work-study students. They moved into the new dorm after it was built a couple of days ago. After hearing Wang Sheng's words, Tang San's brows furrowed even tighter. At this moment, Wang Sheng asked with a hint of envy, have you been hunting for spirit rings recently? Yes. Tang San replied irritably, and put his package on the bed by himself. He didn't know why, but after finding out that Xiaowu had moved out of 7 dorm, his mood suddenly turned bad. After responding to Wang Sheng and a few others briefly, he walked out of 7 dorm. Looking at Tang San's retreating back, someone in 7 dorm suddenly whispered. He's so pretentious. On the other side, in a similarly spacious and beautifully decorated dorm room, Xiaowu, who had just returned from a walk outside, saw Qilin dismantling and reassembling a lighting soul guidance device and couldn't help but ask out of curiosity. Xiaolin Jie, don't you get bored dismantling and reassembling these soul guidance devices every day? No, I think assembling soul guidance devices is quite interesting. Don't mention it, now I can even make some simple soul guidance devices myself, which is super fulfilling. Qilin said with a slightly excited tone. Okay, although I don't understand what's interesting about it, it looks terribly complicated. I feel like I'm already dizzy just looking at this pile of dense parts. Qilin laughed heartily and pinched Xiaowu's tender little face. Wait until I make a game console in a while, and you won't find it boring anymore. Game console. Xiaowu looked puzzled. Qilin didn't explain either. Even if he said it now, Xiaowu wouldn't understand with her brain. Isn't that a waste of words? There weren't many people in the new dorm, only 8 including Qilin and Xiaowu, which was fewer than in 7 dorm. At this time, everyone else in the dorm was playing wildly outside. After all, they were just 6-year-old children, so it was normal for them to be active and playful. But just then, the dorm door was suddenly pushed open from the outside, and 2 people, one large and one small, appeared in the dorm. It was Master Yu Xiaogang and Tang San. Both of them had their own thoughts. Tang San wanted to challenge Xiaowu again and let her see his true strength. Yu Xiaogang, on the other hand, wanted to use Tang San to show Qilin his capabilities. To let him know what the true cultivation direction of blue silver grass was. Although Qilin's martial soul was a mutated blue silver grass, Yu Xiaogang felt that despite all changes, the essence remained the same. Qilin could also add spirit rings in the direction of control and poison attributes, just like Tang San. Although he had already wasted a spirit ring, Yu Xiaogang believed that as long as he started following his plan from now on, it wasn't too late. And Xiaowu, seeing Tang San, said cheerfully, little Sanzi, it's you. Why are you here? Did you get your first spirit ring and think you can beat Sister Xiaowu now? Looking at the cheerful Xiaowu in front of him, Tang San felt his mood had improved greatly and couldn't help but smile slightly. Xiaowu, I forgot to tell you, after absorbing the spirit ring, I am now also level 13. So if we fight again, I might not be your opponent. Hearing this, Xiaowu's little face immediately showed an eager expression. There was no one else in Nine Academy who could fight. If Tang San was willing to be the punching bag, she was naturally happy to accompany him. We can't fight in the dorm, let's change places. Okay. Seeing that Tang San was going to challenge Xiaowu again, Qilin also grabbed a bag of snacks and followed. Yu Xiaogang walked at the back, looking at Qilin's back. As the corners of his mouth curved sinisterly, a sharp light gleamed in his eyes. The 4 of them quickly arrived at an empty lawn behind the academy. Xiaowu and Tang San even got ready beforehand, with a distance of over 10 meters between them. Before coming, Yu Xiaogang had already done an analysis for Tang San. Xiaowu's martial soul was a rabbit. Beast martial souls were naturally stronger than plant martial souls in terms of physique. Therefore, what Tang San needed to do was leverage his strengths and avoid his weaknesses, using blue silver grass to harass Xiaowu from a distance. Because he had lost once, Tang San didn't dare to underestimate Xiaowu in the slightest and directly used his first spirit ability by surprise. Blue silver entangle. In an instant, more than 10 blue silver grass vines shot towards Xiaowu under his control. Watching the two fight, Yu Xiaogang walked up to Qilin with a confident smile on his face and started talking. I heard Tang San mention you. Your name is Qilin, right? Qilin looked at Yu Xiaogang with slight confusion but still nodded politely in response. That's right, I am Qilin. What's wrong? Yu Xiaogang smiled slightly and continued. Tang San said your martial soul is a mutated blue silver grass. Qilin continued to nod. I heard you also have innate full spirit power. That's right. Hearing Qilin's answer, a wise look appeared on Yu Xiaogang's face, and he immediately brought up the rhetoric he had used with Tang San. The last sentence was astonishing. If I'm not mistaken, you should have twin martial souls, right? Looking at Yu Xiaogang's radiant and confident smile, and his data analysis that was precise down to the single digit, it sounded as if it were true. At the same time, within Qilin's sea of consciousness, a chubby silkworm baby opened its mouth and said, Xiao Qilin, how does this ugly monster manage to speak nonsense with such a confident look on his face? Ugly monster. Qilin gave Yu Xiaogang a strange look. Calling him ugly wasn't really accurate, he could only be described as ordinary. Seeing that Qilin didn't speak, Yu Xiaobing couldn't help but smile confidently. It seems I guessed correctly. Hearing this, the corner of Qilin's mouth twitched slightly. Then he made a gesture like a little bear shrugging. I'm afraid I'll disappoint you. I only have one martial soul, at least for now. Hearing this, Yu Xiaobing shook his head and smiled, looking at Qilin with approval. Not bad, you are very vigilant, but your worries are unnecessary. I won't harm you. On the contrary, I hope to teach you, become your teacher, and be your guide on the path of a soul master. Yu Xiaobing's voice was strong and powerful. Do you see, he is my first disciple, Tang San. He suddenly reached out and pointed at Tang San, with an arrogant expression. Look, although Tang San's martial soul is also the waste martial soul blue silver grass, under my guidance, he absorbed a 400-year-old mandala snake as his first spirit ring. After absorbing the mandala snake spirit ring, Tang San's blue silver grass not only gained the ability to entangle in the poison of the mandala snake, but its toughness was even stronger than ordinary blue silver grass. This also happens to prove my theory. Plant-type soul masters don't necessarily have to absorb plant-type spirit beasts. As soon as he finished speaking, the voice of Tianmeng I Silkworm immediately echoed frantically in Qilin's sea of consciousness. Xiao Qilin, don't be fooled by this ugly monster. The reason why the blue silver grass of that person named Tang San is tougher than ordinary blue silver grass is because his blue silver grass is not ordinary blue silver grass at all. This ugly monster is really stupid and bad. He actually made a blue silver grass, which is primarily life attribute, attach a poison attribute spirit ring. Tianmeng I Silkworm, you can say it's weak. But you really can't say it's short-sighted. Chapter 22 The Master Who Was Slapped in the Face. Chapter 22 The Master Gets Slapped in the Face. After hearing the words of the Tianmeng I Silkworm, Qilin's expression towards Yu Xiaobing became even more bizarre. So blue silver grass really can't go down the poison attribute path. Thinking about it carefully, it seems that's the case. The martial souls of the Douluo continent follow the path of evolution. Even if you start with just an ordinary martial soul, as your soul power level increases and you absorb soul rings one by one, you can evolve your martial soul to a certain extent. However, as one of the lowest level plant martial souls, if the ordinary blue silver grass martial soul really took the poison attribute route, it would likely be completely waste before the martial soul could even evolve. The main reason Tang San was fine in the original work was because his martial soul was not ordinary blue silver grass at all, but blue silver emperor. Although blue silver emperor is not as good as the six-winged angel martial soul, it is definitely not worse than the Hoshin hammer. No. It should be stronger. Because blue silver emperor is unique. Although Tang San's martial soul did not undergo a second awakening in the early stages, it definitely reached the level of blue silver king and could be called a first-class martial soul. However, with such a martial soul in Tang San's hands, there wasn't much particularly powerful expressive force. The reason Tang San was able to fight above his level repeatedly was mostly related to his Tangsect unique skills and hidden weapons. So, adding poison to blue silver grass, isn't this purely a death trap? Perfectly highlighting weaknesses and avoiding strengths. Otherwise, relying on the strong vitality of the blue silver emperor martial soul in Tang San's protagonist Halo, Qilin felt that he might not be unable to inherit the divine position of the god of life. Of course, this is all Qilin's speculation. Lightly coughing, Qilin said with a smile, Master, you already have such an excellent disciple as Tang San, so I'll pass. What's more, I truly don't have twin martial souls. Seeing this, Yu Xiaobing's brows furrowed imperceptibly. This child, why is he so stubborn? However, in order not to let Qilin, the third twin martial soul in 100 years, be overlooked, Yu Xiaobing continued persistently. Don't listen to rumors, although there are many misunderstandings about me from outsiders, you can rest assured. Although my soul power level is only 29th level, I am definitely not a mediocre master. I am also confident that I can teach you well. Yu Xiaobing thought that the reason Qilin was unwilling to become his disciple was because he had heard other people's evaluations of him. After all, Yu Xiaobing knew exactly what his own reputation was like. However, Qilin shook his head and made a small bear shrugging gesture. Master, I don't want to comment on how others evaluate you, and I'm too lazy to comment. I only have one question. If one day my soul power breaks through to the 30th level, what will you teach me then? I'm already level 15 now, you know. Qilin's words were like a steel knife, fiercely stabbing into the master's chest. Damn it, what's wrong with being level 29? Although he didn't have absolute strength, he had astonishing wisdom. Do you understand the value of the words, master? Finally, Yu Xiaobing pretended to be profound and turned around, leaving only a desolate back view for Qilin. Alright, you will change your mind one day. Because only I am worthy of being your teacher. After speaking, Yu Xiaobing left with his hands behind his back. Qilin was slightly stunned. Hey, master. Aren't you going to continue watching Tang San and Xiao Wu's duel? Yu Xiaobing stopped, turned his back to Qilin, and said lightly, I know the result without even looking. Tang San will definitely win. Because at the same level, control-type soul masters are almost invincible. Unless the gap between their martial souls is too great, but I know Xiao Wu's martial soul is just a soft bone rabbit, she is bound to lose. After saying that, Yu Xiaobing walked further away without looking back. Qilin raised his eyebrows, is that really the case? He looked at the battlefield of the two, and saw that Tang San looked quite disheveled and was trying to distance himself from Xiao Wu. If he hadn't been using Ghost Shadow Path under his feet, he would have been caught up long ago. He saw him pulling away while using blue silver grass to restrict Xiao Wu's movements and look for opportunities to attack, occasionally even using stones to sneak attack. If it were the original work, Xiao Wu would most likely have lost. But now it's different. After being buffed by Qilin's soul skills for more than 2 months, her physical fitness is much stronger than Tang San's. What blue silver grass? It breaks with a pull. Finally, she seemed to be tired of playing and directly used her first soul skill. Waist bow. Waist strength increased by 100%, toughness increased by 50%. The next second, Xiao Wu's speed suddenly soared, shooting out like a sharp arrow. Tang San's purple demon eyes were almost smoking from trying to see clearly, and he could only barely make out Xiao Wu's movements. Moreover, being able to see it and being able to react in time are two different things. You lost again. Xiao Wu appeared behind Tang San and kicked out. Bang. Tang San immediately lost his balance and fell forward several meters, eating dirt. Seeing this, Qilin saw that Yu Xiaobing hadn't gone far yet, and immediately cupped his hands like a trumpet and shouted loudly. Master, look quickly, Xiao Wu won. Yu Xiaobing, who hadn't gone far, heard these words, his body staggered abruptly, the corner of his mouth twitched, and an expression of confusion appeared on his face. Tang San actually lost. How is this possible? It seems that it is still because the upper limit of blue silver grass is too low. If the poison attached to the blue silver grass can be further strengthened, perhaps this situation can be changed. Shaking his head, Yu Xiaobing quickened his pace of leaving. Getting slapped in the face right after saying something, who wouldn't be awkward about that? Looking at Yu Xiaogang, who was gradually disappearing, Qilin shrugged. And in his sea of consciousness space, the Tianmeng ice silkworm was curled up laughing. Ha 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 ha, I'm dying of laughter. That ugly monster's expression just now must have been great, it's a pity I didn't see it. On the other side, Tang San climbed up from the ground, covered in dust, but his bones were not injured. Losing to Xiao Wu again, and even after using his Tang Sect unique skills, this dealt a heavy blow to Tang San's heart. However, looking at Xiao Wu, Tang San still forced a smile. Xiao Wu, you won. I didn't expect that even after absorbing a soul ring, I would still not be your opponent. Xiao Wu proudly raised her fair and tender chin and snorted softly. Of course, I am the big sister of the entire Nine Academy, how could I lose to you? However, your strength is not bad either. Xiao Wu's straightforward words made Tang San's eyes light up and his heart beat slightly faster. But then he saw Xiao Wu with a bright face, skipping and running to Qilin's side, looking like she was showing off. Xiaolin Jie, am I amazing? Amazing. Qilin gave a thumbs up. Tang San watched the scene from a distance, the corner of his mouth twitching. But soon, his gaze became firm, and he shook his head slightly in the direction of Qilin. Although deep down he was secretly a little envious of Xiao Wu's attitude towards Qilin, he thought about it again. This guy Qilin is indulging in a gentle embrace at such a young age, unaware that he is wasting his original talent. And himself. Not only does he have twin martial souls, but he also cultivates diligently and is taught by a famous master like the master. With these three combined, over time, he will definitely leave Qilin far behind. They will ultimately be people from two different worlds. He thought that by then, Xiao Wu would also look at him with new eyes. Chapter 23, Notting College is on holiday, Tang San is autistic. Chapter 23, Notting Academy holiday, Tang San's self-isolation. Time flies. In the blink of an eye, Qilin and Xiao Wu had already spent a year at Notting Academy. Qilin swore to the heavens, he didn't even cultivate much. But his soul power was soaring. Just 3 months ago, he had already reached level 20, he just hadn't gone to obtain a soul ring yet. Let alone Qilin, even Xiao Wu was already level 19. As for Tang San, he was almost driven to self-isolation by the cultivation speed of the two. In 1 year, he challenged Xiao Wu 3 times, and was beaten up badly every time. Cultivating with all his might, he only managed to cultivate to level 17. In the dormitory, as the roommates said goodbye and left one by one, soon only Qilin and Xiao Wu remained. At this moment, the two were sitting in front of a game console, each holding a game controller and busy. As the sound of K, oh, came from the game console, Xiao Wu yelled a few times, and said angrily, Xiaolin Jie, I told you to let me a little. Qilin stretched lazily and replied lazily, I haven't let you. I've let you have half of your health bar, okay. If you're bad, practice more. If you can't play, don't play. After hearing this, Xiao Wu pouted angrily. HMPH, I'm ignoring you. Qilin spread his hands. That's fine, I'll play against the AI by myself. You've been playing for several months, and you're still not as fierce as the beginner AI. Ah, Xiaolin Jie, you're so annoying. I'm really not ignoring you. Alright, I'll buy you whatever you want on the way back later, are you happy now? Qilin said casually. Really? Hearing this, Xiao Wu's bright eyes immediately lit up. Because she had a personality that couldn't keep money, she spent lavishly, and every time she received her subsidy from Spirit Hall, she would spend it all within 2 days. It was precisely for this reason that she was so envious of Qilin. He never lacked money to spend, always got discounts when buying things, or always met acquaintances who would treat him. However, Xiao Wu was not very happy, because most of the acquaintances who treated him were girls. Of course, if Xiaolin Jie used the pocket money those girls gave him on her, then she couldn't say no. Qilin rolled his eyes at her and said casually, if you don't believe it, then forget it. Hey, I was just joking with you. Just as the two were fooling around, the dormitory door suddenly opened. The person who came was Tang San. Little Sanzi, why are you here? Xiao Wu looked at Tang San who suddenly burst in, and said loudly. Qilin also looked over curiously. He hadn't talked to Tang San much this semester, but he didn't have any ill feelings towards him either. He was just a normal classmate. Tang San looked much better than when he first arrived. When he first came, his skin was slightly sallow and his body was very thin. But now, after his diet improved, his body and face visibly filled out. Looking at Tang San in front of him, Qilin couldn't help but feel sad for him having such an unreliable father as Tang Hao. Look how hungry he had made the child before. At this moment, Tang San also spoke, with a faint smile on his face. Xiao Wu, I don't have many friends. This holiday, I'd like to invite you and Qilin to my house as guests. What do you think? Tang San looked at Xiao Wu with a hint of expectation. He was very smart and knew that if he only invited Xiao Wu, the latter would never agree to him. So he simply invited Qilin as well. After hearing Tang San's words, Xiao Wu couldn't help but look at Qilin. Xiaolin Jie, what do you think? Qilin thought for a moment and finally agreed. Mainly, he was very curious about the legendary old Jack, so he wanted to go and see. As soon as Tang San heard this, a look of joy immediately appeared on his face. Where are your luggage? I have a soul guidance device here, I can help you pack them. Tang San said, pointing to the 24 Bridges Moonlight Knight on his waist. Qilin smiled slightly and also pointed to the bracelet on his wrist. No need, I also have a soul guidance device. Tang San was slightly stunned and subconsciously said, you actually have a soul guidance device too. Qilin spread his hands, a kind older sister gave it to me on the first day of school. The first day of school. Tang San thought back carefully and immediately remembered. When Qilin first entered 7th dorm, he didn't have this silver bracelet on his hand. But when he came back at night, he had it. At that time, he thought this bracelet was just an ordinary decoration. He didn't expect. Finally, Tang San could only say, then you were really lucky, soul guidance devices are very expensive. Qilin, it is indeed expensive, the prices of many soul guidance devices are inflated. Fortunately, he can now manufacture soul guidance devices himself. Qilin felt it wasn't too difficult, self-learning was quite easy. Walking out of the academy gate, the previous security guard was fired on the 3rd day of Nine Academy's opening because someone complained about him. The new security guard is a 17 or 18-year-old young man who looks quite simple and honest. Qilin had a good relationship with him and said hello before leaving. At the entrance of the academy, a carriage was quietly parked not far away. Tang San was well prepared and had already rented a carriage in advance. On the way, Xiao Wu was chattering non-stop, while Tang San was unusually silent. Seeing this, Qilin simply pulled him into the conversation and discussed with him. Although Yu Xiaobing's theories were unreliable and borrowed heavily from the collections in the Spirit Hall library. In fact, besides the dross, there were also many essences. And as Yu Xiaobing's disciple, Tang San had learned a lot about soul masters and soul beasts in the past year. Anyway, they could chat. Even, Tang San became more and more excited as they chatted, and his face gradually became confident and showed off. Unfortunately, he was quickly defeated by a single sentence from Xiao Wu. Little Sanzi, your soul master level is so low, it must be because you wasted your time learning this knowledge, right? Xiao Wu's words were like a knife, piercing Tang San's chest again. Pain, it was too painful. Thinking of Qilin and Xiao Wu's daily life, Tang San wanted to argue that his cultivation time was much longer than you two slackers. But when he thought of his soul power level, his heart immediately began to doubt itself. Everyone has innate full soul power, why are your cultivation speeds so fast? Could it be? Is blue silver grass really that useless? But Qilin's martial soul is also a mutated blue silver grass. Seeing Tang San falling into self-doubt, Xiao Wu smiled proudly. Let you show off, see if you still show off now. After that, it took a long time for Tang San to recover. Seeing this, Qilin scratched his head. Alright, this has nothing to do with him. His original intention was just to not let Tang San watch him and Xiao Wu chat all the time, which was quite awkward. Who knew that as soon as Tang San started talking about the theoretical knowledge he was good at, he began to show off. They say that beauty is a cause of disaster. Qilin guessed that Tang San probably wanted to show off in front of Xiao Wu, but it backfired. Of course, Qilin didn't mean that Tang San was so dangerous, that he was already interested in Xiao Wu from now on. After all, Xiao Wu was just a little girl now, lacking everything. However, Tang San was a silent otaku in his previous life, and such otaku generally have no resistance to lively and cheerful girls. If he had received a different education from a young age, Qilin felt that Tang San might not have become a two-dimensional person. His personality in the original work is inseparable from Master, Tang Hao, and even the environment of the Slaughter City. It can only be said that education and environment are very important. What a pity. Chapter 24, First Meeting with Old Jack, Tang Hao disappears and becomes murderous. Chapter 24, First Meeting with Old Jack, Tang Hao's disappearance and the rise of killing intent. Soon, the carriage arrived at Saint Soul Village. After getting off the carriage, Tang San took Qilin and Xiao Wu towards his home. Along the way, they encountered many villagers from Saint Soul Village. At this time, the villagers were still busy with farm work. Seeing Tang San return with two unfamiliar children, a hint of surprise flashed in their eyes. Tang Hao had been missing for over a year, so they thought Tang San wouldn't be coming back either. However, seeing Tang San return, they still greeted him warmly. Only, their faces revealed an expression of wanting to speak but hesitating. Tang San didn't notice this and also smiled, nodding in acknowledgement. When he was young, because all the money at home was taken by his father, Tang Hao, to buy alcohol, he basically lived a life of not knowing where the next meal would come from after finishing the last one. Fortunately, the villagers in the village, for the sake of old Jack, would occasionally help him out a little, otherwise, it wouldn't have been just simple malnutrition. After all, cultivating Tang Sek's unique skills and mysterious heaven skill was extremely physically demanding for him at a young age. Without sufficient food to replenish his energy, how could he continue practicing? Upon reaching the village entrance, Tang San pointed to the dilapidated sign in the distance and said with a smile, "That's my home." As he spoke, a hint of doubt flashed in his eyes. Because he found that his house was overgrown with weeds, looking as if it had been abandoned for a long time. At this moment, Xiao Wu also looked in the direction Tang San was pointing. Upon seeing the dilapidated house, although there was no expression of disdain in her eyes, she still complained, "Little Sanzi, isn't your father a blacksmith? How could he be doing so poorly?" Although most of the true divine weapons in Douluo Continent were top-tier tool spirit masters. In some small villages, blacksmiths could still forge various kitchen utensils and farm tools, so they were still quite popular. For example, blacksmith Lin in Radish Village, although his family was not a wealthy one, they had enough to eat and drink, and their house was among the best in Radish Village. Tang San's mouth twitched slightly upon hearing this. How was he supposed to respond? He couldn't possibly say that his father was an alcoholic who spent all the money earned from blacksmithing on alcohol, could he? Qilin, however, didn't feel any surprise. He patted Xiao Wu and said with a smile, "All right, Xiao Wu, let's go in first." As soon as the door was opened, a cloud of dust billowed out from inside. Cough cough. What's going on? Xiao Wu coughed a couple of times, choked by the dust. She raised her hand to fan it away and then backed out. As she retreated, she didn't forget to pull Qilin with her. Tang San also frowned. The room was messy, with wine bottles scattered everywhere. Coupled with the dust filling the air, Tang San judged that this room had not been inhabited for at least 6 months. No wonder the outside was already overgrown with weeds. But where could father have gone? Just then, a kind voice suddenly sounded from a distance. "Xiao-san, is that you back?" The person who arrived looked a bit short, his hair had completely turned white, his smile was kind and gentle, and he was leaning on a walking stick. This person's identity was obvious, it was the village chief of Saint Soul Village, Old Jack. "Grandfather village chief. Do you know where my dad went?" Tang San looked at Old Jack with surprise, then immediately asked about Tang Hao's whereabouts. Old Jack shook his head and said, "Xiao-san, I'm very sorry. I don't know where that guy Tang Hao went. He disappeared the day 9 Academy started. Because I was worried about affecting your studies, I didn't write to tell you." Upon hearing Old Jack's words, Tang San's face turned pale. In this life and the previous one, he finally had a father, but unexpectedly he had mysteriously disappeared. Missing for a year, he was probably already dead. Damn it. In the blink of an eye, Tang San's eyes turned red, he was panting heavily, and the killing intent emanating from his eyes was bone-chillingly cold. This display immediately surprised Xiao Wu and Qilin, who were standing beside him. This was the first time the two of them had seen Tang San show such an expression. At this moment, Tang San stared intently at Old Jack and said in a deep voice, "Grandfather village chief, please tell me, who has had a grudge against my dad over the years?" He wanted revenge. Since his dad's life and death were currently unknown, he would capture everyone who had a grudge against his dad and interrogate them one by one. He didn't believe he couldn't find out something. Old Jack looked at Tang San in front of him and felt that this child, whom he had watched grow up, was completely unfamiliar. However, it was understandable that he was worried about his dad. So Old Jack earnestly advised, "Xiao-san, I know you're worried about your dad. But you're still young, and this is not something you can handle right now. Although Tang Hao is not a qualified father, he is still a member of our Saint Soul Village. I will help you inquire about his whereabouts." Once I have news of him, whether he is alive or dead, Grandfather Village Chief will tell you. Upon hearing this, Tang San took a deep breath. Grandfather Village Chief, I'll listen to you. As he spoke, the expression on his face seemed to return to normal. However, in his heart, he scoffed at old Jack's words. Old Jack had been investigating for a year without finding any trace, so it was better for him to act himself. Tang Sek had plenty of methods for torture and interrogation. On the other hand, old Jack didn't know what Tang San was thinking. Seeing him say this, a happy expression immediately appeared on his face. That's good. After old Jack finished speaking, he looked at Qilin and Xiao Wu who were standing nearby. Are you Xiao San's friends? Seeing Xiao San able to make friends at the academy, I'm really happy for him. Old Jack said sincerely. Although Tang San was sensible before, he was too withdrawn and taciturn, never playing with his peers. Qilin smiled at old Jack. In his previous life, many people speculated about old Jack's identity. Some said he was a god king, some said he was a titled Douluo, making him out to be very mysterious. However, in Qilin's opinion, old Jack was just an ordinary kind old man, similar in temperament to village chief Crow of Radish Village. He was the truly respected elder. Hello, old grandfather, my name is Qilin, and her name is Xiao Wu. We are both Tang San's classmates. Qilin said politely. Xiao Wu also said in a clear voice from the side. Hello, old grandfather. Haha, hello to you too. Old Jack said with a smile. He liked lively and cheerful personalities like Xiao Wu's. Alright, children. Xiao San's house here has been abandoned for too long. You should all come and stay at my place. Luckily, I have enough empty rooms at home. Old Jack enthusiastically invited the three of them. Xiao Wu's eyes lit up. She exchanged glances with Qilin and both looked at Tang San. After all, they were invited by Tang San, so they definitely had to consider Tang San's opinion. Tang San looked at the house that had been abandoned for a year. After noticing Qilin and Xiao Wu's gazes, he calmly nodded. Old Jack was very happy to see this. It seemed Xiao San had really changed a lot. Meanwhile, a sharp glint flashed in Tang San's eyes. He was currently thinking about who in the village was most likely to have a grudge against his father. With his astonishing wisdom, Tang San quickly locked onto a target. That was Duke, who sold alcohol in the village. Father often went to Duke's shop to buy alcohol and had accumulated many debts. Because of this, Duke had come to collect debts multiple times and had even been beaten by Father a few times. Duke was highly suspicious. Therefore, Tang San planned to sneak into Duke's house tonight, capture him, and interrogate him thoroughly. If he was the murderer, Tang San would never let him go. Chapter 25. This cheat shouldn't get your account banned, right? Chapter 25. With this kind of cheat, I probably won't get banned, right? In the evening, old Jack killed a chicken and a goose, planning to warmly entertain Qilin and the other two. His son and daughter-in-law were running a small business in Noding City, so his house was empty. Now that he had 3 more children, he seemed very happy. Qilin even actively helped out. He had quite a bit of experience with cooking. Especially with flashy things like knife skills, Qilin liked to study them the most, so it gave people a feeling of being very impressive. Old Jack praised him constantly, and he was always smiling while cooking with Qilin. After dinner, old Jack specially prepared 3 rooms for the 3 of them and put on new bedding. As night fell, Qilin was lying in bed, spacing out. Suddenly, the door to his room was quietly pushed open. A small head peeked in. As expected, it was Xiao Wu, the 100,000-year-old rogue rabbit. Why aren't you sleeping properly? What are you doing running here? Qilin rolled his eyes at Xiao Wu. Hee, I couldn't sleep. Saying that, Xiao Wu skillfully climbed onto the bed, sat cross-legged on the bed, and quietly gossiped with Qilin. Shaolin Jie, don't you feel like Tang Sanzi was a bit strange today? Qilin rolled his eyes at her and said, isn't that obvious? His dad is missing, of course he's anxious. Just after he finished speaking, Xiao Wu raised her hand and tapped her fair chin. After thinking for a while, she said, but when I saw his expression earlier, it felt a bit off. Qilin flicked Xiao Wu's smooth forehead, then said, alright, stop guessing wildly. You're usually so clumsy, but today you're acting like a detective. The reason Qilin was too lazy to bother with Tang San's matters was mainly because he knew that Tang Hao was probably secretly watching Tang San during this time. Tang Hao couldn't possibly just watch Tang San mess around, could he? He just didn't know if he had discovered Xiao Wu's identity. Of course, even if he did, it didn't matter. As long as Xiao Wu stayed by his side, nothing would happen. However, what Qilin didn't expect was that Tang Hao had already disappeared when Nine Academy started. This made him think of Bibi Dong, whom he had met on the streets of Noding City before. The high probability was that she came to Noding City because of Tang Hao. However, since Tang San was still alive and kicking, combined with the latter state when he saw Bibi Dong a year ago, then it was highly likely that Master had saved Tang San. Seeing this, Xiao Wu was also too lazy to bother with Tang San and immediately started chatting about other topics with Qilin. After chatting for a while, she suddenly asked curiously, Shaolin Jie, aren't you already level 20? Aren't you going to absorb a soul ring? Qilin replied without thinking, isn't it because I'm lazy? After I go home, I'll find some time to go to hunt Soul Forest. As for what soul beast to hunt, I'll figure it out then. Xiao Wu snorted lightly upon hearing this. Shaolin Jie, you're not even active in cultivating, you're much lazier than me. So from now on, you're not allowed to say I'm lazy anymore. In fact, in his sea of consciousness, Tianmeng was also urging him quite a bit. Although Qilin's heaven-defying cultivation speed indeed shocked Tianmeng Ice Silkworm, Qilin was too passive about cultivation. He didn't take it seriously at all. Unlike other soul masters, who wish they could cultivate 24 hours a day. To get Qilin to absorb a soul ring, Tianmeng had even changed his address to Little Ancestor. But Qilin always just smiled and replied to Tianmeng Ice Silkworm. Tianmeng Jie, I know you're anxious, but please don't be anxious yet. Anyway, even if I don't absorb a soul ring, my soul power is always stored, it won't be wasted. As for the soul ring, maybe it will condense by itself one day. Naturally, Tianmeng Ice Silkworm wouldn't believe this. Condense by itself. Do you think you're a transformed soul beast? Qilin waved his hand at Xiao Wu, saying somewhat perfunctorily, alright, from now on, we won't talk about each other's shortcomings, okay? Xiao Wu raised her chin slightly and said, that's more like it. Alright, it's already so late, hurry back to sleep. HMPH, I won't. ... Just after falling asleep, Qilin felt as if he had a very long dream. He saw a vast world filled with steaming clouds and mist, distant immortal mountains, purple energy coming from the east, and golden light filling the sky. And at the end of his sight, a huge golden lotus, emitting an auspicious aura that made his mind feel comfortable, slowly bloomed. Every time a lotus petal bloomed, Qilin felt the illusion that the entire world was shaking, and he heard sounds he didn't understand in his ears. As all 12 lotus petals bloomed, golden light shot out in all directions. One ray shot into Qilin's glabella, and then he felt as if his consciousness was being pulled out wildly by a powerful suction force. It felt like crossing worlds and crossing time, making him experience a dizzying, centrifugal adventure. The next second, Qilin suddenly sat up from the bed, gasping for air, and his pajamas were soaked with cold sweat. But his eyes were extremely bright, and there was a thrilling sense of exhilaration. Xiaolin Jie, why are you up? Is it morning? Xiaowu sat up groggily, rubbing her eyes, her small face filled with confusion. It's not morning yet, keep sleeping. After saying that, Qilin reached out and pressed down on Xiaowu's head. Bang. Her head tilted back, and soon the sound of light snoring could be heard again. As for Qilin, he had lost his sleepiness. He scratched his head, feeling confused, and carefully recalled the dream he had just had. But strangely, he found that he couldn't remember the scenes he had seen in the dream. It was as if something had been pixelated, extremely blurry. However, all he knew was that his second soul ring seemed to have condensed by itself. He didn't know the age, but it was a brilliant golden color. As for the soul skill, there was only one soul skill, and it was a passive soul skill. The name of the soul skill was Divine Protection. The effect was also very simple, which was that every time an attack landed on him, a judgment would be made, regardless of any realm gap. If there was no malice, the attack damage would be reduced by 30%. If there was any malice, the attack would be reduced by 70%, and 50% of the damage would be reflected. If there was killing intent, the attack would be reduced by 99%, and all damage would be reflected. Ah, this. Qilin really wanted to say, with this blatant cheat, he probably wouldn't get banned, right? Forget it, I won't think about it. Just as Qilin was about to continue sleeping, he suddenly heard a very quiet sound coming from outside the house, which made him subconsciously frown. Just now, he heard the sound of a door closing, someone had gone out. Looking at the direction the sound came from, it was Tang San. At this time of night, what was he going out for? Qilin wanted to go out and investigate, but on second thought, what did Tang San do that concerned him? With Tang Hao watching, could he possibly turn the world upside down? Never mind, sleep. Chapter 26, The Broad-Minded Hoshin Douluo and the Blind-Sighted Villagers of Shenghan Village. Chapter 26, The Broad-Minded Hoshin Douluo, the Blind Villagers of Saint Soul Village. On the other side. After gently closing the door, Tang San was as light as a swallow and quickly snuck into a room. Looking at the sleeping Duke and his wife on the bed, a cold light flashed in Tang San's eyes. The next second, he first tapped the couple, making them sleep even more soundly. Then, with a wave of his hand, 3 blue silver grass immediately shot out from his palm, firmly binding the sleeping Duke before taking him to a patch of woods. In a place unseen behind him, a tall figure frowned slightly. Moonlight shone on him, and this person was none other than Tang Hao. However, at this moment, Tang Hao's eyes were tightly shut, his eyelids scabbed over, clearly having become blind. In this year, it wasn't that he hadn't sought help from a healing soul master. Unfortunately, the poison within Bibi Dong's martial soul was too terrifying. Even if he threatened a healing-type soul Douluo to treat him, it was ultimately useless. In the end, he could only accept the fact of his blindness and return to Noting City. Initially, he almost thought this son was finished, but fortunately, Master had some connection with Bibi Dong, which barely saved his life. Although Bibi Dong indeed didn't come to trouble Tang San afterward, after experiencing this incident, Tang Hao still decided to secretly protect Tang San until he fully grew up. Facts prove that Tang San was indeed his Tang Hao's son, possessing innate cultivation talent. In just 1 year, he cultivated the blue-silver grass martial soul to level 17. Although he couldn't compare to his classmates Xiaowu and Qilin. Especially that kid named Qilin, his talent was simply too terrifying. Although it was a mutated blue-silver grass martial soul, his cultivation speed was ridiculously fast. If he weren't an auxiliary soul master, Tang Hao would definitely have attacked and killed him without hesitation. After all, having Tang San, one peerless genius, in this world is enough. But if he's an auxiliary soul master, then it might be appropriate to focus on recruiting him. As for Xiaowu, although her martial soul is merely a soft-bone rabbit, her talent is astonishing. In the future, he could use some means to bring her and Tang San together. She's just a woman, after all, she'll eventually marry. Could it be that Tang San, possessing the twin martial souls of blue silver grass and Hoshin hammer, and even innate full soul power, is still not worthy of her? The above was Tang Hao's plan for Tang San's future. Before today, Tang Hao had always been very satisfied with Tang San. Until he noticed Tang San secretly sneaking into Duke's house and tying him up. Although Tang Hao was blind, his ears weren't deaf. With the 5 senses and spiritual power of a title Douluo, besides not being able to see, Tang Hao could perceive everything Tang San did, every single action. When he noticed Tang San tying Duke to a tree and preparing to take the next step, Tang Hao finally appeared from behind Tang San. Tang San. Suddenly hearing this familiar voice, Tang San's eyes widened, thinking he was hallucinating. But when the voice sounded again, Tang San finally stopped doubting and turned around. Indeed, with one glance, he saw his long-lost father, Tang Hao. Dad. Tang San called out excitedly, but the next second he immediately saw Tang Hao's eyes that had already scabbed over. Dad, your eyes. Tang San was first greatly startled, then the expression on his face turned furious at a speed visible to the naked eye, his eyes were bloodshot, and he was breathing heavily. Who turned your eyes into this state? Tang Hao's expression was extremely calm, saying, Tang San, I know you have a lot you want to say to me, but there are some things you cannot know right now. Right now, your only task is to follow Master and cultivate properly, do you understand? Looking at his father's serious and hopeful expression, Tang San nodded heavily. I understand, Dad. Hearing this, Tang Hao laughed heartily. Good, this is my Tang Hao's son. Afterward, the father and son chatted briefly, and only then did Tang Hao ask Tang San the reason for kidnapping Duke. After hearing the cause and effect, Tang Hao looked at Duke and smiled disdainfully, his face full of domineering aura. Duke is just an ordinary person, is he worthy of killing me? If I hadn't bothered with him back then, I would have probably killed him 1,000 times over when he was causing trouble. After listening, Tang San's face was full of admiration. As expected of Dad, even when offended by an ordinary person like Duke, he wouldn't use his power to oppress others. Hearing this, Tang Hao snorted lightly and smiled faintly. Duke is just a stingy person, I merely drank a few bottles of his wine, why be so calculative? If it were back then, even if someone like him gave me wine for free, I wouldn't touch a drop. After listening, Tang San smiled and said, these people are blind, if they knew Dad was a powerful soul master, how could they possibly look down on him? Although Tang Hao didn't say it, Tang San still guessed that his dad's identity wasn't simple and that he was very likely a powerful soul master. The reason he was hiding in a small village like Saint Soul Village was just to avoid being hunted by enemies. Tang Hao was very pleased by Tang San's flattery and said with a smile, "Alright, Tang San, let's stop chatting here for today. Hurry and send Duke back. Although this fellow is at fault, his crime isn't punishable by death." Tang San said with emotion, "As expected of Dad, you are truly broad-minded. If Duke knew about this, he would definitely be eternally grateful to Dad." Ha 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 ha. Tang Hao laughed heartily. "Duke, what the heck, so the one who owes money gets to be the boss. When I go to collect a debt, I become someone who doesn't know the times, someone who is blind." Fortunately, Duke had already fainted by now, otherwise, even if he didn't dare to say anything on the surface, he would be cursing inwardly. ... In a flash, it was the next day. "Ah. My little ancestor, when did you get your second soul ring? Did I sleep for a long time?" In Qilin's sea of consciousness, the Tianmeng silkworm spoke incoherently. As Qilin's wisdom soul ring, he could sense Qilin's second soul ring. But it was precisely because of this that he was so shocked. He clearly remembered that he had only taken a short nap, so how did Qilin already obtain his second soul ring? Moreover, how did this soul ring feel so golden? In response to Tianmeng's question, Qilin truthfully said, "I had a dream last night, and then this soul ring appeared on its own." Dream. The Tianmeng silkworm found a blind spot and quickly asked, "What kind of dream?" Qilin said, "I completely forgot the content of the dream after I woke up." Then Qilin told the Tianmeng silkworm about the effect of his second soul skill. His tilde. "My little ancestor, your soul skill is too abnormal." Suddenly, the Tianmeng silkworm's eyes lit up. What condensed in the dream could it be? A god-bestowed soul ring. Otherwise, how to explain the origin of the soul ring? Thinking again that Qilin came down from the god realm, everything made sense. It must be that Qilin has someone in the god realm, and seeing him not being serious, they secretly helped him out. Is this the advantage of having someone above? So cool. The Tianmeng silkworm really liked this feeling. Chapter 27 Tang Whitebeard 3, come be my brother or sister. Chapter 27, Tang Whitebeard San, come be my younger siblings. After Qilin got up, he saw that old Jack was also awake and was preparing breakfast for them. So he quickly washed up and went to help. After just a moment, as the aroma spread, Xiao Wu, who was still fast asleep, twitched her delicate nose slightly and sat up abruptly. The next second, her bright, watery eyes snapped open, she jumped out of bed, put on her slippers, and padded quickly in the direction of the aroma. As soon as she entered the kitchen door, she saw the busy Qilin and old Jack. An embarrassed expression immediately appeared on her face, then she washed her hands and said with a giggle, "Xiaolin Jie, I'll help too." Qilin rolled his eyes and said, "You woke up just as it's almost done. You'll wash the dishes after we eat. Can you do it?" Xiao Wu brought her legs together and said loudly, "Guaranteed to complete the mission." Old Jack, seeing this scene from the side, couldn't help but chuckle. Being young is truly wonderful. At this moment, Tang San also walked in from outside the door. He had woken up even earlier than Qilin, having gone to the roof to cultivate his purple demon eyes. Because he knew his father wasn't dead, he had been smiling all along, and his state was visibly much better. Seeing Qilin and Xiao Wu, he even smiled and greeted them. "Xiao Wu, Qilin, good morning." Of course, this was also related to his father's instructions before leaving that he should build a good relationship with the two. Especially Qilin. Because his role was that of an auxiliary soul master, he would be of great help to Tang San in the future. "Good morning to you too," Qilin replied with a smile. He saw the change in Tang San's mindset and immediately guessed that it was likely related to Tang San secretly going out last night. Most likely, he had met Tang Hao. Xiao Wu, on the other hand, directly asked out of curiosity. "Little Sanzi, you're in a good mood today." Tang San smiled slightly and said, "I've also figured it out. Although my father's disappearance makes me sad, I must cheer up, mustn't I?" Xiao Wu didn't know what had happened, but she still gave Tang San a big thumbs up. "Little Sanzi, you're right. I didn't expect your heart to be so strong. It seems Sister Xiao Wu underestimated you before." When Xiao Wu praised him like this, the corners of Tang San's mouth instantly curled up wildly, yet he still tried hard to suppress it. ... In the blink of an eye, Qilin and Xiao Wu had been in Saint Soul Village for a week. Having had their fun, they were also preparing to bid farewell to Tang San and old Jack. Dusk, sunset. On a small hillside, large swaths of afterglow shone upon Qilin, Xiao Wu, and Tang San. "Little Sanzi, why did you call us here?" Qilin also turned his gaze towards him, with a slight curiosity. Tang San cleared his throat, looked into the distance, and the expression on his face became deep and melancholic. "Xiao Wu, Qilin, you know, since I was little, I haven't had many friends, only one relative, and that's my father. But now, my father's gone, and my home is gone too. Fortunately, I still have you two friends. I am very grateful. So..." Tang San turned around, spread his arms, and looked deeply at Xiao Wu and Qilin. "Xiao Wu, Qilin. Come be my younger siblings. I, Tang San, promise that I will treat you as my only family." As soon as these words were spoken, Xiao Wu's mouth immediately dropped open in surprise, her face full of disbelief. This was too sudden, wasn't it? How could little Sanzi say something so awkward? The corner of Qilin's mouth also twitched slightly. Wait, why did Tang San suddenly think of recognizing him as his younger brother? Their relationship shouldn't be that good. After all, they hadn't talked much in the past year. Qilin was very considerate of others' feelings. He said tactfully, "Tang San, you are a good person, and I also believe you will be a good older brother, but I don't think we are suitable. Putting other things aside, let's give Tang San a good person card first." Xiao Wu also nodded quickly and said, "I want to be Sister Xiao Wu, I won't be anyone else's younger sister." After speaking, as if afraid Tang San wouldn't believe her, she pulled on Qilin's sleeve again and added a sentence. "If you don't believe me, you can ask Xiaolin Jie. He can testify that I only want to be Sister Xiao Wu." As soon as these words came out, not only did Tang San's face darken, but even the corner of Qilin's mouth couldn't help but twitch. Slap. Qilin slapped his forehead speechlessly, looking at Xiao Wu as if caring for an idiot. "You're not rejecting Tang San, you're clearly stabbing him in the heart. It's estimated that he won't dare to mention this matter again." As expected, Tang San then said to Qilin and Xiao Wu with a forced smile, "Xiao Wu, Qilin, it seems I was too abrupt just now. It's just that my father's disappearance made me too eager to have family. It's okay, even though we're not family, we can still be friends, can't we?" Qilin cleared his throat and smiled, "Of course. Xiao Wu, whatever Xiaolin Jie says is what it is." Amidst this slightly awkward atmosphere, the carriage Qilin had asked old Jack to rent arrived as scheduled. Qilin and Xiao Wu left Saint Soul Village under the watchful eyes of Tang San and old Jack. It wasn't until the two of them had left that Tang San, who had been smiling all along, instantly turned cold, his hands clenched tightly. On the other side, in the carriage, Xiao Wu mumbled, what was little Sanzi thinking today, suddenly wanting to recognize us as younger siblings. Qilin smiled and said, maybe it's really as he said, because his father disappeared, so he longs for family. Of course, this was impossible. Because Qilin was certain that Tang San should have met Tang Hao, so it was impossible for him to have such thoughts. Therefore, his desire to recognize himself and Xiao Wu as younger siblings was most likely with ulterior motives. As for what kind of mindset Tang San held, Qilin was too lazy to guess. Xiao Wu mumbled, is that really the case? After thinking for a while, she stopped thinking about it and instead asked Qilin when he would acquire his second soul ring. Qilin had already reached level 22 or 3 months ago, so he definitely had to take time during this holiday to go to the Han Soul Forest. However, when Qilin heard Xiao Wu's question, he spread his hands. Soul ring. I already have one. What, Shaolin Jie, you have a second soul ring? Didn't you not have one a few days ago? Xiao Wu's mouth widened in surprise again, her face full of disbelief. Then she began to examine Qilin as if inspecting goods. She kept muttering in her heart, how is this possible? Could it be that Shaolin Jie is actually a transformed soul beast? Impossible, impossible, Shaolin Jie came out of An Shuqian's belly. How could he be a soul beast? But what's going on with his soul ring? While she was pondering, Qilin smiled and revealed his 2 soul rings. One was pure white, the other was brilliant gold. Looking at Qilin's second soul ring, Xiao Wu muttered again. Shaolin Jie, the light of your second soul ring is a bit dazzling. Chapter 28 The Third Soul Skill, 16 Creations. Chapter 28, Third Spirit Ability, 16 Creation. Time flew by, and the holiday was over in a flash. During the holiday, Xiao Wu also quickly broke through to level 20. With Qilin's prior experience, Xiao Wu directly took the time to condense her spirit ring. Then, she lied to Qilin, claiming that she, like him, had fallen asleep, and then her spirit ring had condensed on its own. However, the second spirit ring she condensed herself was not as dazzling and eye-catching as Qilin's second spirit ring. Her actions made the Tianmeng-Ai silkworm in Qilin's sea of consciousness laugh until its stomach hurt, calling her a stupid rabbit. That's right, the Tianmeng-Ai silkworm had long since seen through Xiao Wu's identity. After all, it was a million-year spirit beast known for its mental force, how could it not see through Xiao Wu's identity? After returning to the academy, Qilin and Xiao Wu's lives became simple and unadorned again. In the following time, Qilin was either researching spirit tools or playing video games with Xiao Wu. It was just that Qilin was a little bothered by the fact that he seemed to have hit a bottleneck in the manufacturing of spirit tools. Because manufacturing spirit tools not only required a lot of metal materials but also required forging these metal materials into precise parts. This was very complex. Moreover, Qilin couldn't find any advanced books on spirit tools. Exploring on his own was too inefficient. As for spirit power cultivation, that was what Qilin cared about the least. Because he had already surpassed Xiao Wu and Tang San by too much. As soon as he condensed his second spirit ring, his spirit power had already reached level 25. Even if he once again reduced his daily cultivation time, giving Tang San and Xiao Wu ample opportunity to catch up, they still couldn't even see his back. Just like that, time flew by. When Qilin reached level 30, guess what happened? Qilin had another dream. Unlike the last time he dreamt of the ethereal world, this time he came to a majestic palace filled with immortal aura. The palace was very mysterious. At first glance, Qilin thought it was just a palace. But when he looked again, he had the illusion that the palace was infinitely large and infinitely high, as if it wasn't a palace but a world. In the center of the palace, an 8-trigram furnace stood. The furnace body was wide and thick, the 8-trigram pattern flowed endlessly, and it was covered with ancient and obscure runes. Crimson flames burned fiercely inside the furnace, and above the furnace top, auspicious clouds lingered, and purple energy rose. An old man wearing a Taoist robe with a benevolent and dignified face stood in front of the 8-trigram furnace, holding a round fan with sun and moon patterns, casually fanning the fire in the furnace. Suddenly, he seemed to sense something and slightly turned his head. Those wise, deep eyes, which seemed to see through everything in the world, instantly fell upon Qilin. Qilin was slightly startled. He had been discovered. Looking at the old man in the Taoist robe in front of him, although Qilin didn't study Chinese mythology much, he vaguely guessed his identity. Grand Supreme Elder. However, before Qilin could perform a grand leap towards the old man, he saw the old man smile slightly at him and wave his hand. The next moment, that feeling of detachment surged into his heart again. The world spun. Whoosh. Qilin suddenly sat up from the bed, gasping for breath several times. Coming back to his senses, he finally realized. This time, he hadn't forgotten the content of the dream, and the third spirit ring had also condensed. The color of the spirit ring was deep red, the same color as the flames burning in the 8-trigram furnace in his dream. Although both were red, there was a clear difference from the blood-red 100,000-year spirit ring on Bibi Dong. Moreover, Qilin could feel wisps of scorching heat from the spirit ring. Third spirit ability, 16 Creation. The effect of the spirit ability was to summon a ball of flame. As long as materials were thrown into it, he could forge any item he could imagine. Of course, the more complex the item to be forged, the more terrifying the spirit power consumed. Woohoo, taking off. Although cheating made Qilin feel ashamed, it was really satisfying. Qilin's cheers startled Xiao Wu, who was not far away. She said curiously, Shaolin Jie, what's going on? You're so happy. Qilin happily pinched her tender little face and said, guess what? I had another dream yesterday. You condensed another spirit ring in your dream. Instantly, Xiao Wu guessed what had happened to Qilin. Oh my god, Shaolin Jie, it's only been a year since you broke through to become a spirit grandmaster, and I'm only level 23. How are you already a spirit elder? You're clearly lazier than me in cultivating spirit power, so how is your spirit power cultivating so much faster than mine? Are you cheating? Xiao Wu pouted, complaining incessantly. Cheating, this was a word Xiao Wu learned from Qilin, originally used by her in games. But she found that the word, cheating, also applied to Qilin. Fortunately, there was also Tang San, who cultivated even slower than her, only just reaching level 20. Otherwise, Xiao Wu would have had her confidence shattered by Qilin. Both had innate full spirit power, and she was even a 100,000-year spirit beast that had taken human form. How could the gap be so big? By the way, Shaolin Jie, quickly let me see what your spirit ring looks like. Is it purple? Normally, the best spirit ring configuration for a 3-ring spirit elder was yellow, yellow, purple. Since Qilin condensed his spirit ring himself, Xiaowu wasn't sure if it was a 1,000-year spirit ring. If Shaolin Jie only condensed a 100-year spirit ring, that would be terrible luck. After all, the effect of a 1,000-year spirit ring was much stronger than a 100-year spirit ring. Qilin looked around and then said, let's go somewhere else for you to see. Saying that, he took Xiaowu to the academy's small woods. Spirit ring, show. As Qilin's thoughts moved. Pure white, brilliant gold, deep red. 3 spirit rings slowly rose from under Qilin's feet. Red, red. Xiaowu opened her mouth in surprise, her words stuttering. As a 100,000-year spirit beast, was there anyone who knew better than Xiaowu what a red spirit ring symbolized? She originally thought it was already ridiculous that Qilin, as a human, could condense a spirit ring in his dream. Unexpectedly, what was even more ridiculous was that he had condensed a 100,000-year spirit ring. Is this not too heaven-defying? If the Tianmeng Ice silkworm in his sea of consciousness hadn't been sleeping and hadn't sensed Qilin's condition, it would definitely have been even more frantic than Xiaowu. As expected, more than 10 days later, the Tianmeng Ice silkworm, who had been sleeping in the sea of consciousness, woke up faintly. When he learned what had happened to Qilin, he was like he had suddenly gone mad, shouting and rolling around in the sea of consciousness, constantly emitting a lewd laugh. He increasingly felt that he was the son of destiny. His silkworm life was like cheating. First, he was chased by his natural enemy, then fell into an ice crevice, found the 10,000-year ice marrow, and grew safely to over 900,000 years. Although he was unfortunately imprisoned by those bastards in the Stardow Great Forest midway, thankfully, he escaped death by encountering a spatial storm and met Qilin. To think that he, the Tianmeng Ice silkworm, had drifted through his life, and finally, before his life limit, he met his wise lord. Chapter 29, Shira God, damn, there's something dirty. Chapter 29, Shira God, holy crap, there's something dirty. Time flies. 2.5 years later. In an independent room, Xiaowu and Qilin were engrossed in playing video games. As early as 2 years ago, they had applied to the academy to move out of the dormitory. Xiaowu, frantically controlling the controller, saw herself falling into a disadvantage, her health bar about to bottom out, and her small face showed an expression of urgency. Having lost all day, she was completely desperate from losing. Suddenly, her gaze fell upon the game console switch, and a cunning smile immediately appeared on her face. Then, as fast as lightning, she reached out and pressed the game console switch. Instantly, the game console screen went black. Xiaowu, on the other hand, showed a smug smile. Hee, Shaolin Jie, this time I didn't lose. After speaking, Xiaowu stood up and twisted her neck. After playing for half a day, her neck was sore. It must be said that the speed of physical development of soul masters on the Douluo continent is simply terrifying. Xiaowu was only 10.5 years old, but her body had already grown to nearly 1.6 meters, already showing signs of a graceful figure. Compared to when she first entered the academy, Xiaowu's small face had already begun to open up, her features were exquisite and moving, her eyelashes were very long, giving people a feeling of being delicate and lovely. Qilin also put away his controller and stood up. His height was slightly taller than Xiaowu's, reaching around 1.65 meters. He wore a white shirt, his appearance was clean and refreshing, sunny and handsome, and a faint smile always hung on the corner of his mouth. Imagine young Leon Limax. Despite Xiaowu cheating, he didn't show the slightest bit of anger. Rubbing Xiaowu's head, Qilin said casually, it's just playing games, being happy is the most important thing. After speaking, Qilin casually applied a set of his first soul skill package to himself and Xiaowu. Although he was only level 39 now, the lifespan of his first soul ring had already increased to 16,000 years. Therefore, the amplification of his first soul skill had already reached 20%. The small amount of permanent amplification had also slightly improved. Although it only increased by a small amount each time, it was quite considerable when accumulated over time. Otherwise, with Xiaowu's cultivation attitude, it would have been impossible for her to reach level 29 by now. In the original work, Xiaowu only reached level 29 after a year and a half. And now, Tang San, who did not have Qilin's assistance and was even more diligent than in the original work, was only level 25. Huh. As the translucent white soul rings flashed one after another, Xiaowu was fine, but Qilin's body shook, and he let out a light surprised sound. Xiaowu immediately looked over and asked curiously, Shaolin Jie, what's wrong? Looking at Xiaowu's curious gaze, Qilin smiled and said, nothing, I just broke through to level 40. Ah. Level 40. Xiaowu was stunned for a moment, then pitifully hugged Qilin's arm, her clear, watery eyes full of anticipation as she looked at Qilin. Shaolin Jie, please, quickly tell me how you cultivate so fast. I want to be like you too. Qilin spread his hands, but the smug smile on his face couldn't be restrained no matter what. I don't know either, maybe it's just natural. Xiaowu faced reality. This world is inherently unfair. Xiaowu pouted and let out a light snort, as if protesting. After a while, Xiaowu put the little bit of emotion she had just felt behind her and asked excitedly, so, are you going to hunt for a soul ring next, or let the soul ring condense on its own? Qilin scratched his head, this was a question. Theoretically, he did seem to be able to challenge his luck, and maybe the soul ring would really condense on its own for various reasons. But wouldn't that mean he wouldn't have any sense of participation at all? How could that be? After finally crossing over to the Douluo continent, if he didn't have any sense of participation, wouldn't he have crossed over for nothing? After making up his mind, Qilin nodded seriously. I've decided, this time I'm going to the Stardow Great Forest to hunt soul beasts. Stardow Great Forest. As soon as Qilin finished speaking, Xiaowu cried out in surprise. Seeing her so excited, Qilin raised an eyebrow, a smile that wasn't quite a smile appearing on his face. Why do you get so excited whenever the Stardow Great Forest is mentioned? Ah. Is there? Why don't I know myself? Xiaowu looked left and right, pretending to be confused. In Qilin's sea of consciousness, Tianmeng Iceworm complained, as expected, she's a stupid rabbit. How many years has she been in the human world, and she still can't even act? Haha. Qilin rubbed Xiaowu's head and didn't expose her. He just smiled and said, alright, I just saw you were so excited and wanted to ask if you wanted to go to the Stardow Great Forest with me. When Xiaowu heard this, her eyes immediately lit up. Really? Qilin smiled and said, otherwise. That's great. Xiaowu hugged Qilin's arm and kissed him on the cheek, so excited she almost jumped up. Alright, pack what needs to be packed. I'll go hire a carriage in a while. If we're fast, we might even arrive in half a month. Xiaowu happily agreed, then trotted back to the bedroom to pack her things. While Xiaowu was packing, Qilin went to Director Su's office to ask for leave and also went outside to contact the carriage. God realm. In front of a majestic divine hall filled with killing intent, a tall man wrapped in dark red demonic pattern armor stood above the sea of clouds. The man simply stood in place, yet he gave off a feeling as if he was distorting the space around him. His deep and all-encompassing eyes were tightly fixed on the sea of clouds, his brows already furrowed into a knot. What is the origin of that young man? Why can't this god see through him? Something's not right. In this era, Tang San is the favored child of heaven and earth, blessed with great fortune. But why, starting from a similar point, can this young man leave Tang San far behind? Shirogad muttered to himself. He knew better than anyone that Tang San was the favored child of heaven and earth in this era, otherwise he wouldn't have guided the soul of Tang San from another world into this body. But where exactly did something go wrong? Tang San was the successor he had carefully selected. If, because of this variable, he couldn't successfully inherit his divine position, or if he perished prematurely, then he didn't know how many more years he would have to search before finding a suitable candidate again. So, a sharp glint flashed in Shirogad's eyes. It seems he needed to use a little trick. Putting everything else aside, he at least needed to figure out the secret on this young man. With this thought, Shirogad immediately split off a divine sense and entered the Douluo continent. Normally, gods in the god realm naturally couldn't interfere with matters on the Douluo continent. But he was the god realm's enforcer god. Even if he secretly broke the law he enforced, who could know and who could control him? As Shirogad's divine sense entered the Douluo continent, it instantly locked onto Qilin. Swish. A few seconds later, Shirogad had already appeared above Qilin. Let me see what secrets you are hiding. He muttered to himself, and Shirogad easily controlled his divine sense to invade Qilin's sea of consciousness. However, before he could be happy, the next second. Boom. He saw a brilliant golden lotus filled with a sacred aura enter his vision. The light emitted by the golden lotus actually gave his divine sense a feeling of being burned by a scorching sun, causing his divine sense to begin to melt. What the hell is this thing? Shirogad was extremely decisive and immediately wanted to escape from Qilin's sea of consciousness. However, before he could make any move, a surging deep red flame flew towards him. Looking at this ball of deep red flame, the divine sense eyes of Shirogad suddenly constricted. On this ball of flame, he felt a feeling as if it could incinerate all things. Not good. Before he could escape from Qilin's sea of consciousness, this ball of deep red flame had already flown onto him. In an instant, Shirogad's divine sense body couldn't hold on for even a second. With a scream, it directly turned into a ball of soul origin. Outside, Qilin scratched his head inexplicably, feeling as if he had suddenly become much more energetic. Strange, why'd I suddenly feel refreshed? After thinking for a moment, Qilin couldn't figure out what was going on, so he simply stopped bothering with this trivial matter. It was more important to find Director Su and ask for leave first. Chapter 30, heading to the Stardow Great Forest, targeted as fat sheep. PFF. In the god realm, the Asura god suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, his aura instantly becoming much weaker. His all-encompassing eyes were now filled with gravity. If one looked closely, a trace of confusion and fear could be seen within his pupils. What exactly were the golden lotus and flame in that boy's sea of consciousness? They had actually obliterated his divine sense so easily, causing him to suffer a backlash. After a moment of solemn reflection, the Asura god finally abandoned the idea of probing the boy's secrets for the time being. He gave the sea of clouds a deep look before turning back to his divine palace. And the moment he let go of the thought, his body and soul actually felt a sense of relief as if a heavy burden had been lifted. Meanwhile, at the core of the Stardow Great Forest, beneath Life Lake. Within a barrier, a giant silver dragon lay prostrate on an incredibly massive crystal throne. Its body was 1,000 meters tall, looking like a mountain range. The silver dragon's body was entirely covered in silver-white scales, each appearing as if cast from moonlight, radiating terrifying energy. Around its body, a 7-colored halo flowed, appearing both sacred and magnificent. At this moment, the silver dragon's massive head was slightly lowered, its horns winding upward. At the center of its brow, a crack was faintly visible, from which a blood-colored killing intent still spread, filled with the intent of slaughter. Suddenly, the silver dragon's eyes, which seemed to have been closed for countless ages, snapped open, bursting with a brilliance as dazzling as moonlight. An invisible majesty spread out, causing the waters of the entire life lake to ripple with countless waves. DTN and his party, who were guarding outside the barrier, suddenly felt a powerful suppression originating from their souls and bloodlines. They immediately knelt down toward the barrier. DTN's expression was one of pleasant surprise. Lord, you have awakened. An ethereal voice then rang out. I was merely disturbed by the Asura god's divine sense. My injuries are not yet healed. What? Hearing the name Asura god, DTN's majestic face underwent a drastic change in expression. Lord, could it be that the Asura god has detected your existence? The ethereal voice continued, no, his target wasn't me, and it seems he suffered a small loss. Not just DTN, but the several vicious beasts around him also showed shocked expressions. On the Douluo continent, besides the Lord, what other existence could make the Asura god suffer a setback? One must know that the Asura god was no ordinary god. However, the ethereal voice did not tell them the inside story, or perhaps it didn't know itself. It simply instructed, DTN, for the time being, I need you to keep a constant eye on the situation on the continent. DTN said respectfully, as you command. On the other side, after Qilin requested leave and rented a luxury carriage, he and Xiaowu left Nine Academy. On the carriage, Qilin pulled out a metallic lump resembling a brick phone. After injecting spirit power into it, his father's voice soon rang out. Son, why are you suddenly calling your dad? The so-called spirit tools change lives, and Qilin had seriously implemented this point. Although this self-made phone currently only had the function of making calls, it was still quite practical. However, this phone could only receive signals within a radius of 200 miles for now. Upon hearing Qitian's voice, Qilin immediately told him the news that he and Xiaowu were going to the Stardow Great Forest to hunt for spirits. Although Qilin and Xiaowu were only 10.5 years old, Qitian wasn't worried about their safety at all, only saying symbolically. Alright then, be safe on the road. Also, you're a little man now, remember to protect Xiaowu well. After saying that, the phone emitted a beeping sound. The other side hung up. Qilin shrugged and then put the phone into his storage bracelet. He then looked at Xiaowu and asked, alright, let's head out. Xiaowu also waved her hand lively. Let's go. Half a month later, the carriage dropped Qilin and Xiaowu off at a small town 100 miles away from the outskirts of the Stardow Great Forest. Any closer, and even the driver wouldn't dare to go. After all, on the outskirts of the Stardow Great Forest, spirit beasts would occasionally lunge out from within, safety was most important. Seeing this, Qilin had no intention of making things difficult for the driver and immediately paid the money readily. In any case, the town was only 100 miles from the Stardow Great Forest. It wouldn't hurt to experience the local customs here for a few days before heading in. The town wasn't large, likely only the size of 3 or 4 radish villages, and it didn't even have a perimeter wall. However, shops were lined up everywhere, not inferior to New City at all. Moreover, most of the people coming and going were spirit masters. Among these people, some sold weapons, some sold armor, some sold detoxification potions, all sorts of things, everything one could need was available. On their first day in town, Qilin took Xiaowu for a stroll around, buying whatever they needed. Most of what Qilin bought were materials or precious metals and the like. After all, he had studied spirit tools for several years, although with 16 creation he only needed to put in materials to create the items he needed. Creating things out of thin air consumed quite a lot of spirit power. Unless he was intimately familiar with the structure of the object being made, he couldn't effectively reduce the time and spirit power consumed in the creation process. For this reason, Qilin had not neglected his study of spirit tool knowledge, he was even more familiar with the names of various metallic materials. Of course, for much of this knowledge, he had gone to consult Tang San. Tang San could be considered an expert in this field, as long as it didn't involve Tang Sec's secret techniques, he was still willing to teach. After all, Tang Hao had already instructed him to find ways to win Qilin over. Even though he was just a support system spirit master, his cultivation talent was too terrifying. In the future, it was highly likely he would become the only support system titled Douluo on the continent today. Naturally, Qilin also gave Tang San several spirit tools as a reward. Coming back to the point, because of Qilin and Xiaowu's frantic shopping behavior, they were being viewed by many as fat sheep to be fleeced. In a place like this, kill someone and run, even if the Empire found out, they wouldn't bother to investigate. At most, they would symbolically issue a few wanted posters. On the way back to the inn, Qilin's ears suddenly twitched, and he said with a smile, "Xiaowu, it looks like we've been targeted." Upon hearing this, Xiaowu's eyes immediately lit up. To be fair, Xiaowu had a fair amount of violent tendencies in her. She had loved fighting since she was a child, and Tang San had been used as her punching bag an unknown number of times. Of course, most of those times were Tang San initiating the challenge. Precisely for this reason, after learning that someone had targeted them, not only was she not nervous, but she felt it was very exciting. She instantly became interested and began rubbing her palms together. Qilin led them in that direction. There are fewer people there, and it's spacious. How dare they target us? I'm going to beat them to death. Qilin naturally had no objection and immediately walked with Xiaowu toward that specific direction. At a corner 20 or 30 meters behind them, a small group of 5 with fierce faces, 4 men and 1 woman, exchanged glances, their eyes filled with greed and murderous intent. These 2 broths are so young yet they even have storage spirit tools. They might be a young master and young miss who ran away from some great clan. Hee, as long as we finish this job, we might be able to live comfortably for several more years. It's a pity we're not inside the Stardew Great Forest. Otherwise, I might have been able to have some fun. Such a handsome little boy isn't common. A short-haired, bearded fatty licked his lips with a wretched expression. Hearing his words, the others nearby immediately cast looks of disgust. At this time, the burly man in the lead said in a deep voice, "We are in town after all. Finish it quickly in a moment. Once you've killed them, pack up the spoils nimbly, then head to the Starluo Empire for a while to lie low." The 4 of them nodded immediately upon hearing this. Just as they were about to move, one of them suddenly looked at the foreheads of the other 4 and whispered a sentence. "My eyes must be playing tricks on me. Why does it feel like the foreheads of you 4 are all black?" Chapter 31 Qilin, although I am just a support, I am quite capable. Chapter 31 Qilin, although I'm just an auxiliary, I can actually fight. Stopped. Why aren't they moving? While the 5 were still confused, they saw Qilin and Xiaowu turn around. The former looked at them with a smile. The latter, however, was rubbing her fists, looking eager to fight. Only then did the 5 realize that these 2 kids had already discovered them long ago, which was why they deliberately led them here. The burly middle-aged man leading them glanced at the empty surroundings and let out a cold laugh. What 2 kids who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth? Just because they think they have some talent and strength, they dare to be so bold as to actively lead us to a place like this. What, do you 2 little guys not only not think about running away, but instead want to kill us? The other 4 also let out cruel laughter, their faces full of disdain. These 2 kids, they're at most 11 or 12 years old, right? Maybe even younger. Even if their talent is good, how good can it be? You should know, their boss is a level 33 Soul Grandmaster expert. Even among the 4 of them, the weakest, the 5th oldest, is level 24. What do these 2 kids have to fight them? Stop chattering. All at me together, I want to fight all 5. Xiaowu put her hands on her hips and let out a light snort. With that little expression in those eyes, she didn't see these guys in front of her as people. She has the secret weapon Xiaolin Jie gave her. What a sharp-tongued little girl, let's see how I tear her mouth apart later. The only woman in the group of 5 cursed. She had a good figure and wore a revealing, tight-fitting outfit, but there was a centipede-like scar on her face, making her look hideous and terrifying. But precisely because of this reason, she couldn't stand other women being more beautiful than her. Coupled with Xiaowu being so arrogant, it instantly ignited the fuse in her heart. And Xiaowu responded just as fiercely, "You ugly and wicked woman, all you know is barking, no one will ever want you for sure. If you dare, come at me, see if this grandma doesn't beat your mouth to a pulp." Simple trash talk, ultimate enjoyment. Beside her, Qilin's expression was, quote. Coughing lightly, Qilin whispered, "Xiaowu, you're letting yourself go again, lady, don't forget you're a lady." The hyped-up Xiaowu ignored Qilin's words and let out a light snort. "This won't do, others are bullying Sister Xiaowu, how can I tolerate this? See if I don't beat her mouth to a pulp later." The woman opposite was first so angered by Xiaowu that her eyes were red and smoke seemed to rise from her body. "Boss, all of you stay put, let me go kill that little bitch." The leading middle-aged man nodded faintly. "Go ahead, 3rd oldest, finish it quickly. Since these 2 kids are so fearless, maybe their level isn't low, but it's absolutely impossible for them to surpass you." The woman ranked 3rd among the 5, a level 27 agility attack system battle soul master, her martial soul was a leopard. Leopard, possess. The woman let out a low shout, and a wisp of yellowish-brown light was released from between her eyebrows. The next second, the woman's body became slightly taller, and sharp claws appeared on both of her hands. At her feet, 2 soul rings, 1 white and 1 yellow, slowly rose. But Xiaowu, who was watching from the side, let out a disdainful cold snort after seeing them. "I thought you were so powerful, but you only have 2 rings. Stop pretending, see how Sister Xiaowu beats you until you don't know which way is north." After speaking, Xiao Wu swung her scorpion braid, leapt lightly, and 2 soul rings bloomed along with her. Yellow, yellow. She was also a 2-ring Great Soul Master, but Xiao Wu's soul power had reached level 29. Moreover, because Qilin stacked buffs on her every day, Xiao Wu's various attributes far exceeded those of others at the same level. Swish. The next second, Xiao Wu's figure suddenly disappeared from the sight of the leopard female soul master. So fast. The leopard female soul master's pupils suddenly contracted. Relying on the strong wind suddenly rushing at her from the left, she fiercely clawed to the side with her sharp claws. However, Xiao Wu easily dodged her attack by slightly shifting her body, and then her first soul ring suddenly lit up. The next second, Xiao Wu's waist suddenly bent with extreme flexibility, performing a backbend in midair. Meanwhile, her long scorpion tail braid had already flexibly bound the neck of the leopard female soul master. Not good. The leopard female soul master let out a low cry. Before she could react, her body had already been flung into midair by Xiao Wu. Leopard shadow clone. The leopard female soul master hurriedly used her second soul skill. Her body suddenly split into 3 illusions in midair, intended to confuse the incoming Xiao Wu. But Xiao Wu merely let out a light snort. Her body flashed through the 3 illusions, immediately distinguishing the real body from the fakes, and then she fiercely kicked her abdomen. Bang. This kick directly caused the leopard female soul master's face to suddenly twist, and she fell powerlessly from midair. Not good. Quickly save the third oldest. The leading middle-aged man was the first to act, directly activating his martial soul possession. His martial soul was a blade as wide as a palm, and at his feet, 3 soul rings, 1 white and 2 yellow, rose. So what if you're a soul grandmaster? Sister Xiao Wu beats soul grandmasters. Xiao Wu said this, but her body honestly shouted. Shaolin Jie, quickly stack buffs on me. Receive. Qilin, who was watching the show from behind, made an okay gesture. He raised his hand, and a 4-leaf clover emitting a rich halo immediately appeared from his hand. A pure white soul ring suddenly lit up at his feet. Gift of destiny, strength, speed, spirit, defense. 4 breaks in 1 second. Following this, 4 white lights rushed into Xiao Wu's body. Xiao Wu immediately felt an inexhaustible strength within her. Ha 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 ha. Sister Xiao Wu can fight 100 people now. At this moment, the middle-aged soul master holding the broadblade said in a deep voice, "Little girl, don't get happy too early, your opponent now is me. I will let you know what kind of gap there's between a great soul master and a soul grandmaster." After speaking, the broadblade soul master flipped his hand, grabbed the broadblade, and charged towards Xiao Wu. The tip of the broadblade scraped against the ground, creating a series of sparks. Whoosh. As the blade struck out, a sound of tearing through the air came from where the blade passed. However, Xiao Wu's speed was even faster. She actually flashed behind him the moment he struck. How did this little girl's speed increase so much? Is this reasonable? Before the broadblade middle-aged man could recover, Xiao Wu had already fiercely kicked out a whip leg, aiming for the middle-aged man's forehead. Bang. At the last moment, the broadblade middle-aged man slightly turned his body, avoiding his head, and then immediately turned around and struck out another blade. But the next second, Xiao Wu's second soul ring quietly lit up, and a hint of pink suddenly flashed in her eyes. Soft Bone Rabbit's second soul skill, Charm. The next moment, the broadblade middle-aged man instantly froze in place. Seeing this, Xiao Wu kicked directly at his lower regions. Ah. The intense pain instantly woke the broadblade middle-aged man from the charm. He lowered his head and glanced at the area that was already in disarray, letting out heart-wrenching screams from his mouth. Kill, all of you attack together. The broadblade middle-aged man gritted his teeth and roared. At this moment, the others also knew that their group had truly kicked a steel plate this time. At this moment, the short-haired, bearded fatty in the group of 5 let out a loud shout. That kid is an auxiliary soul master. I'll go take him down first, and then use him to threaten this little girl. Right, we'll hold off this girl first to create an opportunity for the 4th oldest. Quick, attack. While speaking, the leopard female soul master, who had already climbed up from the ground, the broadblade middle-aged man enduring the pain, and the other 2 attacked Xiao Wu together, making her temporarily unable to pay attention to Qilin. And the short-haired, bearded fatty let out a sinister laugh and directly activated his martial soul possession. Don't look at him being fat, but his martial soul was actually a wind shadow cat, also an agility attack system battle soul master. After seeing him activate his martial soul possession, his figure was incredibly fast, crossing a distance of over 10 meters in the blink of an eye, arriving in front of Qilin. He laughed sinisterly from above. Kid, obediently surrender. After speaking, he reached out to grab Qilin's neck. However, to his surprise, he didn't see the slightest trace of fear on Qilin's face. He saw Qilin easily and casually dodge to the side, and then, without haste, he threw a punch. The seemingly slow punch was like a bullet in the eyes of the short-haired, bearded fatty, violently smashing into the fatty's abdomen. Bang. The next second, the fat on his body suddenly vibrated violently, and his eyeballs looked as if they were about to pop out of their sockets at any moment. After a brief pause, the fatty's legs went soft, and he directly knelt on the ground, his face twisted into a ball due to the pain. The way he was curled up looked just like a fat and disgusting maggot. At this moment, Qilin casually clapped his hands, smiled as he looked at the few people intensely fighting with Xiao Wu, and slowly spoke a sentence. Although I'm just an auxiliary, I can actually fight quite well. Chapter 32 How to become a master if you have a gun but